Imagine tossing some budget feline crunchies to a moody alicap, then suddenly tripping into a glitchy godhood status that makes you a total legend of battle. Our hero Choi Jing is basically your average Joe, just struggling to keep his head above water in the sketchy parts of town. However, everything flips once he shows a bit of kindness to a deeply rattled midnight kitten. He somehow sucks up or celestial juice leaking out of a fancy magical trinket stuck to its backside. Out of nowhere, mundane tasks like boiling grains or merely inhaling oxygen grant him boatloads of level points and beefy muscles. He assumed the stroke of luck was just his ticket to not getting mugged while working through the slums. Yet with shattery federal agents and nasty-looking freaks of nature blocking his path, his journey gets messy. Those ridiculous god-tier powers he just found are destined for some serious trial by fire. Let us return to that sketchy backstreet where a single dish of generic tuna bits shifted the destiny of the entire planet forever. The tale begins in a gloomy, tight alleyway after sunset, where our main guy offers up a dish while telling a mysterious shadow to go ahead and enjoy the meal. He places the bowl down, revealing it is not meant for a human, but rather basic cat biscuits that he is hyping up as if they were gourmet delicacies. The target is a grumpy void kitty who feels totally insulted, delivering a glaive so sharp it basically asks him why he thinks it would touch such garbage. Jing wears a suspicious little smirk, because although he knows the cat is a hobo, he is definitely testing its reaction to some standard, bottom-shelf feline snacks. The kittens and thoughts are chaotic, finally realizing that living on the streets is way more brutal than expected, and it looks genuinely horrified by the dry biscuits. Jing realizes things are getting weird, since no ordinary pet has a reaction that intense, so he decides to change tactics and head straight for the kitchen area. Once he vanishes into the pantry area, the kitten just sits there looking baffled, wondering what this weird human is actually plotting for his next move. Suddenly, the man becomes a culinary wizard, slicing veggies at sonic speed, while a digital alert pings to show his cooking rank is skyrocketing with every chop. The pan is sizzling and the stats are stacking up, proving that whipping up a quick snack can actually be a literal and massive power boost. He serves a hot dish of savory pork and peppers on rice that is honestly too fancy for a pet, asking if this meets the picky cat standards, and frankly I would eat it myself. The kitty's eyes sparkle like diamonds while it devours the fancy feast, marking a total personality flip compared to its previous elitist attitude toward dry food. Jing watches with a satisfied smirk, proving his theory that this beast is no mere pet, concluding it is a human in a fursuit, though the reason remains unknown. He spots a weirdly fancy gold bangle on the cat's leg that starts to shimmer, while a digital bell rings to signal that a resource harvest has begun. The giant glowing screen pops up, declaring the celestial juice harvest is finished, then offers him a double life ability, provided he is willing to pay a hefty price. Jing glares at the button, thinking over his choices, but in a chaotic world he knows you never say no to a free cheat code for survival. He confirms his choice with a confident yes as a blinding light erupts from the interface, which is where the real fun and games finally begin. A shimmering yellow aura wraps around his frame, resembling a classic anime power-up, and he wonders what kind of weird juice he just swallowed. A small spark of sunlight lands in his grip, appearing quite tiny yet vibrating with a level of energy that feels completely broken and overpowered. The digital system details his new extra life perk, which is essentially a respawn hack allowing him to come back a week after kicking the bucket, though it only works once every 90 days. Jing is floored by the fact he just scored a free insurance policy for his soul, giving him a massive advantage in this cutthroat urban jungle. He is pumped about the passive buff, but now he is itching to see how crazy the active powers are, already scouting for his next big boost. Turns out that special ability is locked tighter than a drum and demands a fortune in divine energy, with him holding a measly 25 of the 500 needed. While the kitty devours its dinner, Jing feels like a total heel for draining its power, pondering if this energy siphon is just plain cruel. He spies a roadmap of nasty scars across the feline back, suggesting this poor creature or whatever dwells inside has clearly seen better and brighter days. He decides that pilfering essence like a common crook is run, so he resolves to hit his marks without becoming some sort of heartless soul-sucking monster. He strokes the cat as it stuffs its face, creating a deceptively tranquil vibe while the little furball remains obsessed with every last grain of food. With rice smeared across its mug, the cat lets out a happy yowl, and Jing realizes he cannot simply toss this broken thing back onto the streets. He rises to scout for intel on that elusive essence, choosing to leave the cat to its own devices for a while just to see how it fares. The door clicks shut behind him, trapping the cat in the gloom where it sits motionless, tracking the exit with eyes that seem to pulse with light. Once he departs, the animal drops the act, its eyes burning a fierce emerald green, proving this is definitely not your run-of-the-mill household tappy. The creature glares at a red blinking wall light with a spooky level of brain power, pinning that there is some serious clandestine mischief afoot right now. We shift to the city outskirts, a grim industrial wasteland where the locals whisper that breaking into the inner ring is essentially a fool's errand. It is a pit of misery where even a modest bill could ruin a household, yet the desperate masses still swarm there chasing a ghost of better days. Jing navigates the neon alleys with the swagger of a local, pending at a secret pathway to social climbing that the common rabble totally ignores. He balls his hand into a fist, summoning a glowing character for martial arts, which is basically the golden ticket to success in this bizarre reality. A gang of thugs corners him and bellows his name, clearly finding him with more speed and efficiency than his own sluggish morning commute. He glares down with chilling crimson eyes, asking what they want with zero fear of these amateur bouncers waving the pathetic little baseball bats. The suits claim they represent a boss named Pei Yaoguan, insisting he's a dead man working for flirting with a woman their master fancies. Jing yawns at the bus drama, looking utterly bored before blurring into action before they can even finish the long-winded threat. In a flash, he is airborne, raining down strikes that send the dunes flying before the tiny brains can register that the fight has begun. The head thug stands there shell-shocked, struggling to process why his rival moved with the speed of a blur he could never possibly follow. Jing plans to sledgehammer blow into a thug's gut, delivering enough force to make the poor sap regret his entire choice of afternoon lunch. The guy hits the dirt hard, spitting up water while clutching his midsection, realizing Jing is definitely not the type to play nicely. His hand sparkles as he tuggles his system, ensuring the upcoming beatdown is completely rigged in his own favor for maximum efficiency. The target circle locks onto his enemies while his eye glows, making him look like a cold-blooded hunter stalking through the dimly lit alleyway. The dunes whine on the ground, beaten and bruised, failing to grasp the massive gap in power between their crew brawling and his actual technique. A massive brute steps up with a spectral blue wolf head looming behind him, laughing that these tiny skills are useless against his roar might. Zhujing's eye pulses as he weaves around a clumsy haymaker, dancing through the air so fluidly that the thug is just hitting empty space. The big lug shatters the concrete with a massive slam, proving he is a true martial artist and far beyond the skill level of a typical street fighter. The Titans works, calling him a nimble little flea and banking on his own massive strength to carry him to a crushing victory today. Zhujing flashes a wicked grin, his glowing eyes signaling that this giant is the perfect encyclopedia for learning the secrets of the martial world. Our protagonist locks eyes with the brute, demanding a full confession or promising a world of pain, which is a chilling threat that would make a snowman shiver. They launched the dune into a masonry surface with enough force to fracture the mortar, and that fancy suit meant nothing once he became a slightly bleeding wall ornament. The macho persona evaporated instantly as he sobbed on the tiles, begging for a reprieve, and he swore to confess his deepest secrets if Zhujing would just quit the pummeling. Zhujing stayed with visible disappointment, having expected more from a supposed elite criminal, since gang memberships do not apparently come with a backbone or any combat skills. A brief recap highlights the absolute slaughter, where Zhujing moved like a sapphire lightning bolt while the bully was merely punching ghosts and swinging at thin air. Absolute dread washed over him when he realized his eyes could not track the incoming strikes, leaving him completely humiliated by a kid he dismissed as a generic nobody. A digital notification confirms Zhujing's combat abilities were live, revealing his targeting mastery turned his fists into heat-seeking missiles instead of just improving his vision. Our hero stood over the coward like a vengeful spirit with crimson eyes, radiating pure menace, while the poor sap vibrated with fear and pleaded for his life. Interest piqued, Zhujing questioned a specific maneuver the loser attempted during the brief scuffle, and the dune confessed it was just unrefined inner power rather than any style. He described inner vitality as concentrated physical force channeled into a single, explosive release, which is the essential ingredient for any fighter wanting to be a legit warrior. Seeking the complete textbook, Zhujing was met with excuses about only knowing the introductory chapters, as the thug scrambled for a quick exit before things got worse. Snatching the guy by his shirt, our hero mocked the terrifying legend surrounding his supposed street cred, since the fabled beast turned out to be a whimpering puppy. Through salty tears, he confessed to fabricating his own scary lore just to gain some social standing, arguing that actual criminals would never be permitted to attend school anyway. Delivering a final ultimatum, Zhujing promised that a repeat offense would result in much more broken bones, dedicated to ensuring this pest never harassed another innocent soul again. He assigned the bully a soul-crushing homework task, involving a public apology performed before his entire class, and he even insisted a video recording be made for proof. The dune bolted like a frightened toddler while Zhujing reclaimed a mobile device, leaving the loser with a trail of tears and absolutely zero dignity. Scanning the luminous display, Zhujing noted the coordinates for a nearby combat training facility, and since that sniveling weakling lacked answers, the professional instructor surely would not. Gleaming skyscrapers pierced the twilight sky as the city transitioned into a vibrant, neon-lit landscape, which felt worlds away from the grimy, trash-filled corridor he just left. Our protagonist trekked toward the central district, where the elite players and massive fortunes reside, and the narrative scope was finally expanding into high-stakes territory for the story. While strolling, the interface notified Zhujing of physical gains earned from the previous brawl, even providing virtual navigation arrows to guide him through the city. The character menu was overflowing with growth in every conceivable category, from culinary arts to charisma, as if every mundane action was somehow boosting his overall power levels. It dawned on Zhujing that one actual scuffle outweighed hours of repetitive lifting at the fitness center, and he had clearly stumbled upon a massive leveling exploit. He eventually stood before the Golden Wind Dojo, a grand structure that radiated discipline and strength, hoping this institution would provide the breakthrough his development needed. Upon reaching the front counter, the attendant gestured for silence with a very stern facial expression, as he had apparently interrupted a high-level lecture that required quiet attention. Zhujing eavesdropped as the instructor began detailing the primary methods of rhythmic inhalation, which was described as the mandatory foundation for any aspiring legendary warrior. The teacher clarified that controlled respiration was a key to awakening one's latent internal energy flow, and one hasn't really started training until the Kai is circulating. Observing the pupils seated on cushions, he watched them mimic the leader's precise and steady movements, finding the perfect building blocks for his own journey toward absolute dominance. In a charmingly small art style, our hero beamed with excitement to test these new theories, and though the receptionist cautioned it would be difficult, he was already sold. He inadvertently invaded her personal space while inquiring, causing the poor girl to blush and stammer, and his system even awarded him bonus points for being accidentally charismatic. Zhujing offered a polite nod and departed to locate a mat, leaving the flustered woman in a daze while unintentionally grinding social experience simply by existing near her. Zhujing anchors his posture and starts inhaling, leaving the skeptical crowd whispering that a greenhorn has no business attempting such advanced breathing. The session is brutally intense, with students gasping as the clock ticks down, and one nervous wreck fearing he might get fired for falling behind. As the final 20 seconds tick away, students collapse in a coughing fit, proving this drill is less about air and more about pure agony. One guy's face turns an alarming shade of beet red until he eventually craters, releasing a massive gust of air while failing the test miserably. The panicked manager begs the master for extra time to recruit better talent, terrified that this embarrassing display will ruin the academy for good. Giving up on his useless students, the master prepares to storm out after witnessing a pathetic performance that ruined his entire morning. Abruptly, the master freezes in shock, staring at the motionless Zhujing who sits calmly amidst a crowd of defeated bodies while radiating a mystical glow. Zhujing realizes the trek is just overloading the lungs with oxygen, a high-level feat that leaves ordinary mortals gasping for a bit of air. He feels his inner energy expanding until he feels ready to burst, but the master mercifully yells that time is up at the perfect moment. He exhales a long breath as the system pings, confirming he unlocked a skill, and the master rushes over to check if the poor guy survived. The staff stare at him as if they have seen a miracle, genuinely terrified that holding his breath for so long might have caused some damage. Dujing just grins and claims he feels great, while a strange glowing mist envelops him, signaling that his Inikai is finally fully awakened. Blown away by this talent, the master tries to recruit him immediately, asking for his name and if he wants to join the Golden Wind Gym. The manager grabs his hands with heart-shaped eyes, clearly deciding that she is not letting this handsome specimen escape her clutches so easily. A deafening crash rocks the room as the front entrance explodes, revealing a terrifying silhouette lurking in the thick cloud of settling dust. Before anyone processes the threat, the claw slashes through a student, sparking instant chaos as screams and blood fill the once quiet practice hall. A monstrous multi-eyed beast has invaded the dojo, pinning victims down with terrifying knees like some nightmare ripped right out of a B-grade movie. Students scramble in pure terror, but the master remains unfazed, barking orders for everyone to evacuate the premises while the panic is still rising. Taking charge, the master commands Manager Zhang to lead the hysterical students toward the exit because this is now a full-blown emergency. The close-up reveals a grotesque, bug-like monstrosity with glowing red eyes, hungry teeth, and a personality that seems much nastier than a simple brawl. The beast lunges at Manager Zhang with razor claws ready to fill at her, but she stays frozen in place as the shadow consumes her vision. Zhu Jing blurs into motion, snatching the manager away just as the claws shred the floorboards in a heroic save that defies all normal physics. He pins her down to shield her from the flying debris, though she seems surprisingly distracted by the sudden physical intimacy of the situation. Even with a monster attacking, the manager blushes deeply, hopelessly smitten and silently wishing he would keep holding her like that a bit longer. A notification adds 20 points to his charm stat, but Zhu Jing stays cold and focused, already mapping out how to use his new internal techniques. He views this nightmare as the ultimate field test for his abilities, feeling excited rather than scared as he prepares to unleash his hidden potential. Zhu Jing stands up with his fist glowing like a golden lantern, ready to show this giant vermin exactly what a real martial artist looks like. The cockroach creature shrieks and charges with a bloodthirsty aura, sprinting towards Zhu Jing with lethal claws intended to turn him into mincemeat. Without blinking, Zhu Jing counters with a golden punch, triggering a blinding shockwave that slams into the monster with the force of a wrecking ball. The shockwave rattles the walls while Zhu Jing stands firm, calmly noting that physics will not be kind to a bug whose internal pressure suddenly hits a wall. Determined to wrap things up, he channels his fresh internal power directly into his right fist. Tai twirls around his arm like a shiny electric noodle, crackling with golden vibes. Everything gets super bright as he jams all his strength into one tiny spot, proving that this rookie is definitely not your average weekend warrior. Things are getting spicy. The game screen blinks as his special attack goes live, delivering a short-range wallop that sounds like a dry twig snapping, totally wrecking that supposedly tough bug shell. This punch sends a massive pest sailing through the air like a discarded toy, which is impressive for a dude who barely figured out human breathing earlier today. The beast hits the deck amidst a cloud of debris and regret, while our hero remains completely chill, casually mentioning that the overgrown beetle was actually a total pushover. He flicks a speck of grime off his shirt as if he just did a few yoga stretches rather than surviving a duel. His coolness level is honestly getting ridiculous. Manager Zhang is basically drooling over the new champion. Meanwhile, the old sensei looks nervous, because technically that much energy should have turned the boy into strawberry jam. That hideous creature manages to let out a weak groan while wobbling upright. Despite looking like it went through a blender, it is stubborn but definitely finished. He just wiggles his eyebrows mockingly, prepared for another go if necessary, because he knows deep down that this bug is toast no matter how many retries it gets. He prepares for another blast of shiny spirit juice, ordering his Marner to dather for a second helping of pain, but the universe decides to interrupt the sequence. Crimson liquid paints the walls out of nowhere, leaving him standing there blinking like an idiot. He has not even swung yet and is wondering if the air is bleeding. A neon slice of sapphire magic zips by, alerting him to a new player in the game. He initially assumes his own power went haywire until he spots the expanding rings. His ruby-colored gaze shifts as he looks for the hidden newcomer, staying sharp because whoever just arrived feels like a way bigger threat than the cockroach guy ever was. The glowing cerulean circle ripples through the room, lighting up the whole building. It seems like some fancy scientific SWAT team decided to crash the local brawl. In a flash, multiple glowing blades turn the monster into a serving of diced bug tartar, leaving him stunned while watching his training partner get shredded by a third party. He stands amidst some sparkly blue dust, feeling extremely confused. He was just starting to have some fun before some rude person snatched his hard-earned experience points. A fancy hand wearing a futuristic, shiny glove reaches into the scene, looking like it belongs to some elite military organization with a massive hardware budget. A silver-locked lady from the White Crow unit strolls in wearing spandex that looks barely breathable, immediately declaring that her team is now in charge of this mess. Our boy has no clue who these dunes are, but he has to admit their one-shot kill was pretty slick, realizing the city has some crazy secrets beneath its surface. The old master peeks from the sidelines while watching the scene unfold, totally shocked that a teenage student beat up a mutant with nothing but his bare knuckles. The female leader spots him and wears a devious grin, basically finding him visually pleasing and already thinking of ways to recruit him into her organization for work. She approaches confidently and shoves a business card into his palm, suggesting a weekend meeting at 5, claiming she can reveal all the juicy lore he craves. He accepts the invitation while looking fairly suspicious, but his curiosity is piqued since he is the only one offering actual explanations instead of just more riddles. The little card displays a basic address pointing to the 7th floor of a library, quite a strange hideout for some high-level operatives, but he will roll with it. Sunset paints the urban horizon as they exit, with Manager Zhang clinging to his arm like glue, pleading to drive him to the nearest clinic for some bandages. He rejects her offer with a kind smile, insisting that his health is perfect, before waving goodbye and wandering away into the evening while they stand there motionless. Dang is bawling her eyes out as he departs, yelling for him to visit soon. While the master realizes this kid is way too gifted for the little gym, while he disappears into the darkness, the teacher reflects that such a monster of a student, strung after one lesson, is simply impossible to tether to one location. The digital chime echoes in his brain as he gets over 200 experience points. Apparently beating the snot out of bugs is a meta for gaining levels quickly. This character page is glowing green with upgrades now, highlighting increased popularity with office workers, extra handsomeness points, and a leveled up melee attack called short range power. The technical guide diagrams the strike, compressing spiritual energy into a speck before launching it like a hyperspeed railgun, making even the thickest armor look like damp cardboard. Kyujing squeezes his knuckles, looking completely hooked on the newfound muscle, until his Shibai-style face turns an unpeeling shade of pea soup, confirming that big power causes massive side effects. Old memories of his mentor screeching about his clumsy energy usage bubble up, convincing him to hit the sack rather than push his luck with the cosmic gods tonight. Navigating home beneath the flickering glow of street lamps, he twirls on the bird beam patrol and those literal bug people. As the world transforms into a complicated mess, he peers into a pitch-black corridor, questioning what additional hidden weirdness resides in the urban shadows away from his current understanding of the city. He finally reaches his apartment, salivating over the chance to sleep until Saturday when he plans to investigate that library coordinates list. Stepping toward the entrance, he spots a soft brightness filtering through the glass, which is pretty suspicious given his strict memory of turning the lights off. Creeping into the living area, he finds his tablet screen beaming with life, indicating some uninvited hacker is likely scrolling through his personal data on the table. Caught in the act, the domestic short-eye stands accused of phone-related crimes while he looms above, demanding an explanation for its thumbless scrolling techniques right this instant. The animal produces a small, pitiful squeak to mask its digital crimes. Though ordinary house cats usually spend their time chasing dust instead of browsing the web, he is simply too zonked to start a legislative battle with a mammal, opting to announce a ceasefire until sunrise before he physically melts into the wood flooring. He drops like a sack of bricks onto the mattress and starts soaring lugs, while the fluffy creature watches from the furniture with a face of total confusion. Crawling onto the sheets, the whiskered roommate starts doing a thirst scent check, its white pupils identifying the unmistakable odor of red combat fluid on his clothes. The brilliant white chin radiates from the cat as it looks on, connecting the dots that its provider engaged in intense urban warfare while it was busy on the telephone. Glowing green orbs signify its shift into predator mode while watching the protagonist, thinking he belongs to her. Who dares touch its favorite source of tuner? It performs a vertical dive onto his back, frantically pouring at him to spill the tea, but Yujing just grumbles while trying to evade the angry cotton ball. The feline drops its silent facade to state its identity as the legendary sect boss named Feng Wen, swearing an oath to pulverize whoever dare touch its favorite human. Yujing pries open a single heady lid with a glance of total boredom, admitting he already suspected the linguistic skills and is essentially done with magical surprises today. The room fills with his loud snoring almost instantly, leaving the dragon sect leader totally ignored and steaming with rage, her demands for answers meeting a brick wall of sleep. Morning arrives with gold beams splashing across the rug, signaling that he actually survived the night without turning into a vegetable after all. That typical case. Yujing sits there vacuuming up an entire kitchen worth of calories, triggered by a floating notification box confirming he has reset his health points back to 100%. Perched at the table, the furry boss eats its snacks while visibly rattled, unable to process how its owner actually threshed a giant beast without getting threshed himself. Yujing offers a casual affirmative noise between mouthfuls of grains, playing it cool as a professional monster eradicator, which is honestly a big-time move. The creature adopts a stern look, mentioning that these sorts of biological bitches never used to roam inside city limits, which spells big trouble for the neighborhood inhabitants. Yujing reaches across the table and initiates a smooth head rub on the creature, which catches it completely off guard. The bright grin spreads over his face as he thanks Swainer for her excessive worry, leaving the tiny leader looking completely bamboozled and flustered in the moment. Resuming her authoritative posture, she shrieks that casual nicknames are strictly forbidden, insisting that he uses her grandiose sectarian title from now on. Yujing lets out a hearty chuckle while agreeing to the request using the exact forbidden nickname, proving that annoying his roommate is the highlight of his day. Suddenly he produces a digital slate and kills the cheerful mood, asking specifically why its little paws were exploring his search history while he was away. The cat face turns the color of a ripe beet and starts leaking nervous sweat, clearly found guilty of discovering documents it was never meant to investigate or find. The feline reveals that golden bracelet is a cat tail ring, a powerful holy artifact, explaining she spent all night hacking his laptop to study her own magical hardware. Trudging lifts her for a better look, finally grasping why she radiates such bizarre energy, but the cat just lets out a disgruntled huff as he juggles her around. We get a quick history lesson, detailing how a deity perished 3 centuries ago, scattering divine shrapnel everywhere, and Trudging is currently gorking at a genuine peace. Trudging eyes the glowing Ben, realizing his system harvests divine juice from these godly scraps, confirming he is messing with forces far beyond mere basement brawling. The gravity of the moment evaporates because he has been crushing the poor furball during his deep thoughts, prompting her to growl at him to unhand her. Trudging clears his throat, acting all casual while asking if she has been hunting for a manual on how to actually trigger that relic's buried potential. The cat slumps in defeat, grumbling that she's not interested in power, as her only actual concern is how to pry this cursed jewelry off her body. Trudging mentions he knows her crew, the dragon sect, operates locally, causing the cat to shift as she prepares to spill the tea on her current predicament. She describes the dragon sect as local titans controlling everything from nightlife to prime real estate, right up until their entire operation went belly up. A gloomy flashback shows it all collapsing, when she was jumped at home by some creep who slapped the cursed relic on her and turned her into a kitty. By the time she broke free, her whole organization had been swiped by a rival, leaving her stuck in a fluffy frame with a massive chip on her shoulder. She is totally committed to seeking vengeance, swearing to hunt down the culprits, proving that she is far more than a stray but a displaced mud boss. Her eyes flash with a lethal green glint as she sharpens her tiny claws, hissing that she will slaughter them all, looking more demonic than any pet. Yujing keeps things grounded by asking for the plan, noting that if the internet is useless, some local public library certainly wanted the magic fix. The cat smirks, claiming she is way ahead of him, and tells Yu Jing his first mission is to dive headlong into combat training to build his strength. Yu Jing looks baffled, wondering how punches help with joy removal, but she just tells him to zip his lip and listen because everything is connected. She lays out the logic, saying if he becomes a top fighter, Bleats will recruit him, providing him the access needed to find someone who can break her curse. Yu Jing is hesitant about waiting for invitations, but the cat just laughs, reminding him that some suspicious characters are already loitering at his front door. She decides to skip the local minor leagues and suggests hooking him up with the city's finest dojo, clearly leveraging old connections from her former life. The cat beams with pride while mentioning the Hidden Dragon Dojo, a name that clearly implies a prestige level far beyond his previous amateur horns. Yu Jing looks shocked, recognizing the name immediately because he actually did his homework when he first started hunting for a legit martial arts gym. We flashed back to him frantically doodling, recalling that the Hidden Dragon Dojo was not just famous but easily the most bank-breaking facility in the city. He pulls up a page of one-star rants from salty students, calling the place a glorified shouting match where the training is basically state-sanctioned torture. The cat sneers at the reviews, dismissing them as whiny fluff, while Yu Jing worries if he even stands a chance of getting through the front gates. He jokes about just wrecking the place to make a statement, but the cat stares at him like he is a total moron for his complete lack of experience. She corrects him, explaining that crashing a dojo is the traditional way to request an interview, showing them you have the grit to handle this style. A helpful system graphic shows the entry methods, noting that while peasants pay to join, the combat challenge is the only way to prove you are truly top tier. The cat says challenging a master is the ultimate spirit check, ordering him to hit the gym tomorrow while she handles her own sketchy side projects. She vanishes out the window, leaving Yu Jing to wonder about her nightlife, as this cat is definitely hiding some secrets about her nocturnal activities. The next morning, we see the Hidden Dragon entrance, an ancient structure looking like a relic from the past tucked away inside the sprawling modern metropolis. Stepping inside, Yu Jing meets a fellow in tan clothing who cuts off his courteous greeting mid-breath before the poor guy can even utter his true intentions. That student initiates a grep that feels more like a hydraulic press than a greeting, making our hero realize this aggressive reception serves as a surprise entrance exam. Refusing to yield, our protagonist resolves to ace this physical trial with absolute style, tightening his resolve to humble this knuckle-cracking enthusiast with roar, unbridled strength. Internal juices begin to flow as his palm glows with a sparkling orc hue, creating enough atmospheric tension to make the surrounding oxygen dance like a disco. That cocky grin morphs into a mask of pure suffering within moments, as the student begs for mercy while his fingers endure a literal mechanical level crunching session. Bystanders simply chuckle at the sight of the gym rat finally meeting his match, remaining blissfully unaware that our guy is playing in a completely different dimension. Gazing upward, the atmosphere thickens as rumors circulate about the arrival of elite martial artists and their wrinkly leader who wish to inspect him personally. Several high-tier brawlers manifest behind an elderly man with snowy locks sitting in his rolling throne, representing the most dangerous fossils of the secret facility. Chuck hits him hard as he spots his very own feline companion lounging on the geezer's lap, looking exactly like a spoiled monarch without any shame. The mobility device halts with a sudden clatter directly before him, while the muscular bodyguards offer glares icy enough to freeze a swimming pool in summer. Leaning closer, the veteran peers through squinted eyelids to inquire if this youngster is a bold soul daring to provoke the establishment. Sounding incredibly ancient, staring back without flinching, he confirms his intent firmly while surrounded by numerous experts who clearly wish to erase his existence from the earth. He adopts a stance that screams both manners and violence, admitting he lives for such thrills, though the elder only chuckles at his youthful bravado. The cadre questions if a simple lad has the actual resume to touch the prestigious floorboards, probing his psyche before they even start throwing hands. Glancing at his internal interface, he wonders if he's underleveled, then asks the Grand Pur what specific criteria determine if someone is actually worthy to fight. To start off, the patriarch begins an interrogation regarding simple biographies like lineage, age, and ancestry, making the poor boy feel like a corporate applicant. Getting invasive, the geezer wonders about his family status and potential siblings, as the inquiries get progressively stranger and noticeably bother the focus of his curiosity. Our hero wonders if he entered a dating show, because despite seeking a rumble, he is dealing with a prying grand for the shopping for a prospective groom. Roaring with glee, the senior explains that sourcing a decent husband for his kin requires deep scouting, while the cat simply ignores his senile ramblings entirely. Beads of perspiration form as he looks toward his pet for answers, yet the feline offers nothing but a gaze that mirrors his own utter bewilderment. An Amazon in traditional training gear advances with popping joints, claiming that regardless of marriage prospects, he must demonstrate his ability to hold his own. Dropping into a crouch, she offers a condescending promise of leniency toward the newbie, acting as the mandatory gatekeeper before he can see the inner sanctum. Without delay, he assumes a battle-ready form and requests her best effort while static discharge surrounds him, proving he has no intention of playing games. Nearby learners murmur with shock that an elite student is personally handling the recruit, fully expecting him to meet a painful end against such refined technique. The kitty looks positively furious as she scolds her host, questioning why blades are drawn if they are just speed dating, clearly hating being used as marriage bait. The lead disciple darts toward him with a swift caution, displaying velocity that suggests her previous promises of being gentle were total lies from the start. From her perch, the kitten dazes with dread and shrieks his name in alarm during the incoming strike, genuinely fearing he might end up as Flakdick. Her visual scanners flicker blue as she activates an advanced targeting mechanic, focusing solely on him for a brutal blow that normal eyes could never follow. Our protagonist becomes an indistinct smudge while smoothly evading every incoming punch, maintaining his composure until a clean opportunity to conclude this little play fight appears. Grabbing her limb during an attack, he redirects her force to toss her skyward and decorate the floor with her back in a standard wrestling maneuver. The collision hits like a truck, making the Mets tremble. Du Shenyang finds herself kissing the floorboards faster than a sneeze. Du Jing basically wrapped it up with one slick reverse card. Poor girl stays sprawled there with animated birds circling her head. It is a massive shock that the tiny kid she planned to cuddle just served her a steaming pile of humble pie. All the senior peers look like they just saw a ghost. Broccoli Boy points out how his targeting and grep work were absolutely surgical, claiming he fights like a veteran in peak form. Prantfur is over the moon, chuckling while petting his feline friend. He snagged a premium rookie and feels 10 years younger already. Mittens sighs in relief, though she hates her panic was useless. The kid rises while scrolling through his vet stat updates. He scored big in brawling, gym rat stuff, wellness, snapping, and magic battery management. He wonders if he finally cleared the tutorial successfully. Busman says yes, leveling him up to elite protege. He cannot believe some random boy with no manual smashed a pro like a fragile vase. Welcome to the VIP lounge, kid. He belies. The old man is basically glowing like a disco ball. He suggests that high status deserves a fancy name upgrade. He is quite the promotion for someone who just worked in. The hero feels a twitch of social anxiety from all this attention. Doing a deep bow. He says hello to the head chef and the older squad, looking like a lost tourist. Everyone swarms him like bees on sugar, thrilled about this scary talented new sibling. They are all grins and pats on the back, eager to start the team bonding. The loser remains stuck to the towels, looking extra salty. She mutters some trash about beginner's luck, though her red ears prove she is mostly dying from humiliation inside. Our guide does a graceful nod, thanking the angry sister for the free lesson. He is acting so incredibly modest that it only serves to make her even more irritated. The front desk lady floats over, offering to lead the prince to the paperwork station. He is dying inside at the royal treatment, questioning what kind of fancy cult he joined. Teach clarifies that his star student cannot be treated like a nobody anymore, since he belongs to the mansion now. Looking like a lord is part of the mandatory uniform. The boy is still cringing, begging for a simpler name because being called sir is weird for someone who recently ate dinner in a dirty backstreet with stray dogs. She throws out Master Jing as an option, which is arguably worse. He gives up and tells her to use whatever wacky nickname makes her feel warm and fuzzy inside. Cut to a scene showing a massive door with some bold letters on it. Our hero finally takes a breather to digest the insane turn his morning just took. He kicks back on the sofa with his feline roommate, feeling quite smug. He mentions the trials were actually quite simple despite her warnings, essentially bragging about his easy win. Kitty delivers a harsh dose of truth with a massive eye roll. She points out that the girl is actually a beast, and he only won by sheer surprise tactics. It dawns on him that the pet might be correct. He asks if he benefited from her slacking off. Fuzzball agrees, saying a serious fight would have ended him instantly. His ruby eyes shimmer while he dwells on his luck. He knows the grind has just begun and he needs years of sweat to survive the actual killer street fights. Standing up for round 2, he decides to double down on the grind. He informs the fluffball about notifying his pops that he's crashing at the gym indefinitely. The feline loses it, cackling wildly when the family name drops. Turns out the master tried to steal his grandfather's lady back then. What a small, messy world it is. A shiny electronic pass lens in his hand. She says from sunrise tomorrow, he can just scan himself into the club. He has officially upgraded to the premium membership status. Sunrise hits the gym while the neighborhood gossip kicks into high gear. Everyone is talking about the insane rookie who stayed awake punching bags until the break of dawn. Right in the center, he's radiating golden vibes and absolutely soaked in effort. He racked up over 200 points of gains while everybody else was safely asleep. He is stretching his sanity and muscles to the max while frozen in position. The crippled boss watches with interest as the boy collects experience points like a vacuum cleaner. Our protagonist is in the zone, orbs flickering as he begs his buddy for more juice. He refuses to squander even a microsecond of this chance to get swole. Ding, a big shiny screen appears. Congrats, you are stronger now. His battery capacity just hit level 3. His rate of growth is basically breaking the laws of logic. He hits the deck like a sack of potatoes, sucking in oxygen. The teacher glides over, claiming that among all his students across the decades, this kid is definitely top. Checking his stat chart, he sees his magic and intelligence are through the roof. He questions his coach about the legendary beast styles, ready to soak up more forbidden knowledge. The sensei eyeballs the kid like he has just escaped from an odd location, mocking his martial obsession but silently respecting his grit. While rearranging the lesson plan, the elder stretches out a palm, asking the boy to wrap his fingers around it, and despite some initial hesitation, Zhu Jing grabs onto the weathered appendage. Pine in hand, they avoid a brawl for once, and a blinding white glow erupts from the master's limb, illuminating the room like a localized supernova. Eyes flashing a deep shade of crimson, the mentor manipulates his latent energy until the atmosphere starts sparking, showcasing a power tier beyond the boy's wildest imagination. A flood of raw power surges in his Zhu Jing, forcing his internal biological hardware to work extra hard just to digest the tsunami of energy hitting his systems. Facial muscles twitching under the pressure, the student realizes resistance is futile, finally acknowledging the titanic distance between his level and the master's status. Letting go with zero effort, the elder inquires about the kid's cardio routine for building such a sturdy vessel, to which the boy claims it is just basic track work, worrying that his buddy might be broken after the boost. Zhu Jing seeks reassurance, but the master just stands still like a statue, implying things are far more complex. A floating holographic scan materializes, displaying a human frame so symmetrical it looks like it was manufactured by a divinity with a serious case of perfectionism. Dubbed a fighting phenomenon by his elder, the student knows it is just his internal system doing the heavy lifting, yet he still asks to start the cool techniques. The sensei tells the youth to slow down, noting the training floor is littered with exhaustion and the student is covered in fresh battle scars and bruises. Glaring with focused red pupils, the adolescent asks for alternatives, clearly interested in the biological rush of improving his attributes like a common arcade addict. Guided toward the nearby lounge, he is promised a delivery of high-grade dragon grease to lubricate his sore joints so he can endure more punishment tomorrow. A wide view of the urban landscape reveals the glowing neon dragon signage, looking like a high-tech fortress tucked inside the stomach of a luminescent metropolis. Lounging in the break area, the boy is ready to pass out when a soft rhythmic thumping arrives at the door, prompting him to tell the visitor to enter. In walks Xu Shanyang, sporting a casual white cotton shirt and a tub of healing ointment, breeding her sibling training while looking much less menacing than usual. Zhu Jing starts perspiring heavily, fearing his senior peer has arrived to settle the score after he made her look clumsy in front of the entire class. Dropping a major request, the senior female demands he strip his shirt off immediately, brandishing a container of medical paste while he stares at her in total disbelief. Shedding his layers, the team reveals a set of washboard abs that would make a marble statue jealous, earning a brief nod of approval before he is ordered to lie flat. Slamming face first onto the bench, a digital pop-up alerts him that he has successfully increased his popularity, increasing his social magnetism by nearly 50 points instantly. With the stat window hovering near his head, the business-like woman towers over him, ordering him to keep his spine straight and his limbs totally stationary. As soon as a feminine touch hits his lower back, the kid lets out a frantic protest, startled by the unexpected physical sensation while his eyes double in size. Leaning down with a playful, crimson-cheeked grin, she reminds him of her orders to stay still, getting a kick out of how easily she can mess with his head. Later on, the youth paces through the electric city lights, reminiscing about the intense social encounter while checking his experience bars for his dragon style. Digital rewards keep popping, moving him up to grade 3 in brawling and 4 in meditation, so he decides to kill some time at the local knowledge center. Fiddling with a rectangular business card from some edgy squad, he figures these folks are probably just some fancy security team dressed in tactical turtlenecks. Working past the glass monoliths, he ponders why such a high-stakes group wants to congregate in a quiet reading room, which seems strange for a covert project. Finally reaching the front steps of the opulent library, the massive architectural marvel dwarfs the nearby shops with its expensive, polished stone facade. Up on the empty 7th level, the silence is heavy enough to make him wonder about a prank until a voice echoes through the dusty shelves to confirm he made it. Pivoting on the spot, his glowing red optics scan the shadows between the book stacks, focusing intently on the mysterious figure waiting in the dark corners. The dazzling blonde named Wu Yaking emerged, coffee in hand, instantly declaring herself a clandestine informant, which made Zhu Jing raise an eyebrow, wondering if her entire spy squad was playing hooky or if this meeting spot was a secret latte club. Settling down at a sun-drenched table, she clarified the need for discretion, quipping that recommending folks to him from inside a police station might blow her entire covert operations cover. Wu Yaking confessed she initially had her reservations, but apparently, his real-life charm was undeniable, as she suddenly appeared quite persuaded by his untapped genius. Cutting straight to the chase, she leaned in with a face more serious than a tech sorted, fixing her gaze on him before extending a straightforward invitation for him to come aboard. Zhu Jing began to scoot his chair away, practically halfway out the door, demanding a compelling reason to stay, so she pulled out the big guns, inquiring if the mysteries of the divine relics piqued his curiosity. Clasping a weighty tome to her chest, a self-satisfied grin spread across her features, as she knew her little tidbit about the relics had reeled him in hook, line, and sinker. Zhu Jing's expression, quite frankly, screamed absolute astonishment, confirming she had precisely nailed his biggest secret, flabbergasting him that she knew about his private research. Wu Yaking cut right to it, bluntly inquiring how he'd stumbled upon the whole divine relic concept, clearly attempting to measure the depths of this greenhorn's intelligence. Zhu Jing offered her nothing but an icy glare and a resolute no comment, simply unwilling to divulge his prized intel to a complete unknown, regardless of her supposed access to information. She shrugged off his refusal with practiced ease, conceding that perhaps she ought to have led with her own reveal, then grabbed an expensive bottle of H2O, ready to provide a little show and tell. Decanting the liquid into a petite vessel, she then slid the cup towards him, essentially daring him to take a taste. Zhu Jing took an utterly blind sip, clearly uninspired, then swallowed before inquiring if this was some elaborate prank, since it tasted just like any run-of-the-mill, purified H2O. Extending the cup back, he demanded to know her ultimate point, as his patience for these mysterious shenanigans was rapidly dwindling to zero. In complete silence, she then decanted the remaining contents of the bottle into a see-through glass kettle, and the very air in the room appeared to subtly change as her hands embraced the item. The liquid gurgled satisfyingly into the kettle, twinkling as it filled the container, and while everything appeared quite mundane, the dramatic anticipation hinted at a truly significant event. With an unruffled demeanor, she instructed him to sample the water once more, yet Zhu Jing remained deeply unconvinced, pondering how she could have possibly altered it in mere moments. Another gulp, and his gaze widened in absolute, undeniable astonishment, confirming this was most certainly not the exact same liquid he had just sampled moments before. He blurted out that it had become sweet, his eyes fixed on the cup in sheer bewilderment, utterly dumbfounded by the utterly inexplicable transformation that had just unfolded before him. Wei Yuqing then commenced the actual, dramatic history lesson, revealing that exactly 287 years prior, not just one, but several divine beings had perished, an event that reshaped the entire world irrevocably. A breathtaking vision materialized of a luminous, heavenly being descending upon a metropolis, bathed in cerulean light, as she clarified that radiant particles dispersed worldwide when the days met their end. She dubbed these animecaps God's blood, declaring them the supreme power source humanity had been earnestly attempting to decipher for generation after generation. The celestial liquor descended from the heavens, infusing itself into inanimate objects, all manner of living creatures, and even the fleeting wisps of human thought, collectively known today as divine relics. Pointing to the kettle, she named it serial number G.O.D. 567, the famed sweet order device, confirming that a genuine artifact of the divine was casually resting on a library desk. Zhu Jing was absolutely enthralled, his gaze unblinkingly glued to the artifact, and he cautiously inquired about examining it more closely, his thoughts buzzing with countless potential applications. He gingerly lifted the kettle, a lingering hint of doubt in his expression, then questioned how he could genuinely verify she hadn't simply preloaded it with a truckload of sugar. The instant his fingers made contact, his entire internal system went absolutely berserk, loudly proclaiming divine essence detected, absorbing divine essence, as shimmering golden motes flooded into him, pushing his essence tally to an astounding 502 out of 500. Overjoyed, he grasped the monumental truth that he could literally siphon power just by making physical contact with these artifacts, signifying his long-dormant active ability was finally primed for activation. He meticulously scrutinized the pot, then inquired about its other head and talons, musing aloud if it could perhaps conjure boiling water from nothingness, or if the sweet water illusion contained further complexities. Wu Yuqing chuckled softly into her palm, informing him he was getting warmer but needed to continue his deductive efforts, admitting she found his novice-like inquisitiveness rather endearing. Du Jing then observed an outright impossibility. The internal water level stubbornly refused to diminish, regardless of how much was dispensed, prompting him to ask if the kettle boasted an endless reservoir. She offers an upward mouth curve, praising his grey matter speed, as he deciphered the gadget's secrets faster than instant noodles. He is practically shaking with manual vibrations, as 500 soul points are ready to go, and he owes it all to the snitch. She puts a hand prop under her chin skin, asking if the smarty pants observes a heavy atom, which is basically an existence slipping mechanism. She states this metal jug ignores all common physics math, acting as a reality-breaking object that forces a human concept reset for him. He asks if it works as a never-ending energy spinner, wondering if the internal blow supply uses these relics, though she says avoid thinking logic craters. Her knuckles pop to note human myths cannot build these treasures, as they are chaotic, unique, and spicy if left out of the box. She extends a shiny plastic data card for the containment team, mentioning he stood before a giant biological horror without moving his lids once. She notes his inner software works better than most organic beings, while he looks at the card, seeing the path to treasure and answers. She asks him one last time to join the payroll, and his face turns from concrete to a bouncy ball in a singular heartbeat. He does a full spin move, begging the big bus lady for a spot, while sparkling like a disco ball and promising to wash her boots. He produces a sonic boom from his throat, looking like a red-hot pepper with effort, having finally identified the career of his wildest visions. He travels through the urban scenery, calculating the massive wealth coming his way, since artifact janitor sounds like a path to shiny pals. He calculates upcoming piles of currency, thinking about the essence he can harvest. Since his order-safe skill works, the level 1 should rule. He acts like a complete level 1 scrub to the lady, who watches him wig out over stats, convinced no boss-level threat can touch him. She reaches into her sack to grab a formal tree paper agreement, as it is time to put his carbon ink where his food hole is located. She tells him to eye-scan the fine print and scribble if he likes it, maintaining a look like she's making him an inevitable deal. It looks like a basic desk job paper at start, but contains a huge chunk of text about keeping your trap shut at all costs. The small words talk about dangerous quests and possible loss of biological function, making his forehead water as he asks about the risk. She points to a literal color chart of doom, saying he starts with simple trinkets that won't bite if he simply keeps his digits back. She mentions once his base stats climb, he can touch the scary stuff, so he should ignore the heavy hitters meant for governmental authorities only. He feels suspicious about why his coordinates were selected, knowing he carries a hidden stat sheet, though she sees a lucky organic civilian unit. She forces him to dump some heavy lore about items, saying it was not his search that found it, but it was a anatomical center. He ponders why a piece of a dead sky entity would select his physical frame for an eternal game of tag. He asks for more specific audio explanation on the topic, since he is not a fan of being followed home by supernatural doorsteps with vibes. She explains artifacts have their own internal compass, meaning they do not just sit idle, they go actively looking for humans they enjoy. A visual data point shows her as a small kid with items flying around her noggin, being one of those rare people who attracts hardware. She aims her fingertip at his nose, claiming they belong to the same elite club, as his body apparently emits a beacon for ancient treasure. She drops the numbers on the final monthly payment, which is a figure big enough to make his internal balance sensor spin around fast. 200 large every single month plus a slice of the recovered goodies, freezing him in place as his financial value hits the moon. He gets why they are moving so fast to sign him, since high-tier loot magnets cost premium gold, and he hides his joy by counting fictional zeros. Scrawling his name with lightning speed, his signature becomes a total mess as he accepts the gig. He politely informs his boss that he is now her latest corporate prisoner. Switching to sibling honorifics instantly shows he loves this promotion, especially given the fat stack of cash and potential for divine ascension. Rising with newfound swagger, he barely resembles the nervous wreck who entered 5 minutes ago. The paperwork is finished, and the chaotic fun begins. A grin spreads across her face, satisfied with snagging a premium minin. She expresses her excitement for the future teamwork as he makes his grand exit. Exiting the silent book fortress, his brain swirls with fresh intel. Between training gyms and this new secure gig, his daily planner is utterly doomed. Glancing at his screen reveals his pal leader handled the classroom absences. He is completely ghosting reality to grind for levels like a dedicated hermit. His main goal is hitting the metaphorical gym until he can bench press a planet. Maximum power is the only way to survive this risky career path he chose. He opts for a trial run of his shiny new cheat code out in the suburban boonies. Establishing a baseline for this magical ability is step number 1. A holographic screen pops up, confirming he has the fuel required for the duplicate existence talent. It eats his holy energy to ramp his stats up to 11. With a smorgasbord of upgrades like brain power or speed on the menu, he figures that picking Brawn will effectively turn him into a human wrecking ball. Contemplating defensive stats feels redundant since his magical safety vest is already on. He decides that murdering things faster is the ultimate form of protection. Selecting velocity seems smartest, remembering how Grand Prison Kung Fu move is always praise swiftness. He needs a proper measure of how fast he can really zip. Targeting a lamppost a football field away, he designates it as his finish point. A mundane sprint without help is required to calculate the math properly. Lunging forward with explosive energy, he becomes a hazy blur against the pavement. Naturally speaking, he is already putting professional track stars to utter shame. He records a time of precisely 1024 ticks for the dash. He is decent for a fleshy human, yet he craves much more velocity. Trotting back to the Marco, he prepares for the second lap. He is fairly certain that clicking the cheat button will yield much more impressive metrics. Squatting low in a professional starting crouch, he murmurs the magic phrase to prime the engine. He waits for the surge of power to arrive, triggering the talent cores as a brilliant flash of yellowish sparkles as he launches. This velocity is so extreme his sneakers barely even touch the dusty asphalt. He clears the century-mark distance in a heartbeat, leaving behind nothing but scorched wind and floating debris. Par 1012 ticks remains on the clock. Shaving his travel time exactly down the middle leaves him shocked at how overpowered this is. He ponders the immense struggle regular mortals face to reduce their times by single digits. Usually people suffer through months of hell for tiny fractional gains. For the best pros on earth, gaining a tiny tenth of a second requires astronomical amounts of sweat. Those tiny margins represent the edge of biological limits. Unless you have fancy genetics and rich sponsors, teleporting her through time off is a pipe dream. He basically broke every rule of organic chemistry today. The violent potential of this quickness thorns on him. During a lethal brawl where sneezing at the run time is death, this gear shift is godly. With this buff active, nobody can dodge strikes that ignore regular physics and logic. It functions as a cheat code for ending fights before they begin. Behold the greatness of his doubled existence talent. He is not some minor bonus, rather it is a holy override of Newtonian reality and common sense. Striding through the shadows with an ego boost, he enjoys his moment of strength. He knows for sure he is clutching an absolute winning hand now. He plans on milking the timer for several more laps, until a weird status message makes him freeze in place. Something on his screen looks wrong. Looking down at the recharge counter reveals the bad news. Even though he barely spent 20 units of time, the system says he is maxed out. Scowling at the discovery that his 22nd Jorai caused an instant lockout, he accepts his fate. He must become a total miser with his magical turbo button. Total world domination is currently on hold because his recharge timer is acting like a stubborn dial-up modem, keeping his inner data grounded. Throwing in the towel for the evening, he drags his aching carcass homeward while his muscles stage a violent, noisy protest against his life choices. The strategy involves soaking his sore limbs and entering a temporary coma, seeing as the gym expects his presence at the crack of dawn tomorrow. Consciousness vanishes a moment fabric touches face, as a crushing fatigue from his chaotic new lifestyle finally collects its heavy physical debt. Sunrise brings a screaming smartphone that sounds like a banshee, forcing his zombie-like remains to reluctantly separate from the warm embrace of his mattress. After squinting at the clock, he notes a 6-hour snooze but feels utterly baffled about why he's waking up in a cold stairwell instead of his room. He frantically swipes his digital interface to monitor the progress of his recharge, praying his body is sufficiently rebooted for more physical masochism. His interface describes a harsh penalty where every single active moment demands a 1,000-second penalty, meaning a full usage requires a grueling 6-hour wait for his powers. A notification pops up from Shornyang demanding his location, and one glance at the ticking clock confirms he is officially in the danger zone. Screaming about his impending doom, he gallops toward the training hall at high speed, though he lacks the supernatural zip of his special ability. Gasping for air like a fish out of water, he reaches the secret dragon gym while praying his instructor hasn't sharpened any disciplinary weapons yet. Slamming the entrance open, he prepares for a fresh session of torture amidst a thick fog of competitive energy and the rhythm of punching. With a mischievous smirk, Chornyang greets her 7th-ranked junior, clearly having spent her morning brainstorming creative ways to pulverize him for being tardy. She claims his arrival is impeccable, as she intends to utilize him as a human punching bag to illustrate proper energy management to the class. The gallery of spectators has already opened a betting pool, wondering if the rookie can pull another miraculous victory out of his hat like yesterday. Skeptics argue that Shen Yan only lost because she was being careless, insisting that a beginner stands zero chance during a focused, serious rematch. Recognizing her thirst for a dignity refund, Du Jing understands she will be significantly less sloppy, turning this match into a genuine survival situation. Treating this duel as a laboratory for his talents, he drops into a combat crouch and asks his 6th senior sister for guidance while triggering twin lives. Du Shenyan charges like a caffeinated tiger with terrifying velocity, her gaze fixed on her target as she attempts to erase her prior failure. A storm of fists descends upon him, yet he effortlessly evades every incoming strike like a slippery bar of soap while hunting for a gap. Finding the vulnerability, Zhu Jing lashes out with serpentine precision to snatch her arm, generating a vibration that ripples through the very air. Capitalizing on her forward motion, he executes a smooth shoulder toss that results in Shenyang getting a very intimate and loud introduction to the floor. Grounded and seeing cartoon birds circling her head, she lays there utterly perplexed that her maximum effort resulted in another swift and humiliating defeat. Hovering above with a peaceful grin, he offers sarcastic gratitude for her generosity, all while his digital brain tallies up 97 fresh experience points. Jaws hit the floor while his HUD keeps flashing rewards, granting him substantial upgrades to his vitality and physical stats from that brief athletic encounter. Dujing departs, witnessing his accuracy and power management stats skyrocket, even reaching the 2nd tier of energy mastery in a very efficient manner. Reflecting on the brawl, he notes the lack of an underdog multiplier, as his supernatural agility boost made Shenyan look like she was stuck in slow motion. The sheer absurdity of his unfair advantage begins to dawn on him, leading to the conclusion that the twin lives ability is borderline cheating and scary. A relaxed guy with emerald hair strolls over, inquiring if Zhu Jing is interested in exploring the secrets of the hibernating dragon combat style. Offering a polite nod of acknowledgement, he accepts the challenge, inviting his 5th senior brother to show him the ropes with a look of fierce resolve. Big bro stands there looking like a startled fish when things kick off, seeing that our boy wasn't blowing hot air. The kid literally spent the full night becoming a hibernating dragon expert. His jaw hits the floor while a shiny lizard ore glows around the kid, and he shouts in disbelief at how fast the lad is milking that mystic dragon juice. He blathers on about some mythical top-tier buddy status in the fighting world, essentially acting like a superfine over how much beast potential the young lad currently holds. It is dubbed the loot suit, where you turn your meat present into a shiny collectible, featuring cool upgrades like shadow power, elfin vibe, and bones wrapped in stiff rubber bands. Various cool pictures reveal these dub modes, showing fighters who are strong enough to moonwork on lakes, punch hills into dust, and shrug off any flesh-related inconveniences. The tiny bubblehead brother gets overly excited, promising that being a punch magic icon is now a real possibility, while the kid looks slightly stressed by his boss' newly inflated hopes. This emotional bonding gets cut short when Big Bro tries to show off a new person, starting his fancy intro before someone else completely steals the spotlight with a loud arrival. Out of nowhere, a huge tank of a man flies right through the pane with a sparkly glass ring, clearly thinking doors are for mortals and taking the straightest path inside. Big Bro gets scared stiff and bellows for help, while the newbie gazes at the pile of broken shards in utter bewilderment, concluding this training hall is packed with crazies. Shards of pointy clear stuff cover the ground after that fancy entry, proving this muscle man has zero respect for the facility repair fund or the gender feelings. Tiny brother finally says his name, identifying the scary guy as the top muscle of the secret dojo, some dude named Meng, who stands perfectly still like a concrete slab. Big Meng has some funny habits, being a protein addict who loves drama and guards his spouse fiercely, while also possessing a deep personal grudge against the usage of regular entrances. He strolls right by like nothing happened, totally disregarding the giant hole he created, leaving the rookie to ponder if he just witnessed a human or a rogue construction crane. The kid is slack-jawed staring at the frame, questioning if the brute actually leaped here from the ground level, finally comprehending the ridiculous beefy strength this giant possesses. He peeps out the opening to see Big Meng wandering away, whispering to his own soul about that level of brawn, feeling his own desire to get soul spike incredibly hard. The mini-haired bro grins and inquires if the tank had any actual requests, showing he is already numb to the weekly expense of replacing window blasts at this wacky spot. Big Meng mumbles some cryptic words about business being handled before heading off, confirming he torques as little as he uses traditional hinges, truly being a doll-less caveman of mystery. Tiny bro spins around to lecture the student, demanding he keep one vital fact in his head, that this specific lizard style revolves mostly around squeezing and molding internal vibes. He says the main bit again for the people in the back, stressing that managing and carving in a heat is the secret source for making the fancy moves work properly. He shows off by shooting a glowy energy banana from his palm, which smashes a towel far away, shouting out confirmation as a loud cracking noise echoes through the hall. The hero sits quietly with some shiny gold circles spinning around him, strategizing on how to expand his power pool while utilizing his aim cheat code to mold it specifically. Fast forward several hours and the lad is soaking wet with effort, though his eyes are lit up like flashlights as he drags his body toward the peak of exertion. He shoves all his vibes into his flat hand, making it shrink into a very sparkly and angry dot, sensing that he finally understands how to carve the magical power. A blue computer sight appears in his eyeball as he gets ready to pop off, while the sparkly orb between his fingers vibrates with a very high chance of boom. The boom, he shoves the spark into the floor, causing a big blast that rattles the entire house. Our boy catches his breath while staring at the burned hole in the deck, concluding that these energy bombs are significantly more lethal than those rucks he previously threw. Old man sensei gives a round of applause from the corner, honestly shocked that the student is a natural at magical power manipulation alongside having his naturally beefy statistics. The boss works over with some lady dressed like a goth ninja, sporting an expression that clearly hints he has brought some level up goodies for the sweaty star pupil. He orders the kid to chow down on a tiny shiny gold gel bean, which basically appears to be the generic fantasy supplement used to boost magic levels instantly and effortlessly. The student reaches forward and gently nabs the medicine, showing zero doubt because he trusts the old guy completely to not poison him in the middle of the session. The tiny medical object enters his gullet with one swift motion, as he stands by to observe the physical updates the street provides. The vocal director draws his pupils toward the elderly man, whose skull is presently surrounded by a clockwise cyclone of tangerine kinetic streams. The immediate landscape starts to melt into liquid freckles, indicating a total transition into an AMAP psychological lay beyond physical reality. He remains suspended in a limitless pale vacuum, drifting aimlessly while the parameters of that magical interaction settle into his central identity. A gargantuan, shiny yellow serpent manifests out of the overhead mist, reducing the tiny human to a speck of dust and scale. Audio from the instructor bounces across the empty space, commanding a visual reset as an intense burst of gold pigment floods everything. His lids snap open to reveal ocular spheres pulsing with flaxen and ruby light, signifying the activation of dormant internal machinery. He maintains a shirtless posture while coated in glowing embers, inspecting his revised palm geometry and asking what this upgrade is named. He firmly grips his hair as a mysterious medicine triggers a chaotic energy spike inside his veins, threatening to exceed his capacity. The dark outline reveals his anatomy being engulfed by spinning energy patterns, struggling to prevent a total biological blowout from the inside. Inhaling deeply, he focuses on regulating his internal gas exchange to successfully maneuver the wild plasma back into its proper containers. He assumes a rigid seated pose with a steady external blow, pushing back against the chaotic flow with every ounce of physical effort. Transitioning to a cerebral lounge, he sits amidst energy waves and verbalizes that his focus is now zeroed in without any distractions. A massive golden reptilian entity constructs its shape around him in the non-physical realm, symbolizing a high-tier promotion in spiritual stats. The gigantic gold reptile is finished loading, resting its head next to him while the small visitor remains still and maintains posture. He recites instructions regarding persistent training, while the intensity of the lizard's glare turns the sky into a solid wall of yellow. The scenery dissolves into a complex grid of light patterns, as he seems to be decoding the high-level secrets of ancient kinetic movement. A digital notification sound alerts him to successful progress, granting new visual abilities that make his pupils shine like tiny yellow spotlights. Returning to the physical training floor, he seems slightly disoriented but physically enhanced, as the boss notes his near-empty fuel gauge. The elder coach displays an open-mouthed look of shock at the manifestation of reptile vapors, while the student seeks a verbal clarification. The master offers a simplified explanation. Dragon fuel is actually an internal feeling that can be successfully converted into heavy-hitting damage output. A logic diagram appears to show how anger increases tower or panic boosts speed, identifying the stimulation of these variables as active energy. Conversely, the method of dampening these internal spikes is called static energy, showcased by the master radiating deep blue and ruby colors. If the pupil combines high-velocity motion with perfect silence, he will become unstoppable, forcing him to vibrate with immense learning energy. He adds tension to his balled fist and asks for the exercise protocol, looking ready for a session of extreme physical exertion. The mentor displays a grin and suggests independent thinking, as the essence is learned so the rest requires simple manual experimentation. Wearing a highly skeptical facial expression, the protagonist wonders if the data download is complete while processing the teacher's information dump. He attempts to decipher if finding the essence is the same as his distraction-free state, trying to manually trigger a perfect reboot. A mental floodgate triggers, allowing him to browse through high-resolution archives of his former existence and historical data with zero technical delay. He processes advanced mathematical concepts and niche knowledge that previously failed to load, feeling as though his biological processing speed doubled. He taps his head, noticing his skull contains many more brain cells after several minutes. This internal power-up is yielding more than muscle gains. He notes his facial muscles are extremely calm now. Everyday annoyances do not cause him to sweat, providing a big advantage when things get spicy. His mental sketching ability is massive now. He can see the giant lizard with every golden scale and hairy mane detail in his mind. He remains there with shining pupils, finally getting the whole imagination concept. But the veteran stops him to say thinking isn't doing. The mentor calls King Zhao to fight him. She sits there inhaling snacks with a face that says she prefers a nap over this. A close look reveals King Zhao filling her mouth with treats. Her jaw looks like a hamster, giving off a distinct lack of interest. The teacher claims among his group, King Zhao possesses the slickest command of inner power, leaving even her dad, Bo Sheng, in her shadow. Zhu Jing prepares to tangle, wondering how she compares to his other elder sister, not doubting her just because of her munching habits. King Zhao puts the food down and crouches, signaling him forward. Her gaze has shifted into a pair of sharp daggers as it begins. Zhu Jing tries a flying maneuver, already feeling guilty inside. He moves fast but understands quickly he has bit off too much. Pow! King Zhao blocks him with zero effort, her internal reserves making a loud popping noise, which sends him sliding away before landing. The master cackles on the grass, teasing Zhu Jing about staring at the girl, clearly happy to witness the kid get an ego bruise. Zhu Jing stands up, comparing her war stats to his game-like cheats, seeing that natural talent combined with sweat can beat software updates. He chooses to throw common sense away and unleash everything, not caring if people call his actions dirty or a bit sleazy. He charges back into the scramble, his limbs turning into a wild blur, trying to drown her in speed while ignoring his manners. Over a rapid series of pictures, they swap punches. He mentions that in fighting, the person not on the mat wins the trophy. King Zhao executes a spinning kick that launches him into the air, proving her mastery over the mysterious energy flow during the struggle. Zhu Jing hits the wood hard, but his iris has a targeting scan. He tells himself to continue while hunting for a single mistake. They swap locations in the hall, their movements causing strong gusts, with shouting showing the massive level of effort they both produce. He attempts a quick jab, but she has already drifted away, moving like fluid around his attempts while preparing her own retaliation. She plants a firm fist on his torso, a head that looks incredibly sore, the direct impact showing that the playtime is definitely finished. A huge boom follows as he strings together another heavy move. Zhu Jing is being knocked around like a toy in this mismatch. He sits there with a dizzy face, confused by the strange physical sensation. It is as if she manipulates force differently than expected. The teacher steps forward, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder to cease the violence. Deciding that Zhu Jing has received enough training, he suggests she is likely looking for a meal now, meaning extra practice won't help. As she returns to her blank facial expression, King Zhao departs with her mouth stuffed with calories, looking quite annoyed. The leader tells her to go fill her belly and relax. As she works off, Zhu Jing asks why she uses so few words. The boss says her history is Lun, promising the full explanation later. Zhu Jing agrees with a simple nod, accepting that every student here has some baggage, feeling much too exhausted to dig for secrets. The master asks about his wellness. Zhu Jing's floating window shows he had level 5 fitness, leading to a single weak word about fatigue. Despite the deep tiredness, his lips are curling upward. He says he has never been this drained, yet progress feels remarkably good. That electronic monitor stays cluttered with status updates, showing upgrades from cardiovascular drills to inner breath mechanics, while he vows to hover near the female mentor. Nightfall arrives as he treks down the concrete path under yellow bulbs, clutching a grease-filled sack of cooked fowl intended for the creature back home. Rotating the dead bulb reveals a perfectly motionless flat, prompting thoughts that the tiny clawed animal might be deep in a cycle of metabolic rest. He scans the windowless shadows within the unit, experiencing an odd sensation regarding the feline presence that seems to have completely vanished this evening. Suddenly, audible droplets impact the ceramic floor within the washroom, causing him to freeze while considering who might be utilizing his plumbing systems. The male tenant stands frozen in the foyer, convinced the unit should be vacant, especially knowing that his roommate has multiple hostile individuals pursuing her. Imagining a tactical ambush by potential threats, he balls his digits into spheres while his oculus sensors glow with a fiery crimson combat readiness. Without hesitation, he kicks through the internal barrier while yelling out her identification, prepared to use blunt force until he views the actual situation. No covert operative greets him, only a feline creature soaking within a porcelain tub of white froth, staring back with significantly wide and startled green lenses. The animal creates a massive aquatic disturbance while ordering his departure, her hide potentially changing color onto the fur while swinging pores to block his view. Did someone mention items from the deep fryer? That mention of snack food immediately terminates the hostile atmosphere while her interest shifts solely toward oily meat. A glance at her twitching whiskers shows she is practically humming with glee, completely abandoning her earlier grievances to focus on the forthcoming salty meal. Footage would show him assisting with her hygiene while he remains without a shirt, applying manual friction with a cloth while she accepts the luxury service. This act of pet maintenance generates a notification of hey, a social appeal, suggesting that proper grooming techniques for small mammals increase masculine attractiveness scores. A gilded loop on her tail starts emitting a violent golden radiation, indicating that the stored energies within the artifact are currently reaching peak capacity. The tiny white extremity makes contact with his pectoral region as the brighten surges, likely triggering some molecular restructuring or significant exchange of internal force. The intensity of the light forces him to shield his gaze, feeling as though a miniature star detonated inside his washroom while massive currents of power flow. Once the glow dissipates, they reappear within the common area with the animal resting on furniture, while he uses a towel to dry his bare skin. Coiling into a tight shape, she displays signs of extreme fatigue from the event, acknowledging that she lacks the data to explain her current fluffiness. As the man attempts to apply a gentle stroke to her skull, she uses her posterior limb to deflect his hand, signaling an end to contact. Maneuvering with high-speed agility, she avoids his touch, leaving him to observe that his divine house has remained significantly difficult to appease in this form. He reclines while mentioning a specific expert in rare artifacts, hoping that external assistance will provide a reliable method to revert her back to humanity. The feline adopts a look of utter apathy, though her pupils contract while she visualizes the many things she might accomplish once restored to verticality. Internal simulation of power plays in her mind as she imagines regaining her high rank, with her gaze reflecting thoughts of social dominance and dignity. Within her imagination, she has a man secured to the floorboards while he requests mercy, pinning at significant unresolved tension within the current living arrangement. Muffled internal amusement plays out as she sits stationary on the fabric, forcing the nearby observer to ponder the strange noises emerging from the animal. He lets out a heavy breath while deciding to end interactions for the night, finding that managing former leaders is more tiring than battling urban hostiles. Morning light eventually penetrates the flat windows the next day, signaling a quiet start that remains relatively rare in his current chaotic life path. He exits his sleep cycle only to receive a digital notification for consistent rest, which upgrades his biological health metrics to the third numerical stage. Looking significantly restored while performing horizontal extensions on the mattress, he notices the animal still resting in a deep state of slumber beside him. Out of nowhere, his smartphone buzzes with an alert from the boss lady. Reacting, he scrambles to grab it, sensing that her texts usually guarantee a massive headache is incoming. The note is brief and to the point. Work is ready. Hustle over. Looks like his debut task as a holy object lookup specialist has officially arrived on the scene. Jing grins, feeling a massive surge of excitement to finally get moving. He is totally pumped to see a genuine operation and pocket that outrageous cash he bragged about. Jing enters the local city archives, glancing around for his handler. He prepared himself for a stiff corporate encounter, but finds only absolute silence within the stacks. He peeks between shelves, curious about where she might be lurking. She demanded he rush over, but the only person around is some generic scholar at a table. The bookworm is focused entirely on her reading, working some specs like a classic nerd. Jing ignores her completely at first, assuming she's just a background character. But wait a sec, Jing pauses to squint harder. There is something suspiciously familiar about the plain Jane sitting there quietly. The nerd looks up and waves, revealing it is actually Yaking herself. She's trying on a fresh aesthetic today, and she almost bamboozled our protagonist completely. She lets out a sly giggle and removes the frames. Apparently, she is impressed that he saw through her undercover geek mode despite her expert stealth attempt. Yaking stands up, looking much more like her usual glamorous self. She gives him some credit for his keen eyes, since most people would treat her like thin air. Jing is still reeling that he failed to spot her identity immediately. He is starting to figure out that she carries quite a few deceptive tricks in her pocket. She clears her throat with a dainty cough, signaling it is time to focus. She definitely plays the part of a mysterious agent quite well. Jing whistles casually and shifts his gaze, hoping she did not notice his gorking. The tension is awkward, but they need to torque shop immediately. She presents the hour, explaining it is a sacred item called the dull glasses. Evidently, these frames possess the magical ability to make anyone look incredibly unnoticeable. As soon as Jing touches them, his internal hub flags high power, soaking up belly vibes at 6%. He sounds skeptical, asking if their only skill is being super plain. She reveals the fun part. While those lenses hide your charisma, once you drop them, all that bottled up attraction explodes outward, making you look 10 times more stunning than usual. Jing has a terrifying epiphany and starts to sweat buckets. He was terrified he was turning into a creepy stalker, when it was just her hidden aura hitting him. Yaking shifts back to business mode, stating she has a fresh gig waiting for him. She tosses a dossier over, mentioning this is a special break containment mission. She passes over the paperwork, her expression turning totally professional. Honestly, she would never give a rookie such intense work, but this specific case is quite unique. The goal is a crown called the Evil Mistress's Tiara. It is a nasty piece of work, essentially boosting the worst and horniest parts of anyone wearing it. The current possessor is a lady named Lu Ying. She is using the jewel to reign like a dictator, and she has a massive obsession with collecting pretty boys. Jing slides the boring glasses on and sees the harsh truth. This job was designed for him because he is a handsome devil who works perfectly as bait. Yaking reclines with a smug facial expression. She clarifies that by wearing the specs, he can sneak in close without her getting excited, then blow her mind later. She tells him that when her lust peaks from him removing the disguise, Deacon snaps ahead more easily. It is a wild gamble, but Jing is the only one pretty enough. Jing stares at her with massive skepticism. He grumbles that they essentially want him to be professional eye candy, feeling like a high-end fancy male escort. His internal radar chirps again, hitting 40% absorption just from holding the relic. He realizes this is a great chance to farm experience from 2 items at once. A devious smirk crosses his face. He starts fantasizing about becoming an absolute god if he just keeps wearing these boring things to steal energy for the next decade. Minnie Wuxing observes his weird faces, wondering if her new hire is losing his mind. Jing is entirely trapped in a silly daydream about infinite world domination. He returns to his senses and inquires if these spectacles belong to the firm. She notes that she actually rented them from a completely different containment group. Jing is stunned to learn there are rival companies in the same industry. He legitimately believed they were the only squad doing this kind of thing in the country. Wuxing drops a massive truth bomb by claiming holy relic agencies are nothing special. She depicts them with a modesty that feels entirely inappropriate for folks handling literal battlehood. She takes a deep gulp of tea while remarking they are little more than urban sweepers. In her mind, the job basically involves clearing mystical rubbish out of the local gutters. Jing appears thoroughly perplexed by that choice of words. Calling agents who secure physics-breaking items common street cleaners is perhaps the smoothest flex in recent history. She mentions there are several thousand known celestial objects located all over the planet currently. A single firm cannot possibly manage the flood of weird incidents happening everywhere. We observe a short sequence showing salvaged artifacts. Much like a gold brush, weird objects pop up unpredictably and capture teams are constantly forced to play catch-up. The tests are exceptionally risky, which implies a mere identification card is not enough to get by. Success requires specialized talents and a very resilient psychological state. These storage assignments are basically farmed out to private ventures by the federal government. Though it pays extremely well, the trade clearly has some sketchy dark spots. Qiu Jing queries if they ever cooperate with the marketplace competitors at all. He is beginning to appreciate the cutthroat atmosphere existing within this whole magical economy. Wu Yuking wears a grim look as she reveals some outfits would kill for the check. In this game, the staff can be just as lethal as the artifacts. She issues a stern notice about colleagues. You must remain cautious around members of rival groups, because this is not a friendly mesh. It is high-risk looting. Qiu Jing indicates his comprehension with a firm nod, realizing he is treading into a territory where being trusting is a pricey luxury he cannot actually afford. She orders him to confirm the Yahello device's efficacy once more. Meanwhile, the computer highlights his heavenly resource intake has reached 63% completion. Qiu Jing remains static, looking like a fashion model in those specs. Despite hiding his power, he leaks that heady protagonist energy from every single pore. The enchantment is completely broken, causing Wu Yuking to blush intensely while her pulse quickens. She is clearly tumbling right into the seductive trap he constructed. A humorous software notice informs him he gained a secret admirer, branding 19 attraction points. Mission done. It appears the eyewear is fully functional at last. Qiu Jing spots her trembling state and gives a quiet smirk. He concludes it performs perfectly, feeling ready to utilize his hidden asset on the final bowl. The scene shifts to a public coach rolling towards the southern heights. Qiu Jing is officially making his way to his very first formal mission. He rests inside the vehicle, concentrated entirely on Liu Huane's records. He must identify exactly what kind of beast she is before the ride stops. The data indicates she is a 45-year-old mafia matriarch. Her preferred playground is the nightlife district, focusing specifically on late-night lounges and karaoke spots. Qiu Jing notes she resembles a textbook underground big sister, complete with generic tattoos, a nasty attitude, and a loud reputation in all the neighborhood clubs. She founded her mob by exploiting supernatural buffs from a cursed Yara, seizing a chunk of line vapor, magic-infused violence and excessive physical might. The file states she ruins the neighborhood residents' lives every morning. She basically functions as a parasite, stealing male vigor to maintain her youthful looks. That crown is a total disaster, constantly satisfying her lowest human instincts to beef up her stats. Currently she resides in luxury while being pampered by her lackeys. As her greedy cravings intensify, her physical power stats scale upward proportionally. It is a recursive cycle of might making her scary with every passing minute. Unless an outsider intervenes, the artifact stacking bonuses will make her indestructible. She is effectively a working timer stuffed with a massive amount of divinity. Qiu Jing scans a cute illustration showing that stripping the head restores her to regular humanity. He simply must determine how to snatch it away efficiently. Having arrived at the location, Qiu Jing settles his eyewear while hopping off the bus, ready to work in apparel to see if his face saves him. During his stroll, his gear chimes one final time, absorbing holy essence to 79%. He is almost fully loaded to assault the Rose Syndicate. A criminal on the south side swings a wooden bat with wide eyes, enjoying the lawlessness. He yells that it feels amazing to run the block. The shot frames a hand clenching a baseball bat while additional punks join the noisy shouting. The sheer amount of entitlement among these losers is completely insane. Draped in a fancy gown, the boss lady of the flower posse stands with a club, hooting quite loudly, promising a world-class walloping to any hurdle. That onlooker watches her from a safe gap, thinking this lady is a bit too intense for comfort. While getting his legs ready to move, he views her chat with a scared Clark who wants some slack, as she asks about the whereabouts of her boys while missing her favorites. The shaky guy offers to fetch them fast if she keeps her hands off, as she moves her face close with a grin to choose her runner. She requests the entire pair of them, her visage looking quite ready for more things, while the heady headpiece on her skull shifts around. The guy hides his chin inside a high jacket collar, thinking that dating this person is a bad idea, while he questions his job choices nearby. Sudden arrivals in black sleeveless shirts ruin the vibe, as someone yells that Duan is here to deal with a person in the fancy dress. The observer retreats into the gloom, realizing a rival crew is here for a rematch, choosing to wait before jumping into a group fist fight. A man named Duan works forward with a focused gaze, mentioning he has heard that she has been taking up way too much room lately. She looks back with a flat and neutral visage, asking for his name with total disregard, which acts as a heavy verbal slap to him. A lens focuses on her flower-themed skin art, showing her rank in the neighborhood, as she stands firm regardless of the loud arrival of others. Her assistants spot the new guy, whispering that this is Duan from the Razor-themed squad, the fellow who previously struck several of the teammates. Her gaze shifts and she looks him over, mentioning his muscle mass while suggesting he approach closer. As she looks quite ready to observe him, Duan turns a deep shade of red while yelling about returning his urban sectors, clearly not interested in any of her social comments right now. He moves his arm in a fast swing, but she moves her gown-clad body quickly, showing a great deal of mobility for such ornate clothing. He continues his forward advances while yelling at her not to flee. As a nearby observer studies her patterns to see how she combats, the onlooker sees that this is Rose-themed gang business and Razor-themed territory, concluding this is just a standard struggle for control of some streets. Duan orders his collective to advance, requesting her immediate removal, as the walkway becomes filled with various physical exchanges of fists and heavy boots. It is a full mess as people fly through the air, and one teammate named Xiaoba gets hit, forcing the leader to enter a focused mood. She yells for her young associate while her face contracts significantly, indicating that hitting her favorites was massive tactical error for the crew. She approaches the crowd with visual shifts in her gaze, ready to resolve the matter and show why she owns this part of South Sea. Duan remains in position, showing his teeth as he notes that she is finally moving, having waited for her to begin this higher intensity effort. He readies a specific maneuver, claiming he will demonstrate actual ability now, as his palms begin to display a noticeable glow of light energy. He hits the pavement with his palms, creating several long fissures in the stone, sending vibrations through the surrounding area with a large impact. She slides backward from the force while calling the move neat with a grin, mentioning she will linger for another round of this physical game. The two strike each other near the structures, causing window transparent bits to shatter while the observer covers his visual organs from the flying dust. He notes that the man's hands function like metal cutters, slicing through nearby construction like soft material, marking him as quite a skilled street fighter. Using his lenses, he reviews the numbers, seeing that while Duan moves well, the woman is too sturdy to take much damage from his hits. The match remains at a standstill, causing the witness to get bored, thinking he must act before they break the remaining walls of this block. A notice confirms his internal energy collection is full, and he prepares to use a speed increase to finish this whole event in one move. The software pushes him to select a new gift, prompting him to choose beefy muscles over swiftness to ensure his hits actually have weight. Zhu Jing nudges his runes while keeping a straight face, eager to witness how much his stats climb once these two upgrades fuse together. Blue light shines from his socket as he detects an opening, rushing toward the pair of gang leaders with the speed of an iron storm. Correct. Zhu Jing delivers a punch that sinks a large pit into the asphalt, while the suited man collides with the ground and releases a shout. The hero touches down firmly, noting his increased damage output, while the lady with the bat stumbles around and demands to know who attacked. As debris floats away, the woman stands over her fallen comrade, standing quite still while trying to fathom the sudden end of the street brawl. The remaining henchmen realize they are outmatched and begin to flee, shouting their departure as they abandon the gear and the down boss. The bad guys dash into the alleyway while yelling cliché threats about revenge, while the fighter remains on the corner with dust on her clothes. She expectorates on the asphalt and uses foul words for them, scanning the shadows with her eyes for the unidentified individual who just arrived. Rhythmic sounds of boots hitting the floor echo as the tall man approaches, signaling that the actual containment task is starting in the alley. She aims her hardware at the newcomer, asking if he was a course, focusing her gaze on the well-dressed man who arrived without warning. He offers a succinct confirmation of his presence while approaching, as she sights his sidearm and asks if it is supposed to work on her. He mentions the weapon will stay holstered since she possesses no formal technique, relying solely on the raw energy radiating from the small crown. Her features tighten significantly as she hears this, having previously dominated the area and finding his verbal breakdown of her style quite annoying. He shifts into a low stance, choosing to use only basic strikes for now, keeping his eyewear on unless a visual distraction becomes necessary. The lady begins to produce sharp sounds of laughter, mocking his attempt at combat and suggesting his face makes him more useful elsewhere. He draws in a long breath while ignoring her taunts, focusing his inner reserves until the surrounding air develops a vibrant gold shimmer. A giant spectral lizard of light emerges from his torso, rising above the concrete walls as he stands motionless with his arms held ready. The woman stands with a dropped chin as she looks at the glowing phantom, screaming a question regarding his name and seeing his potential. He taps the bridge of his frames with a slight tilt of his mouth, telling her to call him Mister. Radiating heavy main character vibe, the protagonist opts for speed and launches his duplicate ability. As the glass in his frames starts to shine per the system's confirmation message, he turns into a blurry shadow, pouring out a whole sequence of punches that resemble yellow tracers, moving with enough force for 10 men. She attempts to block with her bat, but the kinetic energy is too high, creating a resonant boom as his fist impacts her guard. The impact sends cracks snaking up the surrounding masonry, as he maintains a steady press of strength that overcomes her heavy defensive build. The tight focus shows her enlarged pupils, as she visually acknowledges that the young man she insulted is operating beyond normal human limits. He connects with her stomach area, making her toss a ripple, clearly demonstrating the effective use of the brawn upgrade he picked earlier. His hands continue the movement until they look like a tornado of yellow, leaving her unable to focus her eyes while absorbing the blows. Her features twist during the collision with her lower jaw, as she finds herself systematically handled by a man she dismissed as eye candy. A large flash of raw power vibrates the concrete during his final strike, resulting in a new hole and sending bits of stone flying. He rests among the broken pavement while adjusting his blazer, noting her durability while clearly having dictated the entire pace of the battle. Those hoodlums remain frozen in place, eyes wide as if cameras were rolling on a cinema stage, while watching their boss, formerly the bane of the Razor Gang, crumble under such intense pressure. Manhwa notes that although blank capping failed against her, this ordinary youngster handles her easily, while Zhu Jing remains stationary without a single drop of perspiration on his brow. Liu Yuing lies flat on the concrete, prepping her wooden club through the red stains, as she peers vertically at him, refusing to let her headgear slide away into defeat. That headpiece belonging to the cruel lady starts emitting a deep violet radiance, seemingly triggered by some internal gear clicking into a high voltage stage, vibrating with strange energy. She rises once more, draped in shadows that mimic a horned phantom, while her mouth moves in constant shouts concerning the high volume of her rising irritation with him. Zhu Jing curls his lips lightly, spectacle lenses mirroring the amber glow, declaring the skirmish quite fun while adjusting his posture for her impending lunge, ready for action. She shoots forward with a chaotic rotation of her weapon, yelling promises of becoming a human meatball, having discarded her previous poise for that crown-induced burst of reckless motion. He lowers his torso just in time, feeling the wind from the club pass nearby, dictating the tempo so effectively that she appears to move through syrup. Despite the item's buffs, Zhu Jing executes a precise thrusting maneuver that forces her backward, eliciting a loud vocalization as he denies her any opportunity to pause, steady herself, or find fresh air. His fist makes contact squarely with her nasal bridge, launching crimson droplets skyward, while his steady focus ensures she stays within his range without any possibility of avoiding the trajectory. Seizing her wrist tightly, he prevents any further swinging from that object while lowering his head to state that playtime has ended for the head of the Rose organization. Restricted by his hold, her pupils expand significantly, and while it appears he might end the fight properly, he actually prepares a strategy involving a far more trivial inconvenience. His orbital socket shines with a cerulean hue during his data collection on her physical openings, signaling the use of an unsavory tactic acquired from his previous training. He executes a rapid, pointed jab directly at her vision centers, a truly questionable maneuver, though his mentor claimed that anything resulting in victory remains acceptable during a duel. She covers her head with both hands, chatting about her ocular distress, a harsh methodology that has effectively rendered her offensive capabilities completely non-functional for the current moment. He continues his assault by deploying a forceful boot to her lower midsection, citing his teacher once more to explain why such cruel mechanics are utilized to ensure the triumph. Bent forward, she holds multiple injury sites while he maintains an upright posture, asserting that the individual remaining on their feet possesses the sole authority to torque during the aftermath. He mentions that the pelvic target area affects all genders equally, functioning as a global weak spot, proving his absolute expertise in the craft of winning without a hint of dill. A faint sound escapes her as she falls toward the ground, thoroughly neutralized by the surprising and efficient methodology he chose to implement during the final moments of their encounter. He extends his arm downward, palm floating centimeters from the luminous object resting on her skull, positioned perfectly to conclude his objectives and obtain that magical artifact at last. He snatches the headgear, pulling it clear from her scalp with a sudden discharge of force, effectively terminating the era of that mean lady right then and there with finality. She hits the dirt, a circular depression appearing around her body as the link breaks, forcing a visual ripple of soil and brick bits to fly into the nearby surroundings. That object tumbles along the concrete, its shattery luminescence dimming quickly, resembling nothing more than shiny trash after its violent separation from the individual who previously wore it so tightly. He taps his eyewear back into place, peering steady amid the debris, while those men remain speechless at his rear, their bodies rigid as they process the events just completed. Stepping forward to retrieve the item, he hears an electronic notification, seeing text about the special crown and essence detection, marking the successful capture of the objective within his palm. He retrieves his mobile device to document the secured piece for Wu Yuxing, the digital interface validating that the item is currently locked down and accounted for within his possession. Checking on her prawn form, he whispers that breathing should remain a priority under that pile of stones, his focus shifting toward future tasks now that the specific toil is finished. Considering her future, he decides the local citizens can determine the consequences, while he acts solely as the technician waiting to receive his commission for services rendered this evening. A tight focus reveals her lying in a state of disrepair, and deprived of the magical boosts. She looks like any elderly criminal who discovered a superior opponent during combat. Unexpectedly, the interface scrolls through intake metrics rapidly, and he observes the numerical velocity increasing beyond common standards, pinning that an anomaly is currently unfolding within the machinery. The voice interrupts his internal dialogue, calling out, "Hey kid." He glances up at a man in a crisp black outfit working toward him from the shutters, the strange emotions toward the relic, ordering Zhu Jing to pass over his prize. He is stone cold but deadly, and he definitely is not asking nicely. The man in the suit posed with insane ego, telling Zhu Jing the artifact is totally out of his league. He seems like a secret agent from a rival gang. Zhu Jing clutches the crown tightly, his stare turning glacial. He wonders what happens if he refuses, proving he is not worried about some fancy dresser. The attacker's pupils turn a devilish red, saying Zhu Jing is essentially picking up his own tombstone. The vibe is heavy with bloodlust, making a brawl unavoidable. A heads-up display scans Zhu Jing's stats, noting weak vitals but unpredictable moves. The suited thug realizes this guy is not a typical adolescent. The guy sneers, doubting a ghetto brat could possess such massive talent. He scoffs at the scanners, totally underestimating the protagonist like a classic cartoon villain. He grants Zhu Jing one final moment to quit before he lunges forward. He reeks of pure arrogance, assuming he can squash a containment recruit effortlessly. Suddenly, a metal bang echoes as the suited jerk strikes. He operates with deer-like accuracy, his fists sounding like massive pistons crushing in a factory. The villain cackles, asking who even tries to block such a move. He is using greasy, cheap shortcuts, and he looks incredibly satisfied about it. Zhu Jing retreats quickly to miss a skull-crushing smash. The corporate Dune is obsessed, yelling that he will terminate him for causing such a nuisance. Zhu Jing studies the freak, noticing how weird his buddy behaves. He figures the guy is probably a robot or jammed full of illegal mechanical junk. The Tin Man busts through a brick wall amidst a cloud of gravel. He is terrifyingly buff, his robot limbs providing a huge edge and purely raw strength. He fires a high-pressure punch that Zhu Jing barely blocks. The blast creates an impact wave that almost rattles the teeth right out of his head. The suit doesn't quit, throwing a flurry of rapid cybernetic punches. Zhu Jing plays keep away, trying to spot a weakness in this robotic threat's design. Zhu Jing glides back on the concrete, sparking like a broken toaster. He accepts this dude is dangerously powerful and he cannot waste more time here. He peeks at the tech board while backpedaling. His essence bar is stuck at 81%, so he is desperate for a skill to change the game. The suited attacker slams his palms into the earth, creating a dust storm. He is attempting to box in Zhu Jing and end the show immediately. Zhu Jing is stuck right in the center, looking genuinely stressed. He realizes this oversized lawnmower is going to find him no matter where he hides. A colossal flash of white sparks fills the area as the suit's ultimate move lands. It looks like game over for our main character. Zhu Jing is seen covered in soot and hacking, but a notification pops up. Dark Ember, enable, yes or no. It is a miracle he needed. He hits the confirmation prompt on the floating display without waiting. This marks the precise second the victim turns into the terrifying victor. The villain works through the haze with a huge grin, offering to spare a limb. He thinks he already won the jackpot, but a hand reaches through the fog and stops the cyborg's hit. A loud crash echoes as the suit guy's jaw drops in complete shock. Zhu Jing's face appears from the dark, his eyes glowing with hellish light. People call him the lucky one as his true power finally wakes up. Zhu Jing stands in a hole, covered in creepy black smoke. He hears the loser calling him a blessed one, wondering what the job description even means. The cyborg realizes he has completely messed up and tries to run away. Zhu Jing stays frozen, asking who else it would be if not him. We see the ink black flames jumping around like they have a heartbeat. It is clear this is no normal gym routine. It is something terrifying. The pressure leaking from him is so intense it is lifting rocks. He looks like a final world boss, radiating pure main character energy. The bad guy is paralyzed, seeing he accidentally picked a fight with a god. He can barely hold his balance under the crushing weight of that ore. The digital interface chirps that Zhu Jing's Guthine fire ability is finally operational, making him wonder how these obsidian embers relate to that weird title the antagonist just shouted. Posing like a dark anime protagonist drenched in void juice, he contemplates that holy favorite Manga, questioning if he signed up for a religious cult or just a very aggressive fan club. The antagonist attempts a pathetic tactical retreat while our hero is daydreaming, but those hork eyes catch the movement. prompting a firm reminder that nobody gets a hall pass today. Dark tendrils suddenly erupt from Zhu Jing's torso like angry heat-seeking snakes on a mission, zipping through the air with the singular purpose of ruining the runner's afternoon. Obsidian fear impacts the pavement encircling the Tin Men, creating a spooky jail cell that makes the mechanical coward shriek for mercy while begging Zhu Jing to maintain social distancing. It dawns on him that his magic charcoal reacts to pure brain waves without requiring any just hands, as simply wishing for the flames to attack cores them to obey his mental commands. Cornered like a frightened animal, the metal antagonist wonders if he is fighting some automated drone system, since he has zero experience with such magic and is beginning to lose his cool. With a stake colder than a freezer-burned steak, he towers over his victim while his retinas shine through the gloom, clearly showing he is the undisputed boss of this encounter. The void embers pounds like hungry tigers, stabbing the antagonist until he bellows in agony, showcasing exactly how easily dark magic can shred through expensive armor plating and dignity. The bucket of bolts eventually hits the deck, venting steam from his ruined joints while the five finishes its meal, leaving our hero to spectate the wreckage with complete emotional apathy. After releasing one final pathetic wheeze, the bad guy goes floppy on the concrete, and while the fight is over, Zhu Jing is busy contemplating the terrifying magnitude of his upgrade. A digital chime signals a huge jackpot, granting 452 experience points for clubbering a tougher adversary, which is a fantastic salary for his inaugural use of Midnight Fire. His character dashboard is practically detonating with upgrades in every category, ranging from physical health to mana manipulation, effectively making him a professional speedrunner of personal growth after the brawl. As the Dark Alley fills with level up pings, Zhu Jing has formally reached the 5th rank of spiritual power management, transforming him into a legitimate threat to his enemies. Investigating the leftover scrap metal, he notices the opponent was basically a working toaster, encased in premium synthetic skin that somehow didn't immediately melt under his spicy void sparks. Testing the broken hardware, Zhu Jing observes that the rubbery hide is incredibly tough, requiring a long session of intense roasting just to leave a tiny blemish on the expensive plastic. He concludes his victory was purely due to internal organ frying, because if he had tried to bucks this refrigerator in a fey brawl, he probably would have just broken his knuckles. Flicking his fire at a random rock, it vanishes instantly, revealing that his edgy embers are essentially smart weapons that scale their destruction based on how tough the target thinks it is. Examining his palm, Zhu Jing notes that these dark flickers aren't traditional heat, as they leave no ash and feel pleasantly refrigerated, which is a weirdly chill way to murder someone. His internal computer verifies that these sparks are actually physical embodiments of nearby darkness, providing him a rare ability that ignores standard laws regarding thermal physics or spiritual fuel. He spots a major weakness when the 5 fates as the available shadows decrease, realizing he needs to hang out in dark corners like a creepy goth to keep his mana full. Surveying the urban jungle, he understands that huge patches of gloom mean bigger explosions, making the graveyard shift his official peak hours for chaotic, shadowy destruction and magical mayhem. Out of nowhere, the void essence evaporates and leaves him scratching his head, as his juice drained much quicker than anticipated without a single pop-up warning from his interface. This leaves him pondering the recharge timer and his magical stamina, as he cannot exactly go around playing superhero if his primary weapon might take a surprise nap mid-battle. Shoving the logistics into his mental junk drawer, he prepares to report the status to Wu Yaking while looming over the metallic corpse, eager to finish his shift and go get some snacks. The scene shifts to the posh district across town where the skyscrapers are tall and the wallets are fat, indicating that this is a neighborhood for the true corporate overlords. Deep in a gloomy chamber sits a throbbing, meaty mess decorated with too many eyeballs, looking like a rejected nightmare from a horror movie and radiating some very bad vibes. An edgy dude with flowing locks and a crimson laser eye looms over a trembling minion, asking if Ping Ping realizes why he was invited here, all while radiating some serious and deemed villain energy. The leader pets a gross, beating heart like a fluffy kitten while his injured employee stares at the floor, sweating bullets and hoping that his dental insurance covers whatever happens next. That poor guy Ping Ping admits he ignored every single warning about avoiding case, yet since he botched those simple instructions, it seems he is becoming the poster child for bad decisions. Out of nowhere, the tall man's arm darts forward to grasp the other person's cranium with a sudden grunt, demonstrating a very rapid physical movement. He keeps his physical grip steady on the fellow, who remains in a fixed location while the person in charge prepares to offer a verbal evaluation. The individual in charge questions the refusal to follow directives without using any worn tones, showing no focus on verbal excuses or complicated justifications. His eyeballs exhibit a bright internal glow as he stares at the helper on his knees, while the kneeling person speaks loudly toward the floor. Ping Ping makes repeated forceful cranial contact with the floor tiles, while the taller individual remains in a stationary upright stance without moving much. The person in charge signals for him to stand up and requests details on agents, learning the data of his crew has been completely erased. He mentions that a singular youth is responsible for the squad's outcome, which causes the leader to shift his entire visual focus forward quite suddenly. He repeats words regarding a specific young male while maintaining a rigid facial structure, paying close attention to the identity mentioned in the vocal report. He identifies the subject as Zhu Jing and mentions the generic data found on him, which causes the boss to perform a subtle narrowing of vision. He yells that non-enhanced citizens cannot overcome his laboratory projects, while his retinas radiate a red hue across the internal space of the room. The kneeling man moves his head up and down in rapid physical agreement, appearing highly intent on vacating the current enclosure with great haste. Pointing at a massive weight of organic material, he gives instructions to find the youth alive for the purpose of biological nourishment for an entity. He creates a rhythmic vocal sound within an eerie neon environment, visualizing a global ecosystem involving the growth of many biological offspring. Zhu Jing travels inside a vertically moving metal lift, showing some physical moisture on his forehead while considering the library manager's potential facial reaction. He keeps his features neutral while waiting for the bucks to open, intending to double his future productivity if the feedback proves to be poor. The lift arrives at the 7th level with a loud chime and displays the archives, prompting him to step out to address the current balance. Instead of receiving a harsh lecture, he sees a woman perform a deep bow to indicate she takes full responsibility for the mission's logic errors. Jing remains without a verbal response as he observes this unexpected gesture, including an offer to increase his operational status and compensation. She plans to raise his mission category to a C+ rank for high funds, which leaves him with a significant gap between his drawers. She provides a paper folder to formalize their agreement, and he accepts immediately while noticing how her current activity differs from his expectations. After a brief gesture involving physical contact of palms, he remains curious about the calm environment compared to the loud shouting he once anticipated. While working past several rows of books, she identifies the deceased as a resident named Ju Yinkan who hailed from a distant urban sector. Records show he served as a professional for a different corporate group, which officially denies the link, though the woman vocalizes her own doubts. They sit in the designated area to discuss why an employee would pursue that specific antique crown, noting the sequence of actions is statistically unlikely. Jing observes the printed information within the provided folder while she describes the geographical distribution of various items and power groups. She taps a large chart of regional districts to show company headquarters and the exact geographic coordinates of the identified historical relic. The visual data highlights the borders between different inner and outer zones, illustrating the high-stakes spatial competition taking place across the map. He observes that the briefing seems correct on the surface but looks for hidden patterns, as she advises him to perform fieldwork tests. She holds out his pairs of optical frames and asks if they should be placed in storage, but he says they are useful to keep. During a stylized chip-eye visual frame, she looks pleased about the equipment choice, while he considers the additional capabilities housed within the glasses. Things get pretty spooky when Wu mentions the post-mortem findings on Ju. She claims the details regarding his departure are beyond weird. Moving closer, she reveals that the man was essentially hollow inside. She then demands to know how Zhu performed such a messy surgical trick, recalling his terrifying dark fire. Zhu senses the true peril of his gift. He instantly chooses to keep his insane viper hidden from prying eyes. He removes his eyewear and flashes a saintly expression to act cool. He wants to evade her query while keeping his sibling identity safe. That handsome aura strikes her like a cupid projectile, causing Wu to blush like a tomato while she desperately attempts to play it off, declaring that everyone has skeletons in their closet. She lets him skip the answer. He slides his specs on, glad his fake charm actually function. He switches topics to discuss the gift she offered. The specking it signals a promotion. He feels quite eager to learn his place in the hierarchy. Du examines a shiny, radiant yellow token that screams high class. It is light years ahead of the cheap junk he used when he started. Wu says it is a legit Honda permit granting him huge perks. This small slab of gold will likely solve half his problems on future gigs. Setting the tiny print, he notices his upgrade from temp worker to staff. This milestone brings him closer to solving the big mystery surrounding him. With a satisfied finger snap, Wu agrees with a smug look. She seems genuinely impressed by how fast her little rookie is climbing the ladder. Tapping a button to part a massive case of books, she unveils the vault. Mentioning his new status gives him total freedom to browse their records. Wu departs for other errands, letting him prowl the classified shelves. She tells him to enjoy the deep lore since she clearly trusts him now. Giving a small wave, he focuses immediately on the mythical band. This is his best shot at discovering who that mysterious one really is. Pumped with adrenaline, he prepares to search the stacks, believing his desired truths are tucked away inside these stacks of ancient, crumbled paper. Entering the colossal warehouse, its sheer size knocks his socks off. It resembles a futuristic basement packed with thousands of eerie, magical gadgets. Strolling past infinite wrecks, he sees the facility goes deeper than expected. Each container holds a shard of lore that normal folks cannot access. Cases are sorted by fancy codes like serial number 560. It looks like a Costco for holy relics, though items here might actually kill customers. He grabs a chest labeled with a crazy name about some Reaper's bias. He knows nothing of this relic, yet his internal radar goes nuts. The digital notification denies his entry due to low status. Thunna, he eyes a case dubbed Cinderella Boy, wondering what wacky spells it might offer. Tempting to open serial number 227 results in another error. He assumed the gold pass was a master key, but tears still exist. Denials keep piling up for Object 580 and the Devilish 666. This digital gatekeeping makes him feel like he is being hilariously trolled. Du nearly flips out, yelling that this entire place is a fraud. He feels drained from sprinting through aisles only to find more locked doors. Ending the aimless wandering, he aims for the feline ring data, hoping his level is at least sufficient to read about his own pet's history. Jackpot, he spots a locker marked 111391, Poem of the Ring. The major moment of clarity has finally arrived right here. Holding the card out, Du practically prays for the computer to cooperate. The suspense builds while the scanner lazily reads his shiny new credentials. Hallelujah. A green light pulses as the feline ring file unfolds. The plastic ticket actually pulled through for the only item he really cared about. He is happy but notices the object is rated Class B. Since he's a lower C rank, he can only see the top few info sheets. Scanning the lines leaves him puzzled. The data says the toy just makes kittens, which makes its high hazard rating seem like a massive joke. Sliding into a chair with a giant book, he decides to bypass the screens. He remains convinced some secret peril justifies its crazy threat score. The paragraph notes that sporting that shiny jewelry for 30 days lets folks swap between feline and human shapes at will, though it ignores how this triggers the apocalypse. Turning to a dusty sketch of a god, he scans words about a medic who birthed a weirdo group after losing his marbles over that small circle of metal. Our main man shivers slightly while whispering about dark sex, noticing the whole plot is quickly sliding into a level of peril he definitely did not agree to. He tears through various documents to gather intel on this shadow crew, realizing he must grasp the stakes to keep one from becoming a human scratch post. Manuscripts detail the planet splitting white when the old deities kicked the bucket, creating massive canyons that served as entries for all types of magic-fueled mayhem. Deep-sea divers of the dirt plunged into those cracks, discovering gadgets for chatting with taboo deities and completely flipping the script on how mortals interact with cosmic bosses. According to the scroll, prayer-happy power seekers formed gangs, and those gifted with powers earned the title of blessed ones, which finally registers in our hero's brain. like a piano falling from the sky. The true meaning of that divine title strikes him while he peers at the lines, making all those confusing puzzle pieces click. He spots records of the Lion Saint squad attempting to call up a big cat named Bastet 2 centuries back, practically begging her for a single text message or signal. In an old drawing, legions of robed figures bow toward a gigantic stone lion, yet the supernatural kitty gave them the ultimate silent treatment for ages. The radio silence ended when some lucky zealot found the ring, turned into a purring fluff ball, and got a holy thumbs up, finally giving the group the desired spiritual paycheck. Plot twist, the shiny round accessory got the actual cosmic upgrade instead of the guy wearing it, turning the trinket into a magical artifact that breaks every law of physics. Warning labels suggest that merging makes the wearer more like the feline goddess over time, while mentioning that those Lion Saint weirdos are ready to hunt down the current owner. Jaws drop as the guy processes the threat of lethal assassins, realizing his companion is no simple pet but a literal target for a pack of hyper-focused worshippers. With glowing red irises and a jaw clamped tighter than a bear trap, he vows that if anyone tries to hurt his feline friend, they will have to fight him first. He switches his workout from heavy lifting to library hours, remembering how his cat boss verbally abused him into leveling up his skills so he does not end up as urban graffiti. Contemplating the scary bits of reality, he recalls some cloak creep with a shining ring standing near a mountain of corpses, concluding that he must bulk up or face extinction. Out of nowhere, a glowing UI notification startles him, causing a stare down with the screen as he spots a sneaky bypass to power that he had not anticipated before. The digital dashboard reveals the specific requirements for upgrading the jewelry, offering the secrets to squeezing more juice out of the ornament that hangs on his companion. This manual is insane, claiming the initial upgrade needs a massive emotional jolt, followed by a repetitive cycle of that same feeling, which is basically an invitation for clinical insanity. While picturing potential ways to provide that emotional spark, his brain dives headfirst into the sewage, envisioning a human-shaped girl in ways that are definitely not for polite company. Face-brimming with enough force to cause a headache, he blames his high-definition imagination for making those fantasies too vivid, knowing that constant emotional shocks will lead to some high-grade social cringe. Mental pictures of a bright red female companion keep flashing in his head, making him sweat profusely while he debates how to tell a former grandmaster that they need mood swings. Beads of anxiety appear as he practices his speech, imagining himself telling the cat that she needs a heavy dose of feelings to change shape, which will surely end in disaster. Moving to the section on negative outcomes, he holds his air in, prepared to read a scary disclaimer about mutating into some hideous creature from a horror flick. Surprisingly, the tome lists no health hazards, only warning him about some Lion Saint fanatics who are probably just waiting to ruin his weekend at some later date. Leaning back in his chair, he remains baffled by what the kitty deity shape actually offers, annoyed that his mid-tier security pass blocks all the juicy top-secret details. After returning to his flat to grind some stills, tiny yellow lightning bolts crackle off his hoodie, while a digital chime from his device signals potential wealth coming his way. Peep the bank statement. He just secured a bag of over 200 grand for his previous gig, as his employer finally coughed up the dough to make him rich. Dreams of thick beef patties, cheesy triangle slices, and sugary desserts dance in his head, as he prepares to incinerate his coupons and eat like an absolute monarch. Our hero swaggered down the avenue, feeling like he owned the place. He decided to splurge on the most luxurious groceries available to create an epic feast for winter. 5 days later, the dining table looked like a seafood and poultry convention had just exploded. There were mountains of lobster tails, piles of crab legs, and enough roast chickens to feed an army of carnivores. Weiner eyed a chicken drumstick suspiciously, demanding an explanation for this sudden windfall. Just last week, he was eating food fit for a duck, and now he was living like a king. Du Jing merely offered a smug smirk, gripping a lobster claw firmly as he deflected her questions. He mumbled something about having been wealthy before, clearly just reveling and showing off his new status. The atmosphere changed dramatically when he revealed he had acquired a new ability called the shaking armor skill from his instructor. It turned out those 5 days weren't just dedicated to gastronomic indulgence. A quick flashback shows his training regimen, which was clearly agonizing. He performed ridiculous, gravity-defying stances that would make a hot yoga instructor feel extremely lazy. The twist is that this technique demands extremely costly therapeutic soaks, with each bath costing a jaw-dropping $40,000. Now his rapid depletion of funds made perfect sense. In the present, he glanced at his bank account and felt true despair. His wallet had shrunk from a comfortable $235,000 down to a measly $8,000 in under 7 days. This high-roller lifestyle was incredibly brief. Wayne completely freaks out, insisting on knowing exactly what happened to the cash. She couldn't comprehend how he managed to blow $200,000 on a couple of soaks and a single seafood dinner. Du Jing collapsed over the dinner table, looking like a ghost had just passed straight through him. The bitter reality of being penniless once more was far more painful than any physical blow from training. Wayne began scolding him, even while she continued chewing, declaring him a fine sect leader but a complete failure at personal finance. She reminded him of all the expensive potions and weaponry he still needed to acquire. She showed him a projection of upcoming expenses, including medical beer, concealed daggers, and even a formal suit valued at more than $100,000. He realized being a high-level warrior was essentially a bottomless financial abyss. Wayne continued happily devouring a lobster leg, completely oblivious to her own contribution to the financial crisis. She might be adorable, but her excessive appetite was certainly not helping their economic situation. Du Jing ate his rice with a deeply disturbed look, meticulously counting each grain. He was finally grasping that everything in existence seemed to require an absurd amount of currency. He calculated that his next paycheck was still distant, and Wu Yaking wasn't exactly distributing assignments freely. He needed to find a profitable side gig immediately to avoid a monotonous diet of unseasoned rice. He grabbed his phone and began scrolling through online job advertisements, searching desperately for anything that offered good pay without requiring him to break the law. He spotted a mechanic position in the factory zone, but the income was merely adequate. He required something far more substantial to maintain his $40,000 per session bathing obsession. He messaged his senior brother, Chen Fuguang, inquiring about employment opportunities for someone facing financial difficulties. Fuguan responded that he had contacted the ideal person and instructed him to report to the dojo. Fuguan explained that a VIP required security tomorrow, but a preliminary skill assessment was mandatory for Zhu Jing. This was the ideal chance to demonstrate whether all those costly therapeutic soaks had actually improved his abilities. Returning to the table, Zhu Jing and Weiner were consuming the final portions of the massive meal. He began complaining loudly that she had hoovered up all the choice bits. The following morning, the bright city skyline appeared as Zhu Jing made his way to the Hidden Dragon Dojo. It was a pleasant departure from the dreary atmosphere of the Outer Ring district. He entered the training hall, which already felt alive with activity. Fuguan was visible in the distance, practicing diligently and appearing as formidable as usual. Zhu Jing's gaze lit up with an intense fiery red, indicating his readiness to display his skills. He considered this test extremely vital, mostly because he desperately needed the bodyguard paycheck. He activated his powers, a massive golden energy field swirling around his physique. The system notification popped up, confirming a new skill, Soft Force LV1, which seemed far beyond simple fist fighting. Fuguan was truly astonished, thinking privately that Zhu Jing had learned the shaking armor skill in an unbelievably short period. He quickly concluded that his junior brother operated on a vastly superior plane of existence. Du Shenyan cautiously approached, appearing incredibly flustered and anxious. He explained that strength assessments were taking place and requested that he offer a brief demonstration for the others. Zhu Jing initially felt reluctant, preferring to avoid making a spectacle, but the other disciples had already formed a circle. They were all desperate to discover if the new prodigy was genuine or simply full of hot air. Fuguan placed an encouraging hand on his shoulder, suggesting this was an excellent opportunity to test his newly acquired skills. He wanted the entire dojo to witness the level of talent they were harboring. Zhu Jing moved toward the heady bag, maintaining a composed and relaxed appearance. He promised a casual effort, but everyone knew perfectly well how those statements usually turn out in action stories. He positioned himself directly in front of the enormous weighted punching bag as all the other students observed in complete silence. The anticipation in the area was so thick you could almost taste it. The other students were busy flexing their scores, tossing out numbers like 212k and 232k. They kindly warned him not to break his hand, completely clueless about the disaster he was about to cause. Zhu Jing launched a punch, but instead of a mighty crack, there was only a soft puff. It looked like a total flop, and for a heartbeat, silence blanketed the entire room. The other disciples immediately started laughing, mocking him for failing to build up any power. They figured he held back deliberately to avoid looking even more foolish. All at once, the punching bag started to ripple violently from within. A sickening crack echoed through the room as its internal structure completely gave way. Boom! The entire metal stand supporting the punching bag disintegrated into a cloud of smoke and debris. The digital meter on the floor shattered immediately as it peaked at the 999 limit. Everyone remained in pure shock as the smoke cleared from the mess. Zhu Jing was simply standing there, hand still extended, acting like it was absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. He calmly named the technique Soft Force, which sounds harmless but is actually an advanced internal energy application that makes raw physical strength look like child's play. Zhu Jing explained that true strength isn't just about hitting hard on the outside. Soft Force involves concentrating power into a needle-sharp point, injecting it into the target, and letting it explode internally. Du Shenning was absolutely smitten, clasping her hands together and blushing furiously as she thanked him. The other male disciple, meanwhile, was turning green with jealousy in the background, annoyed by all the attention. Fuguan ordered the jealous guy to retrieve a punch pad to hide the shattered meter. He told Zhu Jing that after witnessing that display, he wasn't worried at all about his ability to handle the bodyguard assignment. He mentioned that an important person needed protection and that things might get a little complex. He asked Zhu Jing if he was prepared to give the job a try. He handed Zhu Jing a card for the Rouge Hotel in the East City District. The compensation amount printed on the bottom was an absolutely staggering 800,000. Zhu Jing stared at that massive number like it was the most beautiful work of art he had ever encountered. The 800,000 on the card practically started to glow with divine light. He turned into a caricature, with literal cash signs replacing his eyes. He grabbed Fuguan and shouted, "Please, I absolutely must take this job. Our guy is finally going back into the black." We arrived at the Rouge Hotel, where everything screamed high class and extravagance. A sleek black car pulled up to the entrance, setting the scene for what promised to be a fancy, yet dangerous, night. Zhu Jing stepped out of the car looking absolutely immaculate in a black traditional suit. He traded his usual casual clothes for an outfit that declared, "I came here for work, and I will be looking fantastic while doing it." The guests inside immediately started whispering, trying to figure out who this young newcomer might be. They assumed he was merely extra security, but his youthfulness clearly confused them for such a serious assignment. Zhu Jing gave a confident smile, remembering his senior sister's advice about dressing appropriately. He had finally learned that clothes make the man, and he was definitely playing this new role perfectly. We flash back to senior sister Shenyang, who was absolutely horrified when she saw his choice of a casual hoodie. She gave him a major reality check, explaining how cheap clothes were inappropriate for this high-end assignment. She was practically weeping over his lack of fashion awareness, insisting that everyone would look down on him if he went dressed like that. Thankfully, she had already prepared something far more suitable for him. Chen Yang proudly displayed a bright red suit from a famous designer, something that belonged on a runway, not a covert mission. Zhu Jing's expression showed exactly how much he hated it, as it was far too flashy for someone who preferred to be discreet. He complained that the suit was overly flashy and completely went against his style. He pointed out that he was a martial artist, not a backup dancer in a pop group. Suddenly, a new hand reached into the frame, presenting a completely different clothing option. It appeared that someone else in the dojo actually had much better taste in mission attire. Senior Sister Meng saved the day with a much more refined traditional black suit. Chen Yang stood in the background pouting, obviously upset that she had been defeated in the fashion game. Zhu Jing checked himself in the mirror and immediately conceded that Senior Sister Meng had won this round. He looked sophisticated, dangerous, and completely prepared for whatever the night had planned. Back at the party, the ladies were already starting to swoon, speculating if he might be a top disciple from some famous dojo. He was accidentally leveling up his charm stats just by strolling across the room. He also caught the attention of some heady hitters from other martial arts schools, who were trying to figure out his skill level. The ambience in the room shifted quickly from a fancy banquet to a high-stakes martial arts scouting session. A large fellow named Lee Jae-akin, wearing a white suit, was discussing Zhu Jing with his beanie-wearing friend. Lee claimed to know everyone on the local scene, so not recognizing Zhu Jing was a major red flag. The beanie guy mentioned that the Hidden Dragon Dojo was legendary for being incredibly selective about new members. He pointed out that the seventh disciple was known to be a peerless talent with an exceptional physique. Lee Jae-akin scoffed immediately, refusing to believe that a pretty boy like Zhu Jing could possibly be an elite disciple. He was letting his arrogance completely blind him to the obvious presence of a true master. His friend instructs him to inspect closer, pointing out Choi Jang's perfect, unyielding posture. Every step covers precisely the same distance, indicating an almost obsessive level of discipline and training. As Choi Jang moves through the room, his torso remains absolutely motionless, not even shifting an inch. This level of physical control is a clear sign that his internal energy reserves are extremely advanced. Lee Jae-akin remains skeptical, arguing that numerical superiority is the only true strength in combat. His friend simply sighs, clearly exhausted from trying to explain advanced martial arts theory to someone so dense. The beanie-wearing friend wanders off to enjoy the refreshments, leaving Lai to simmer in his thoughts. Lai decides he must personally confront this young man to verify if the rumors hold any truth. Lai Xiaoqing yells out to Zhu Jing, asking if he's a martial arts expert hired for the security detail. He tries to sound intimidating, but Zhu Jing doesn't react in the slightest. Zhu Jing offers a polite acknowledgement and states he represents the Hidden Dragon Dojo. He's staying completely relaxed, having no idea he's about to be challenged to a very public strength test. The hotel manager greets him warmly and immediately gets down to business. The floor plan is ready, and he wants to clarify Zhu Jing's specific duties for the duration of the event. Zhu Jing is assigned to the critical stage area, which serves as the room's central hub. The manager warns him that the lighting is poor there, so he'll need to pay extra attention to anything suspicious or out of place. Zhu Jing reflects that with so many masters present, he questions who would be foolish enough to start trouble. He is beginning to suspect this is far from a typical banquet. The manager insists they are simply exercising caution, but his grave expression tells a different story entirely. He quickly returns to his tasks, leaving Zhu Jing to thoroughly examine the surrounding area. Zhu Jing watches him depart, concluding that the issue isn't a lack of guests, but rather the deployment of 6 high-level martial artists in one small section. That situation screams danger. He scans his surroundings and observes security personnel everywhere, each looking like a hardened professional. The quantity of equipment and staff here feels like overkill for a standard party. He notices the surveillance cameras are significantly more advanced than a typical hotel installation. He recognizes that when circumstances appear so abnormal, a significant hidden operation is definitely underway. He looks focused and alert, pondering what exactly is happening here that requires such an extreme level of protection. He realizes he's not just a bodyguard tonight, but an eyewitness to a major incident. Lai Xiaoqing makes his move, approaching Zhu Jing with a smug, arrogant expression. He's clearly trying to instigate a confrontation before the main event has even officially started. Zhu Jing merely gives him an icy stare and asks for his name. He is completely unimpressed by the large man's flashy white suit or his overly confident attitude. Lai identifies himself as belonging to the Tiger Soul Dojo, claiming he wants to assess his new partner's capabilities. He is already attempting to assert dominance before they've had a proper introduction. Lai looms over Zhu Jing, allowing a shimmering blue aura to appear, displaying his internal power. He hopes to intimidate the pretty boy into backing down, but he has drastically miscalculated his target. Zhu Jing simply looks up at him, entirely unfazed, and asks how he wishes to proceed. He appears ready to skip the pleasantries and get straight to the physical evaluation. Lai Xiaoqing suggests they touch hands, a traditional method for martial artists to test internal strength without initiating a destructive brawl. He firmly believes he is about to embarrass the young fighter. Zhu Jing agrees immediately, knowing exactly what Lai is thinking. He understands Lai distrusts him because of his youth, so he prepares to demonstrate the true difference in their weight classes. They lock hands in the middle of the crowded ballroom, and the atmosphere in the room changes dramatically. The surrounding guests begin to notice the quiet struggle taking place right in front of them. Pei Yaoguang is in the audience and catches sight of Zhu Jing. He looks absolutely terrified, completely bewildered as to why the man who destroyed his reputation is now working security at his party. Several girls ask Pei who the handsome man is, and he can barely respond. He recalls precisely how painful Zhu Jing's grip can be, making him feel genuine sympathy for Lai Xiaoqing. Pei mentally places all his bets on Zhu Jing, remembering how Lai Xiaoqing once squeezed his hand until he shrieked in pain. He knows this pretty boy exterior hides a genuine martial arts monster. The crowd is divided, with some people convinced the handsome guy has no chance against someone as imposing as Lai. Pei sharply tells them to be quiet and simply observe the match. Zhu Jing remains perfectly calm as Lai begins to apply immense pressure to the handshake. To everyone watching, it appears to be a friendly greeting, but the actual internal conflict is escalating quickly. A close inspection reveals a subtle blue glow in Zhu Jing's eyes as he begins channeling his internal force. He executes this so skillfully that casual observers are entirely unaware of his actions. Pei, however, can clearly see the change. He observes a golden aura of pure Kai flowing around Zhu Jing, immediately realizing his power level far surpasses anything Lai Xiaoqing possesses. Pei is astonished by how significantly stronger Zhu Jing has become since the previous interaction. He immediately plans to properly introduce himself after the match concludes, hoping to secure a good impression. That mutual palm squeeze persists while Lai begins leaking moisture from his forehead. He exhausts every tactic, yet Zhu Jing stays put like a rooted summit. Inwardly, Lai sneers at the apparent novice for lacking spiritual vibes, yet violet and amber lightning begins arcing across their interlaced fingers. Doubling down on the pressure, Lai sees his limb illuminate with a brilliant metallic sheen. He assumes he discovered a ceiling, but a painful surprise looms. A slight grin appears as Kiwi realizes his rival's prowess is significantly inferior to his. Having restrained himself fully, he prepares to conclude this test. With concentrated intent, Zhu Jing applies his own pressure. Lai's pupils dilate in horror as a massive strength starts pulverizing his phalanges. Crimson orbs shine with high hostility while golden and vermilion ripples surge wildly from his sturdy frame. Lai Jiroshin freezes, feeling like he faced a phantom as power levels skyrocket instantly. Fighting for his sanity, Lai realizes control has vanished completely. Panic overflows as he questions what sort of nightmare creature he managed to foolishly provoke. A sound of agony escapes Lai's throat when the crushing sensation intensifies. Qi Jing stands perfectly still, wearing a smug look while relishing the table's turn. Zooming in on the knuckles, Asher and Lemon electric bolts jump everywhere. Noises of grinding joints and immense pressure resonate while the duel reaches its zenith. Chuck hits Qi Jing's face after hearing a distinct pop not found in the script. He suspects he possibly overapplied the subtle pressure by a significant margin. Dumbfounded, Lai Jiroshin cradles his bloated and scalded palm in disbelief. Withdrawing his limb, Tui inquires about his status, showing legitimate worry after nearly snapping bone. Acting brave, Lai manages a shaky chuckle and claims wellness. He praises the secret warrior, though everyone knows he's essentially just delaying a fainting spell, promptly citing a bathroom emergency. He retreats while concealing a damaged appendage. His tea invite serves as the pugilist way of begging, please refrain from future strikes. Once isolated, Lai holds his limb and weeps due to severe discomfort. Deep within a shadowed corridor, he releases the immense torment hidden inside the gaoler. Staring at his vibrating and enlarged hand, the agony is absolutely unbearable. It occurs to him that this evaluation was quite possibly his worst decision ever. Puddled in a corner, Lai contemplates the origins of such a freakish rifle. Seeking a brawl resulted in a lifelong lesson regarding deceptive appearances of attractive youths. Remaining inside the hall, Tu contemplates Lai's survival potential following that greeting. Detecting an audible snap suggests that things went slightly off course during the test. Abruptly, a shout echoes for Jing from far away. Rotating his gaze, Du identifies a recognizable character moving swiftly toward his current position. Pei Yaoguang arrives with a grin, welcoming his sibling after a lengthy absence. Du experiences mild disbelief encountering him at this venue, specifically wearing formal tuxedos. Pei reveals his eldest relative maintains deep respect for Zhu, enabling his current high-end life. Zhu acknowledges the shift, noticing his fame is expanding rapidly now. Cutting to the chase, Zhu asks what chores require his attention. Intending to labor, he wishes to skip useless banter if tasks are pending completion. Dashing with pride, Pei describes the neutralization of Lai as spectacular. He notes his boss desires a meeting with whoever humbled the Soul Dojo elite. Advancing the pitch, Pei highlights his kin's brilliance as a top university alumni. He is visibly attempting to persuade Zhu into agreeing to the social meetup. Gesturing across the expanse, he indicates a fashionable man with rose-tinted hair leading the crowd. Zhu simply mumbles an unenthusiastic acknowledgement, remaining entirely unpressed. Pei notes that several affluent matrons are also itching for a formal introduction. The cluster of elites in the rear distance is essentially beckoning him over. Rejecting the idea, Zhu Jing declines firmly while exhaling slowly. He informs Pei that duties remain and he won't function as decorative amusement for the crowd. Delivering blunt wisdom, he insists that personal effort beats awaiting charity every single time. He maintains zero patience for those avoiding sweat and real struggle. While Zhu marches off for rounds, Pei remains stunned, whispering regarding his friend's intense charisma. This fellow is truly obsessed with the main character's style. Female spectators watch him depart, echoing thoughts about his undeniable edge. It appears those plain spectacles are failing miserably at making him look like a wallflower. A golden-haired female in an open gown obstructs his route, raising a smartphone. She inquires regarding the stylish man's digital footprint for future direct messages. Apparently, she started a trend, because a massive gaggle of ladies suddenly surrounds him, waving smartphones like digital torches and screaming for attention, while our hero looks like he'd rather be auditing a tax office instead. While dodging the thirsty mop, the protagonist spots a staff member wheeling a trolley inside, which feels suspiciously out of place, especially since no one mentioned a mid-party delivery and his internal danger radar is buzzing. The pushy blonde snags his limb, whispering about how she can teach him many spicy lessons if he just scans her code, and though she is violating his personal bubble, his eyes remain glued to the sketchy delivery man. To end her persistent nagging, he sighs and requests her digits just to get some peace, while that weirdo in the shadows is lurking with intent, looking like a villain waiting for his big dramatic moment. The lady chirps with victory as she secures her prize, feeling quite smug about her charms, and unbeknownst to her, the fake waiter is grinning evilly at a gadget, looking like a low-budget movie antagonist. With a mincing click, he slams his thumb onto a glowing red button that lets out a shrill noise, making it quite clear that this activation is definitely not going to result in a fresh basket of warm towels. Tucked away in a dark closet, a tiny gizmo hidden behind some boxes begins to glow like a radioactive cherry, signaling the start of the nightmare scenario the management feared, which is definitely not on the schedule. His mobile device begins emitting strange pops and crackles, making him wonder if his battery is about to pull a stunt, while the very air feels heavy with invisible waves of energy that make his skin tingle. The realization hits that it is not just his hardware acting up, as the entire room vibrates with static, and before he can react, a thunderous explosion of noise rips through the hall. Every bulb dies at once, drowning the fancy room in a thick and creepy shadow that would make a ghost flinch, as the wealthy guests stand frozen like statues, processing that this was not a planned theatrical blackout. Someone loudly wonders if the hotel forgot to pay the electric bill as panic starts to simmer, and one guy tries to activate his flashlight, but his expensive phone is now as useless as a chocolate teapot. Our main man gives his screen a few desperate taps, yet it remains as black as a burnt marshmallow, as this is definitely not your garden variety fuse blowing and he knows things are about to get very ugly. Glancing at the crowd, he sees dozens of people staring at the brick gadgets with confusion, and he quietly whispers the three-letter acronym for an electromagnetic pulse, knowing exactly why the technology just committed suicide. The pulse light that effectively cooks every circuit board it touches in a heartbeat, leaving him to ponder why anyone would use such an expensive, sci-fi method just to cause chaos in a place that mostly serves tiny appetizers. A massive crash echoes as the doors are forced open by something with the weight of a runaway freight train, and a high-pitched shriek follows immediately, shifting the vibe from confused to absolutely terrified. moving with the speed of a caffeinated ninja. He yanks a lady away just as chunks of the ceiling try to give her a permanent headache, as he is now certain that this evening has taken a sharp turn. The posh ballroom is now a scene of utter bedlam, filled with the sounds of shattering glass and frantic cries about broken tech. While being stuck in a pitch-black room with a killer really adds extra misery. A nervous voice whispers that things are getting weird, because the friend who was just standing there has pulled a vanishing act, as it seems old Wang decided to disappear without saying goodbye, which is very scary. A small lighter flickers to life, illuminating a grisly puddle of crimson that definitely was not there 5 minutes ago, while the man holding the flame stammers that something is seriously wrong, his voice shaking. The guy with the tiny file looks around in a panic, knowing that the big boss is missing from the group, and that red mess on the carpet is just the opening act for the nightmare about to unfold. A guy named Pei starts barking orders, telling everyone to huddle up and stop running like headless chickens, doing his best to manage the hysterical crowd while they are all essentially playing a deadly game of tag. A sharp creaking noise comes from the void, followed by a muffled thud as another person is snatched away, with this unseen predator gliding through the room like a phantom, picking people off one by one. Someone screams in horror upon finding the remains of the leader, or at least the parts that were left behind, while the carpet is absorbing so much blood that it is basically changing its interior design theme. Terror hysteria erupts as a realization of being prey sinks in for the terrified survivors, and despite a few people yelling to keep a tight formation, the group is melting down faster than an ice cube. A well-dressed lad with chestnut hair refuses to budge, searching the shadows for whatever is causing this mess, attempting to keep his cool while the world literally goes to hell in a handbasket around him. Suddenly, a glowing orange blade carves through the darkness right behind him, giving him barely any time to react before he is nearly turned into a human shish kebab by the lightning-fast strike. The chestnut-haired fellow is seen gripping his bleeding limb, his face pale with shock, glaring into the gloom and catching a glimpse of the monstrosity that has been treating the guests like a tasty midnight buffet. A thunderous explosion of sound erupts as the creature decides to remodel the room by smashing through the tables, rapidly transforming the fancy party spot into a graveyard of broken glass and expensive chairs. The sharp-dressed man decides he is not going out like a chump, fueling his internal energy for a counterattack, bellowing a defiant cry of success as he winds up for a strike that hopefully packs a wallop. He punches the ground with enough force to wake the neighbors, sending out a ripple of power to repel the hidden foe, and it seems his desperate move actually hit the mark, finally giving that attacker some trouble. He steadied himself for the next exchange, but a panic-stricken cry for big brother erupted behind him. He whirled around, eyes bulging in genuine terror, as he realized the monster possessed far greater velocity than anticipated. A sudden, sharp crack echoed through the space as the brown-haired man was launched through the air. He impacted the floor with a painful thud, coughing for breath as his defenses completely disintegrated. He lay on the ground, spitting up blood while someone looked on in horrified disbelief. The monster stood directly above him, poised to deliver the decisive, finishing strike. The monster finally emerged from the chaos. It was a grotesque, bright green humanoid covered in multiple glowing eyes and raised sharp claws. It looked exactly like something that had clawed its way out of a dimensional crack in a cheap horror movie. The brown-haired man screamed at the remaining people to run as the beast closed in on him. He desperately attempted to protect whomever was left while he still had the slightest shred of energy. The creature moved in a blinding flash, its shadow falling heavily over the cowering survivors. It released a bone-chilling shriek, signaling that it was too late to escape as it prepared to wipe them out. A sharp claw extended toward the man's throat, leaving him time only to mutter a frustrated curse as he stared helplessly into the face of death. Suddenly, a colossal boom shook the entire vicinity as a thick beam of golden energy slammed into the ground. The impact was strong enough to form a massive crater and blow away all the surrounding dust. Trey Jang emerged casually from the cloud of smoke, completely unfazed by the surrounding destruction. He gazed at the bizarre monster and asked the only relevant question, what in the world is that thing? Anyway, the thunderous crash resonated through the ballroom as a giant green bug monster was sent hurtling backward, screaming wildly. The mutated nightmare had just crossed paths with a very disgruntled Jing. Jing watched the creature slam into the wall, muttering under his breath, "This thing again." He immediately recognized the bug-like creature from his recent dojo battle, realizing with growing annoyance that this wasn't an isolated incident. Jing noted that his recent training clearly hadn't been a waste, seeing as he'd sent the beast flying with just a casual, fun kick. He felt quite proud of his progress, despite currently standing in the middle of a war zone. The guests were losing their collective minds, utterly astonished that a simple kick could defeat such a terrifying beast. They wondered where all the other bodyguard masters had run off to, realizing they were stuck with the only competent professional in the entire room. Pei Yuquan raced toward him, profusely thanking Brother Jing for saving both himself and his older sibling. He was practically worshipping the guy, convinced he was their only remaining hope for survival. Jing held up a hand, warning Pei to keep his distance. He bellowed that the creature wasn't dead yet, just as a loud, powerful impact echoed from deep within the rubble. The monster burst out of the debris, looking even angrier than before. Its eyes glowed a furious red as it descended upon Jing like a grotesque green meteor. Jing immediately realized this monster had evolved, possessing vitality even stronger than the previous one he fought. He decided to test his limits but planned a hasty retreat if things became too difficult, reasoning that $800,000 wasn't worth his life. Jing activated his inch force skill, intercepting the creature midair with a glowing fist. The impact created a shockwave that rattled the entire ballroom, but the tenacious bug creature simply shrieked through the intense pain. The monster was sent skidding across the floor, its movements a chaotic blur in the low light. Jing remained on high alert, noticing that the beast was surprisingly comfortable navigating the pitch-black environment. Jing dove back into the fray, his movements leaving bright green streaks behind him. He openly mocked the beast, pointing out that it wasn't the only one capable of moving freely in the darkness. Suddenly, a system HUD appeared in front of his vision, displaying shadow flame, dark vision active. Everything in Jing's sight instantly turned clear and outlined in brilliant white, granting him a decisive tactical advantage over his stalker. Jing was thrilled to realize that his shadow flame skill actually included a night vision perk. He mentally chastised the system panel for not explaining this feature clearly, as he definitely would have used it much earlier. With his vision completely restored, Jing clearly saw the creature as a white silhouette in the darkness. He was ready to end this game of cat and mouse. Now that the playing field had been leveled, the monster appeared as a series of fast-moving white streaks as it tried to overwhelm Jing from multiple directions. Even in the dark, its speed was terrifying, but Jing managed to keep pace with every movement. The guests watched the blurred fight in complete awe, realizing Jing was somehow fighting the monster to a complete standstill. They had never witnessed a human move with such incredible precision. "No, let's run," the brown-haired big brother muttered, his expression grim. He knows something the others missed. Jing wasn't merely fighting. He was actually dominating the entire rhythm of the confrontation. He pointed out that Jing hadn't retreated a single step, perfectly dodging every attack thrown at him. He realized that the young man wasn't just winning. He was intentionally acting as a shield to protect all of them. Big brother told everyone that they absolutely had to leave immediately. He knew that staying here would only distract Jing and make him worry about their safety while he was busy fighting the monster. Jing thought that he could finally unleash his full power as he watched the group head toward the exit. He had been intentionally holding back to minimize collateral damage, but now the gloves were officially coming off. He flipped off the creature, telling it that he would keep it company now that the guests were safe. The sheer disrespect was legendary as he baited the monster into a final, decisive clash. The creature lets out a truly ear-splitting shriek, glaring at Jing with its burning gaze. It seems a bit put out that the snack it ordered has suddenly developed fangs and is now looking for revenge. The beast suddenly rockets forward, transforming into nothing but a speedy blur. It achieved a speed that would make a drag race a blush, taking Jing by complete surprise with a sudden, unexpected acceleration. A fresh wound appears on Jing's chest, quickly soaking his clothes with crimson. He realizes with a sinking feeling that the beast wasn't even trying before, and it has somehow managed to crank up its performance significantly in the last 60 seconds. The enormous insectoid menace hovers at the opposite side of the room, wings vibrating rapidly. It almost appears to be laughing at him now, its menacing silhouette casting shadows in the dim hotel lighting. The detailed shot reveals the creature's repulsive mug, complete with a terrifying insect smile and twin red embers for eyes. It's wearing a look of total malice, clearly anticipating turning the bodyguard into its next meal. Jing is suddenly enveloped by a brilliant, white light that resembles a blooming flower. He looks completely perplexed, trying to understand what the strange new energy pulsing around his body actually means. A quick succession of flashbacks shows his face fractured and shattered glass. He's questioning his abilities, debating whether a simple martial arts practitioner stands any chance against such a beast. Jing finds himself inverted within a chaotic vortex of glittering light. He believes something has gone drastically wrong, as he can feel himself quickly losing all connection to the physical world. Suddenly, he feels a powerful, glowing golden hand catch him. He looks up in disbelief, trying to figure out what kind of spiritual assistance just dropped into the middle of this high-end party. A huge, brilliant golden dragon appears from the light, wrapping around the entire space with several powerful thuds. Jing feels his inner dragon energy explode, realizing he has just accessed something truly mythical. Jing delivers a devastating blow to the monster, causing a huge cracking sound as the creature is almost torn apart. The monster's green energy is completely overpowered by Jing's brilliant golden aura. A detailed view of the creature's ruined face reveals a look of sheer misery. Its arrogance completely vaporized by the overwhelming force of the seventh student. Jing appears as a dark silhouette against a backdrop of light, a blazing blue star of power gathering before him. He's concentrating all his inner strength for one last, earth-shattering technique. His eyes light up in a fiery orange red as he gets ready for the attack. He lets out a low growl, thinking that a little eye for an eye philosophy seems entirely appropriate for paying back the injury on his chest. Jing lets loose his secret dragon-style finishing move. He launches into a whirlwind of barely visible attacks, his hands sparking with golden electricity as he completely bypasses the monster's defenses. The last attack results in an enormous eruption of green and gold energy, officially dubbed the sealed cloud layer. The resulting shockwave is so immense it resembles a miniature star exploding right in the heart of the hotel building. The monster is now just a collection of various pieces. A detached leg, a shattered skull, and the rest of its mangled form crashed to the ground. It has been completely and messily wiped out. Jing stands there catching his breath, clothes ripped and stained with blood, yet his face remains serene. He quietly says he feels like he understood something truly amazing during that final burst of power. He glances down at the creature's shredded body and notices a slight movement. Yes, incredulously, if the thing truly won't die. Noting that the green core of its eye is still glowing steadily, he observes that despite the mutation, this creature is fundamentally just a glorified cockroach. He recalls that these pests can survive for more than a week without a head, proving they are truly the champions of survival. Jing remembers that a cockroach's primary weakness is the nerve cluster located beneath its feeding tube. He prepares one final, exact strike to put the monster out of its misery for good. He identifies the target and shoves his hand into the creature's chest with a disgusting squishing sound. He murmurs, "Decha," as he takes hold of the central part of the monster's nervous system. The creature finally relaxes into a completely lifeless state, its green eyes fading to black. The dangerous threat that terrified the hotel guests is officially being reduced to nothing but biological trash. A view of the Westin Hotel at night shows the guests erupting in cheers, celebrating the person who destroyed the monster. The bodyguard instantly becomes a celebrated savior among the high society crowd. Wealthy patrons are already bickering over the right to sponsor him, with offers quickly escalating from $1 million to $2 million. They are all desperate to figure out which training hall created such a powerhouse of a mind. Beanie Guy bursts into laughter, teasing old Lai. "Wow, I have to give you credit. You actually had the guts to pick a fight with a person like that." Lai simply stands in place, looking like he'd prefer to disappear entirely. Lai's Iroquoian's face turns a shade of sickly green, and he's sweating profusely. He realizes that Jing likely held back almost 99% of his power during the handshake and feels extremely lucky not to have been instantly disabled. Jing approaches the gathered crowd with his bloodied hand held up. He warns everyone to evacuate immediately, as he strongly suspects this entire incident was not simply a random coincidence. Pei rushes over to him, expressing concern for his health. Jing simply brushes him off and asks for the name of the banquet's specific organizer, his brain already analyzing the strange circumstances. A nervous-looking man in a purple suit, Chunlin, takes a step forward. His hands visibly tremble as he confirms he organized the event and then hesitantly asks if Jing truly believes this wasn't an accident. Jing noted the EMP pulse wasn't accidental and suspected the monster had been deliberately let in. He realized the host had gone completely overboard with security and cameras because he clearly anticipated something going horribly wrong. As a sharp, analytical light glowed in his eyes, Jing concluded that this was no accident, but a meticulously planned assassination attempt designed to eliminate everyone present. Chunlin was shaking uncontrollably, his face a perfect picture of terror. He promised to ask his father to investigate, but it was obvious to everyone that he knew far more than he was letting on. Jing wasn't buying the performance for a second, pointing out that Chunlin knew trouble was brewing but insisted on holding the event anyway, making him the most suspicious person in the room. He looked at the crowd and realized that none of these banquet guests were ordinary citizens. This whole situation had escalated significantly from a simple bodyguard assignment into a major conspiracy. The monster might be gone, he thought, but the danger hadn't lifted at all. He wondered why anyone would specifically target so many high-profile individuals in a single, chaotic attack. He ordered everyone to evacuate immediately, but the guests were already in full scramble mode. Their expensive outfits looked absolutely ridiculous as they ran through the wreckage of the ballroom. The survivors stumbled through the emergency exit, using lighters to navigate in the dark. Chunlin, attempting to return to his friendly host persona, asked Jing if he recognized the creature. Jing simply gave a cold stare, stating he was just a bodyguard responsible for ensuring safety. He realized the host was testing him, trying to figure out exactly how much he knew about the creature and the attack. The close-up showed Jing's eyes narrowed and glowing with intense focus. He understood that the currents were much deeper than he had originally imagined, making this job much more complicated than advertised. While the panicked hotel guests desperately called their families, swearing never to return, Jing relaxed on a sofa, reading the system notifications that flooded in after surviving the life-or-death battle. A massive wall of text appeared, showering Jing with experience points for everything from fitness and health cultivation to precision combat. They even bagged over 1,200 visualization experience for pulling off that true dragon technique. Jing was stunned by the 4-figure experience gains, realizing he was basically speedrunning his stats right now. His fitness hit level 7, health cultivation hit level 5, and his running and combat stats had also leveled up significantly. He discovered that the level up process had magically mended every single one of his injuries. Forget health potions. The system was basically a full health reset button for any serious battle. Feeling completely refreshed and ready for action, he stood up. A new system prompt appeared, asking if he wanted to proceed with a specialization for internal energy control since he had met the conditions. He wondered if this new specialization was directly linked to the hidden dragon style move he had just comprehended. It seemed like understanding the sealed cloud tail had unlocked an entirely new path for his power. Jing didn't hesitate for a second, slamming the YES button on the holographic screen. Upgraded internal energy control was clearly going to beat the generic version he'd started with. A golden notification confirmed his specialization was complete, converting his internal energy control into Hidden Dragon Force LB4. He immediately felt the change as a green aura pulsed around him. He described the feeling as lubricating rusty parts, showing his energy flow was perfectly smooth. He stood there surrounded by a visualization of turning gears, resembling a human perpetual motion machine. Clenching his fist, Jing realized this was a rare opportunity to see exactly how far he could push himself. He looked focused as he prepared to test out his new Hidden Dragon Force. Deciding to strike while the iron was hot, he began practicing his shaking armor skill again. In the background, hotel security was still cleaning up, and a guy in a suit frantically pointed out where the injured guests were located. The paramedic asked for the location of the wounded, and the suited man directed them toward the 17th floor banquet hall. It looked like the cleanup from that bug monster attack would continue through the night. The purple-haired individual from earlier was shown sweating profusely, clearly traumatized by what he had witnessed. He watched in complete shock as a massive explosion of golden light suddenly filled the hall. Jing was back in his meditative state, manifesting a gargantuan golden dragon aura that towered over the entire room. He wasn't simply training anymore, he was becoming a genuine force of nature. The night shop showed the Hidden Dragon Dojo sign glowing under the moonlight. Inside, Jing was thanking a senior sister for personally applying medicinal ointment to his back. While rubbing in the ointment, the senior sister complained about his terrible luck. She couldn't believe a standard security job had escalated into a full-scale monster-slaying mission on his very first day. Jing turned to face his master, who was resting nearby in a wheelchair. He hoped the old man's extensive experience could explain the true origin of that terrifying insectoid creature. The master's expression turned serious, admitting he didn't know the precise origin. However, he was positive the monster was connected to the boundary rifts, which was basically the universal sign for impending doom. A visualization of the boundary rifts appeared, showing massive cracks in the earth that formed when the gods perish. Jing wondered exactly what kind of nightmare fuel was hiding within those geological fissures. The master told him to calm down and just be grateful he survived. He expressed genuine pride, noting that Jing had managed to turn a bad situation into a win by mastering a new hidden dragon killing move during the battle. Jing claimed this move was deeper than a simple technique, feeling like he finally understood the hidden dragon style's true meaning. The master, completely taken aback, was left speechless, experiencing a serious wait. What just happened? Moment. The master and senior sister gaped at him as if he just sprouted an extra limb, completely baffled that anyone could master such a sophisticated style so fast. This level of rapid comprehension was practically mythical. The master quickly lunged forward, grabbing Jing's forearm to perform a physical examination of his internal condition. He specifically wanted to find this imaginary dragon that Jing claimed to have somehow fostered inside himself. Suddenly, a huge tremor shook the room as a burst of golden light erupted between them. The master found himself physically repelled by the overwhelming force of Shui Jing's suddenly unleashed internal power. Tina's sister was completely bewildered, wondering what bizarre riddle they were discussing. The master, however, confirmed the strange claim, announcing loudly that Shui Jing had, in fact, cultivated a dragon within his own body. The master revealed the secret, explaining that to eventually conceal a powerful, heaven-defying dragon, one must first nurture a juvenile version within the core. He sensed his junior disciple had already attained a level where his internal energy flowed like the smoothest silk. He clarified that this dragon was far more than mere imagination, possessing a spirituality all its own. From this moment forward, Shui Jing's path in martial arts would operate on a dramatically different plane from every other ordinary practitioner. The diagram appeared, contrasting regular martial arts with a hidden dragon style. While other people just performed push-ups and sit-ups, the method focused on hatching a mystical dragon egg to unlock the genuine potential of the human body. The master adopted a serious expression, informing Shui Jing that he now possessed the vital key to breaking all boundaries. Shui Jing was hanging on every word, eager to discover what kind of incredible new ability he would be receiving next. Shui Jing asked directly what breaking limitations actually entailed. He was constantly searching for a method to elevate his capabilities, and this sounded like the perfect fast track. The master explained the mechanics, stating that once the 5 major disciplines of skin, flesh, tendons, bones, and blood reach perfection, the human physique reaches its natural ceiling. To progress further, one must elevate the life essence and transition beyond normal humanity. He clarified that fundamentally altering one's body at the basic level allows for a greater transformation. The core essence of your life itself shifts, and you officially step into a domain of power where you are no longer truly human. Individuals who manage this successfully are often referred to as eternal immortals or living Buddhas. They can easily preserve their maximum physical state for at least 150 years, which basically amounts to an ultimate cheat code for a martial artist. Shui Jing glanced at the master's legs, finally realizing that his current injury was likely the result of a failed attempt at this very process. The master immediately reassured him, claiming that the chance of failure for a talent like Shui Jing was practically non-existent. Shui Jing thanked him, then posed a potentially uncomfortable question. He recalled hearing that the master was once a supreme powerhouse who had completed this very transformation, so he was curious why the master continued to age like an ordinary human. The air in the room grew completely silent as the master sat in his wheelchair. It was a loaded question, clearly touching upon some painful and dark events from his personal history. The master's eyes began to glow a fiery red as he disclosed the terrible truth. The dragon he had painstakingly nurtured was assassinated by someone, and that loss had completely drained him of his abilities, leaving him in his present condition. Shui Jing and the senior sister were astonished as the master began describing his past life. He confessed that when he lived in the North City district, he was incredibly arrogant and possessed absolutely no humility. Flashback showed the younger master standing smugly over a pile of vanquished foes. He admitted he had wasted his time irritating influential figures because he was completely blinded by his own exceptional talent. When his enemies proved unable to defeat him in a fair fight, they instead attacked his family, Mengbishin's wife and daughter. The master was completely consumed by fury, thinking only of vengeance, no matter the price. Innumerable individuals attempted to intervene, yet he felt no fear. He ruthlessly eliminated every single person who challenged him. The master was depicted as a rapid blur of violence, his actions leaving behind a trail of crimson and shattered opponents. He confessed that for a significant period, he existed under the false belief that he was completely invincible. He genuinely thought that as long as he possessed his tremendous power, nothing in the world could possibly harm him. But before long, karma finally caught up to him. The young master was shown covered in blood, appearing absolutely defeated after encountering a foe who was finally his equal. A formidable expert broke both of his legs and eradicated the true dragon in his heart. His spirit was shattered, and while he was defenseless, many people he had once belittled returned to take advantage of his inability to retaliate. He explained that they retreated to establish a hidden dragon dojo, specifically to keep Kinja safe and escape the remaining enemies. It was a rather depressing conclusion to his once legendary tale. Shui Jing stared directly at him, his face completely expressionless as he inquired, "Master, do you really not want revenge?" He wasn't the kind of person to simply forget a grudge of that magnitude. The master acknowledged he had considered it, but his adversaries were all high-ranking figures from the North City district. He stressed that a single one of them would be far too much for the group to manage at the current time. He instructed Shui Jing to forget about those past events and concentrate on his personal development. He hinted that if Shui Jing ever succeeded in reaching the inner ring, they might actually stand a chance of revisiting this topic. Darkness descended upon the murky, industrial thoroughfares of the city. The moon emerged, casting an eerie glow over the entire outer ring, creating a gloomy and oppressive atmosphere. Shui Jing worked home, examining a new notification on his phone. It appeared he had just received a message from his bank concerning a recent deposit, a cool 80,000. Shui Jing was genuinely impressed by the hotel's prompt payment system. That amount was a pretty sweet deal for just one night's worth of monster-slaying work. Entering his apartment, groceries in hand, he cheerfully announced Wayner's return. He was probably planning to whip up something special to commemorate the successful mission. The apartment, however, remained completely silent. Puzzled by her lack of greeting, he chuckled to himself, figuring she surely wasn't taking yet another lawn bath. Shui Jing activated his visualization skill, his irises blazing with brilliant blue light. He utilized his genius-level perception to thoroughly scan the entire space for any trace of his feline housemate. Several glowing feline afterimages zipped across the room. While it looked like playful mischief at first glance, he couldn't shake the feeling that the movement patterns were significantly abnormal. Suddenly, a path of faint light leading straight to the window caught his eye. He muttered under his breath, wondering if she had gone outside, his worry for her safety immediately skyrocketing. Shui Jing leaned far out the window, staring intently into the dark, rain-slicked alleyways below. He frantically scanned the gloom, hoping for any glimpse of his black feline friend. In the distance, he spotted several large, looming silhouettes surrounding a small cat on a dark street. It appeared to be an obvious trap, and Wayner was cornered right in the center of the confrontation. Surgeon's face went completely white as the severity of the situation dawned on him. He cried out that Wainer was in peril, already bracing himself to jump down and begin another battle. Wainer was perched on a brick wall in the middle of a dark alley, looking quite irritated. She was shouting at figures outside the frame, demanding to know why they returned after previously fleeing from her. A figure in a black mask and dark clothing advanced, accompanied by a terrifying spectral image of a vast dragon. He declared that his grace had responded to their summons, attempting to project an authority far beyond his actual stature. The shot tightened on Wainer, revealing her utter astonishment. The masked individual referred to her as the leader and commended her exceptional abilities, which was certainly not the greeting she anticipated. The masked man performed a bow, informing her that she was destined for divine blessing. He spoke of reconstructing the primary sect utilizing her strength, yet the entire atmosphere felt much more like a cult initiation than a beneficial invitation. Suddenly, Surgeon ended the shot, resting a casual hand on the masked man's shoulder. With a cool, composed expression, he questioned whether the man could perceive Wainer's clear reluctance to accompany him. The masked man stared in disbelief at the human presence, loudly identifying Zujing. Wainer expressed similar surprise, as Zujing calmly remarked that these individuals were apparently her disciples. The masked man's demeanor shifted instantly, becoming frigid and menacing. You warned Wainer that if Candor Corporation learned about this young man, the consequences would turn messy for everyone involved. Wainer's eyes widened in sheer terror as he absorbed the mention of the Candor Corporation. Zujing simply remained in place, unwilling to ignore or downplay the obvious intimidation tactic. The masked individual persisted, asserting that remaining at Zujing's residence would inevitably jeopardize him as well. He was clearly trying to coerce her into leaving by weaponizing our protagonist's safety. He raised his hands in a gesture of false sincerity, attempting to appear entirely reasonable. He finished his sentence with a chilling but, allowing the ominous consequences to hang unspoken in the atmosphere. The camera focused closely on Wainer, whose expression showed extreme internal conflict. She was genuinely beginning to fear that her mere presence would place a significant target on Zujing's back. Zujing, however, stood completely firm in his resolve. He directly asked Wainer if she genuinely wished to abandon him, having noted that Candor Security was far from your typical shopping center security detail. A brief explanation of the world's history explains the case that followed the death of the gods. Since the official authorities failed to maintain order, they outsourced law enforcement duties to private security corporations. Candor Security started as one of those entities, but it expanded far too rapidly and transformed into a corporate behemoth. Today, they are essentially a completely rogue army available for hire. The accompanying visuals showcase Candor's armed forces in action. They resemble a sophisticated private military, having evolved from law enforcers into the law itself, with a reputation for being anything but pleasant. Zujing recognized that Wainer's existence as a cat had served as an ideal cover story. However, the unexpected arrival of her former followers had significantly amplified the risk of her true identity being revealed. Despite the inherent danger, Zujing remained absolutely unflappable. He declared that even if Candor Security arrived looking for her, he would not be intimidated, making the firm decision that she was staying put. The masked man was rendered utterly speechless by Zujing's unwavering stance. Wainer simply stared at him, quietly breathing his name in complete astonishment. The masked man let out a dismissive scoff, questioning if Zujing truly believed he possessed the strength to safeguard the leader. He attempted to intimidate, but Zujing simply appeared completely unfazed by the dramatic monologue. He cautioned Zujing that he couldn't possibly comprehend the true horror of Candor Security. He insisted a single squad would suffice to eliminate him entirely, yet Zujing just lit a cigarette with an utterly unimpressed expression. Wainer finally reached her breaking point and completely snapped. She screamed that if her so-called followers had never appeared, this entire fiasco wouldn't be occurring, declaring she was finished being the pawn. She totally goes off on them, making it clear she never asked to be the Dragon Sex leader, which frankly sounds like a terrible job title. She accuses them of only following her for their own gain and tells everyone to get lost. The faithful followers were left completely speechless, realizing the leader was dead serious about severing ties. Zujing, meanwhile, watched the entire spectacle unfold with a smug little smile on his face. Wainer turns back to Zujing and tells him that no matter what chaos occurs, she knows he'll have her back. It was a sweet exchange, highlighting her absolute trust in his protective abilities. Zujing simply gives her a small smile and a single word, yeah, carrying all the weight and conviction of a man prepared to fight an entire corporation to save his cat. The masked man just grunts in defeat and turns to exit, understanding that he wouldn't win this particular verbal battle. He skulks away into the dark alley with his metaphorical tail between his legs. A young girl dressed in a gothic leader outfit watches them leave from the shadows. She appears curious, but hasn't made a move yet, suggesting a potential new player has entered the game. Elsewhere, a high-tech lab that looks suspiciously like a supervillain's lair is discussing how a 17-year-old managed to defeat the top agent. Number 1. The lab is filled with glowing equipment and bubbling vats. The person speaking insists that even at 17, their operative should have easily handled a mere high school student. A man in a black tank top defensively counters that the senior brother had only started martial arts just before turning 17, desperately trying to downplay Zujing's incredible natural talent. The boss, John from behind looking out over his laboratory, ignores these feeble excuses. He is already plotting his next move to deal with the genius who appeared in King Sheng. He demands an update on subject number 9, having already dismissed the failure of the previous test subject. He is focused entirely on the upcoming phase of his project. The assistant reports that number 9 devoured number 7 last night. Apparently, the growth rate is dangerously fast, which is exactly the kind of good news a truly mad scientist loves to hear. The boss is pleased, deciding number 9 is the perfect, most cost-effective specimen. He orders all future production to be modeled after this new, improved creature. He specifically mentions a high schooler in the news, Zujing, identifying him as a student from King Shanghai. He plans to use this prodigy to boost his own research. He develops a sinister expression, playing for number 9 to make a very public debut. It seems Zujing's school is about to become an unwilling testing ground for a very dangerous experiment. The assistant firmly replies, yes, sir, demonstrating complete devotion to his boss's twisted goals. This organization will clearly be a significant challenge for our protagonist. The scene changes to a bright, sunny day at the dojo, a stark contrast to the dark and gloomy laboratory. The sun illuminates the high-rise building surrounding the inner ring. Zhu Jing is back in his training grind, thinking to himself that if he keeps improving, he will eventually be able to solve every problem in existence with just one punch. That's certainly an ambitious life goal. He powers up, creating a massive, shimmering golden ore from his Dragon Kai. The system pops up a notification for 3,031 fitness experience points gained from practicing the shaking arm skill. He is still leveling up at a ridiculous pace. The notifications keep rolling in, showing improvements to both his physical fitness and his latent dragon power. He even activated visualization, which apparently supercharges his training effectiveness. Zhu Jing considers his new shaking starfire move, a technique designed to bypass defenses by delivering a direct internal force strike. He is determined to master it, no matter how grueling the exercises become. His green-haired senior brother bursts in, looking absolutely thrilled. He yells that Zhu Jing has suddenly struck it rich and looks ready to start celebrating right away. Zhu Jing, looking confused, asks what he's talking about. His brother reminds him of the hotel incident where he saved those wealthy kids, noting that those second-generation heirs actually knew how to show gratitude properly. The senior brother shows him a bank transfer on his cell phone. Donations have poured into the Hidden Dragon Dojo under Zhu Jing's name, totaling a staggering 22 million. Zhu Jing is stunned, realizing that rich kids might actually have souls after all. In a funny mental image, he pictures himself literally swimming in money while his brother tells him to stop acting like a penniless ascetic. The senior brother then hands him a tablet containing a new training plan put together by the master. Now that Zhu Jing has wealth, his training regimen is about to become significantly more expensive. Zhu Jing glances at the first few items, thinking that 22 million should be more than enough, basically a piece of cake. He clearly has no idea how quickly a high-level martial artist can burn through a fortune. Then his brother reveals the initial price. One condensed cat heart nourishing pill per week costs 800,000. Zhu Jing's confident smile instantly begins to fade. Quickly gets worse. 2 medicinal steam sauna baths per week will set him back 23 million. His newly acquired fortune is already starting to feel nervous. The tendon opening massage every 2 weeks costs 8 million, and a monthly trip to a high-pressure stone chamber adds another 2 million to the bill. Zhu Jing looks like he's about to faint from the sticker shock. The senior brother simply laughs, informing him that his 22 million yuan is already gone, and he might as well kiss it goodbye. He then shares the ancient wisdom that scholars struggle financially, but martial artists are somehow even more destitute. He passes over a smartphone, telling Zhu Jing he really needs to see the latest online drama. Apparently, our guy is transformed into the city's newest, most popular local sensation overnight. The news piece displays a slightly blurry photo of him at the hotel, labeling him the heroic savior of King Sheng. Someone must have leaked the details of him slaying the monster, because now his face is inescapable. Suddenly, his phone begins vibrating like a startled insect trapped under glass. He receives an incoming call from an unidentified number, wondering what crazy individual is trying to reach him at this ungodly hour. He stares at the screen, which simply displays unknown caller. He has absolutely no clue who it might be, but he is certainly feeling the pressure of his very recent and very unwanted notoriety. He hesitantly accepts the call, answering with a wary greeting. The expression on his face suggests he anticipates a relentless reporter or an overly enthusiastic fan on the other end, but the voice on the line says something so shocking that his eyes practically pop out of his skull. He looks as though he's just seen a ghost, or perhaps received the invoice for a particularly expensive herbal bath. Zhu Jing is currently being verbally annihilated over the phone. His diminutive teacher is screaming at him for skipping school to do side work, clearly not buying any of his vague justifications. Zhu Jing tries to play off the situation, attempting to appear handsome and aloof while mumbling about unexpected home issues. The teacher refuses to let him off the hook, reminding him that the upcoming school sports competition is just around the corner. The teacher then proceeds to register him for an entire Olympic roster, signing him up for every event from the 100-meter dash to the 2-kilometer run. Zhu Jing looks utterly traumatized, realizing he has been volunteered to secure athletic glory for the class. 6th senior sister Zhu Zainang makes her entrance, looking exquisite in a dark traditional kippah. Zhu Jing spots his escape route and immediately disconnects from his teacher, claiming a sudden emergency has arisen. He remains standing there with a look of intense focus, even though his teacher is likely still yelling into the silent phone line. Zainang watches him with a serious expression, clearly having a very important matter to discuss. Zainang jumps straight to the chase, telling her junior brother there is a specific job opportunity just for him. It appears his newfound fame is already attracting high-profile clients from the elite circles. Zhu Jing's ears perk up immediately, curious about the type of task that requires his specific expertise. He starts calculating the potential profit margin for such a customized assignment. Zainang explains that another martial arts practitioner read the news coverage and wants to challenge him to a match to test his skills. The truly incredible part is the staggering offer of $500,000 for just one duel. Zhu Jing's facial expression goes completely blank as he tries to process that enormous sum of money. 500,000 just to act as a punching bag. His eyes are practically transforming into currency icons. We proceed to the North City District, located within the Inner Ring, which represents the pinnacle of wealth. This is the exclusive residence of the northern nobility, and the architecture alone screams I'm richer than you. Zhu Jing sits in a luxury vehicle, gazing out at the city with a thoughtful expression. In this particular world, just a few minutes of work in the Inner Ring can earn what an Outer Ring family struggles to make in a full year. The car pulls up to a set of massive gates, and Zhu Jing is still reeling from the shock of the paycheck. He mentally labels the situation insane, realizing he's about to step into an entirely different world. He exits the car, looking eager to explore how the other half lives. He isn't used to this level of service, but for $500,000, he will perform as professionally as a seasoned butler. Zhu Jing stands before a mansion that is literally equivalent in size to half a high school campus. He understands that rich people's spending habits operate on a scale he couldn't possibly have imagined back in his tiny apartment. His glowing red eyes spot two figures waiting for him near the entrance. It seems he isn't the only one who showed up for this particular meeting. Wait a minute, those are the exact two siblings from the formal banquet. Du Jing is completely caught off guard, wondering what on earth they are doing at the residence that placed this order. He walks right up to them, asking bluntly if they were the ones who issued the commission. They look slightly uncomfortable, clearly embarrassed to have been caught in the middle of this setup. The brother with pink hair, Tae Yaokwon, quickly clarifies the situation. He explains that they didn't do it, but someone else is using them as go-betweens to arrange this meeting with Du Jing. Du Jing looks suspicious, but Yi Changlin pleads with him not to get angry. He explains that his father specifically commanded him to set this up, and in finally, you never dare to refuse the elder. Du Jing asks if his father is the one who wants a sparring match, but Yi clarifies it's an even more mysterious character. He is clearly struggling to explain the complicated situation as they work across the grounds. The three of them head into the gardens, where he mentions that this individual belongs to a formal organization. However, he admits that even he doesn't know precisely which specific branch they represent. Du Jing listens closely as they approach the designated meeting spot. An official organization. He thinks, well, this is starting to sound significantly more complex than a quick cash sparring session. He adds that his father was repeatedly told to satisfy this person's requirements without question. That level of intense pressure typically indicates the visitor possesses serious governmental or corporate authority. As they enter the dining quarters, a single glass of ruby red wine sits waiting on the table. Du Jing suspects this mysterious guest might be a high-ranking official from Kandor Security looking for revenge. He delivers one final warning, advising him not to let his defenses down. Apparently, the individual Du Jing is about to meet could be significantly more powerful than anyone he has ever encountered. The doors open onto a breathtaking garden terrace offering a view of the nearby mountains. The gigantic figure is perfectly silhouetted against the bright sunshine, relaxing in a casual lounge chair. This guy is built like a brick outhouse, just casually enjoying the warmth while reading a summer relaxation guide magazine in full combat boots. He turns slowly and greets Du Jing with a simple, "You've arrived." The man has a small leaf dangling from his mouth and a rough, scarred face. He introduces himself with a cheeky grin, telling Du Jing to simply refer to him as Mountain Baboon. Du Jing offers a polite acknowledgement, but his gaze is fixed on the men's hands. He notices a bullet scar at the base of his thumb, a clear sign that this person has seen some serious action in their career. Du Jing spots another set of markings on the man's shoulder, likely caused by heavy equipment or body armor. He realizes these are not the injuries of an average person. This individual is undeniably a battle-hardened veteran. Mountain Baboon stands up, resembling a literal, moving boulder of muscle. He declares there's no need to waste precious time with polite conversation, stating that the best way for two guys like them to bond is through a classic, high-intensity fight. Without warning, the enormous man lunges forward with a deafening boom as he pushes off the ground. He moves incredibly fast, looking as if he intends to destroy the entire garden area. Du Jing prepares himself, his eyes glowing intensely as he readies for the confrontation. If this guy truly represents Kandor Security, he's about to discover exactly why Du Jing is currently the hottest topic in the entire city. They connect with a massive explosion of force. Du Jing catches the giant's incoming fist with his own, generating a shockwave that travels through the cobblestones, shattering the pavement beneath them. Mountain Baboon grins maniacally, shouting my turn as he prepares to unleash his full capabilities. He's clearly having the absolute time of his life during this friendly little spar. Du Jing counters with a powerful burst of energy. His hand glows brightly as he pushes back against the giant, internally questioning how it's possible for someone to possess such incredible weight. Du Jing launches a sealed cloud-tail strike, sending a massive wave of golden kai directly into the big man's chest. The air around them vibrates intensely from the raw power of the attack. The impact sends Mountain Baboon sliding backward in a cloud of dust. Du Jing realizes that if he were to take a punch like that, his hand would be utterly destroyed. Yet the giant appears fine and immediately counterattacks. The two brothers observe from the sidelines, looking absolutely terrified. They whisper amongst themselves, wondering just how much more strength Brother Jing is actually keeping hidden. Mountain Baboon lands hard on a small hill, yet shows no signs of injury. Du Jing stands his ground, looking down at the crowd of wealthy second-generation spectators as if they belong to a different world entirely. The big guy hunches over momentarily, shaking off the aftershocks of the impact. The strike definitely did some damage, and he clearly felt the power of the hidden dragon style. Surprisingly, Mountain Baboon stands up and shouts that the punch felt amazing. He laughs uncontrollably, resembling a complete battle junkie who has finally discovered his perfect new plaything. Du Jing is slightly weirded out by this reaction as the big man yells at him to keep attacking. The entire garden is starting to resemble a disaster zone from their intense exchange. Mountain Baboon stands there with his arms spread wide, literally begging for more heads. Du Jing's inner voice thinks this whole situation is bizarre, completely confused by the man's strange enthusiasm for getting hurt. Du Jing is genuinely perplexed. The sealed cloud-tail strike can easily tear apart massive cockroach monsters, but it had almost no effect on this individual. He then spots a faintly glowing purple pattern on the man's neck. He recognizes the familiar feeling of an altered body type. This man is technologically enhanced. He glares at him, finally understanding why his martial arts techniques are not inflicting the expected level of damage. Mountain Baboon expresses surprise, noting that an outer ring kid actually possesses some knowledge of technological upgrades. He admits to having military-grade altered implants beneath his skin. He clarifies that he possesses a layer of B1 protective skin, an entry-level implant specifically designed to absorb the powerful shock from a martial artist's internal energy attacks. The big guy gives a swug grin, asking if Du Jing is now tempted to get some of these enhancements for himself. He clearly believes that technology offers the superior path to becoming strong. Du Jing simply offers a cold no thanks, completely uninterested in the sales pitch. He mentions that Mountain Baboon is exactly like the last opponent he fought, refusing to acknowledge the power of genuine martial arts strength. Mountain Baboon becomes somewhat irritated, rubbing his head and telling the young man to realize that times have changed. He is determined to prove that his advanced technology is superior to any ancient style. He leaps high into the air, looking like a falling meteor as he descends rapidly towards Du Jing. He shouts about delivering a wake-up call as he prepares a massive diving attack. Mountain Baboon claps his hands together with a truly thunderous sound. The air fills with visible shockwaves as he unleashes his specialized technique. Sandwiched in the center, Du Jing covers his ears tightly, as acoustic ripples surge through his physical form. overwhelming his internal protective barriers. Primate friend brags that his modified hands create sonic waves with a simple clap, claiming evasion is futile because the noise saturates the entire area. He warns the young fighter that proximity increases the volume of torture, standing with the arrogance of someone who believes the trophy is already in his bag. The behemoth lunges forward to conclude the match, assuming his target is entirely broken, aiming for a massive impact to finish the practice battle quickly. Suddenly, the boy's palm radiates intense ivory light as he snatches the giant's limb, revealing he was simply anticipating the ideal gap for a counter-strike. He lands a heavy gut blow with his irises glowing yellow, asserting to the big man that he has already won this encounter, making a truly epic comeback. Choosing violence, he hammers his fist into the baboon's solar plexus, figuring that since the outer layer is armored, he should simply target the inner organs directly. He explains the tactic with a chill in his gaze, noting he isn't merely hitting him, but vibrating his inner energy right through that tough hide. The collision looks incredible, with a huge burst of yellow brilliance igniting at the source, leaving the big guy stunned as the vibrations destroy him from within. Withdrawing his hand, the boy watches as the giant goes floppy and slams his face into the dirt, remarking that physical power matters little compared to targeting. Glancing at his fingers, he informs the sleeping fellow that a minor tap suffices when one uses internal focus. Truly a believer in doing more with less effort. The furry giant is totally unconscious, revealing a close look at mechanical bits grafted to his back, while a soft tone indicates a transceiver just went silent. Noticing the hardware, he realizes it isn't just armor, wondering if he found a personal radio and concluding that these official units are basically low-budget cyborgs. Standing tall, he inspects his wrist with annoyance, shouting at the invisible listener to pick up the pace because his time is incredibly valuable. The two nearby siblings remain frozen in the background, likely confused as to what bizarre shadow government recruitment event they have accidentally stumbled upon. Proning back to life, the baboon tells his rival that he thinks way too much, proving to be a surprisingly good sport about losing the fight so badly. The winner offers only a blank and bored expression, clearly lacking any interest in mysterious riddles or long talks about secret society business. Pushing himself into a sitting position, the big guy rubs his gut and admits that small tap was painful, asking how the kid bypassed his sound defenses. He clarifies that since the frequency targets the nervous system, he merely utilized superior brute kinetic force to drown it out, effectively fighting flame with an inferno. Genuinely impressed, the mountain-sized man realizes his opponent was actually holding back his true strength, pinning the kid as far more talented than he appears. He commands the brothers to leave and patrol elsewhere, leaving them slightly annoyed, though nobody wants to argue with a man who was just laid out. Left alone, the giant admits his affiliation with a group and invites the youth over, but he is flatly rejected because nobody likes clandestine gatherings. The whole fighting to recruit game feels very lame to him, so he tells the big fellow that his desire to sign up is absolutely zero. The tiny cartoon reveals his real fantasy, lounging on a beach chair with piles of cash and cold drinks, since comfort is far better than secret missions. Now in a panic, the agent begs him to reconsider the offer, tempting to claim there are no drawbacks to the position, but nobody's buying it. He starts flexing to demonstrate the free military skin upgrades, while the cartoon boy notes that he literal just broke through that exact brand of flesh. Using the talent limit logic, he puts a hand on the teenager's shoulder and claims human potential peaks, making machine parts the only logical way forward. Still saying no, the young master remarks that exploding synthetic people with a natural body is much more amusing, staying loyal to the old school punch ways. Without warning, a loud voice from the sky tells them to zip it, making the baboon look panicked as he tells his buddy that the boss has arrived. High above them, a figure with metallic hair is plunging straight down to the ground, proving that this is certainly no ordinary afternoon visit. It's the White Crow captain, arriving with a flourish of her void edge skill, looking like a total show-off. She created a perfect, dramatic silhouette against the sun, as if she were posing for an action figure cover. She landed with a deafening crash, kicking up a colossal cloud of dust, making it abundantly clear that subtlety was not part of her personal brand. The captain of White Crow Squad 838 stood up and greeted Zhu Jing. Mountain baboon, still visibly shaking from the battle, was casually introduced as part of her team, even though he strongly resembled a very frightened gorilla. In a sudden, adorable chibai shut, Zhu Jing looked skeptical, reminding the captain that she introduced him to Wu Yaking in the first place. He asked why she was trying to poach him now, essentially asking for a loyalty refund. Her expression turned serious as she admitted the poaching orders came from high command, but explained she had a different, more pressing mission she needed his help with first. She pulled up a holographic projection of a strange, glowing artifact, inquiring if it looked like the creature he had killed just a few days earlier. Zhu Jing recognized the unusual energy signature and asked if it was some kind of boundary rift creature. Her response of not exactly sent a shiver down his spine, as that phrase rarely meant anything good in this line of work. She explained that the core served as the creature's power source, essentially granting it infinite respawns unless the core itself was removed from its body. Zhu Jing's thoughts flashed back to his chaotic battle with the cockroach monster, realizing he only secured the victory by sheer dumb luck after accidentally knocking the core organ loose during the fight. The not exactly part still bothered him. If it possessed a core and behaved like a monster, why wasn't it a standard rift creature? He knew there had to be a catch in the fine print. The captain then brought up another hologram, displaying a massive, pulsating pink entity called the Celestial Broodmother, boasting an astonishing maximum danger rating of 6.2. Zhu Jing stared blankly, completely lost on what a 6.2 danger rating even meant. The captain looked at him with a look of profound disappointment, wondering if dojos in the outer ring actually toward anything useful at all. She ordered Gorilla to transmit the combat logs from the previous skirmish. Mountain Baboon grumbled under his breath that he was a baboon, not a gorilla, but he nonetheless obeyed the command immediately. Checking her device, she informed Zhu Jing that his current evaluated danger level was somewhere between 2.9 and 3.1, though he was still completely clueless about what those numbers signified. She broke down the scale for him, a normal adult male rated at 1.1, making his 2.9 rating equivalent to roughly 280 average guys. The Broodmother at 6.2, by comparison, was equivalent to 65,000 of him. Zhu Jing finally grasped the magnitude of the predicament. She clarified that an unawakened Brumada primarily acted as a breeding organism, but insisted that even a breeding organism could cause significant damage. She presented a diagram illustrating the nightmare scenario. The Brumada absorbs genetic information from anything it eats and uses it to spawn mixed breed creatures, like the unsettling cat bug hybrid shown as an example. Apparently, a smuggling crew captured one of these things from Rotten Flesh Lake about a month prior and transported it into the civilized world. The situation was rapidly getting darker and more complex. The White Crow squad had been chasing them relentlessly, following the trail all the way from the remote Rotten Flesh Lake to the crowded South City district in Qinsheng. However, they had eventually lost the trail completely. Now, thanks to Zhu Jing's accidental discovery, they finally had a lead once more. Zhu Jing finally connected the dots, realizing that the giant cockroach monster he had eliminated was actually one of the creatures spawned directly by the celestial Brumada. He repeated the words cockroach man to himself, focusing hard on the anatomy of the creature he had forward, specifically on its humanoid characteristics. His eye widened in pure, visceral horror as he reached a sickening conclusion. The realization hit him harder than any physical strike from Mountain Baboon. He looked absolutely nauseated, understanding that the monster he had fought was a grotesque combination of a cockroach and a human being. The mission had officially transitioned from a monster hunt to a total horror story. The captain explained that the evolving cockroach men were becoming significantly stronger, increasing the danger level. She warned Zhu Jing that the person controlling the Brumada had certainly marked him as a target, as he kept ruining all of their plans. Pointing a finger directly at him, she asked if he was ready to join the White Crow task force, framing the invitation as his only viable option for staying protected. However, Zhu Jing wasn't the type to be convinced by a simple safety-first argument. Zhu Jing gave her a skeptical look, questioning if her real motive was truly just to protect him. He knew better than to believe in a free lunch, especially when dealing with an official government squad. The captain delivered her full recruitment pitch, standing tall in front of the White Crow emblem. She boasted that they possessed the most professional training system in all of Juxier, promising to help him reach his full potential with 0 blind spots. Zhu Jing considered the offer for a moment, admitting that what she said sounded somewhat nice, but then glanced at his own holographic system screen, realizing his supreme training program was already far superior to anything the government could possibly provide. He couldn't help but crack a small smirk, realizing he effectively held the ultimate cheat code for success. He had everything required to become stronger entirely on his own terms, without needing official bureaucracy. He didn't waste much time thinking it over, flat out rejecting her offer with a casual sorry, I'm good. Signing away his freedom to a government entity wasn't exactly part of his business plan as a high-value freelancer. The captain let out a weary sigh, feigning understanding while clearly not used to hearing the word no. She maintained her composure, hiding the sting of rejection from a recruit who clearly didn't realize who was asking. She quickly pivoted to a compromise, offering him external membership in the White Crow task force, essentially making him a contractor. He'd only take jobs on a commission basis and receive payment per assignment, which sounded much closer to his personal brand of work-life balance. Zhu Jing looked genuinely intrigued by the proposal, wiping a bead of sweat from his forehead while considering the implications. He murmured that the offer seemed almost suspiciously generous, convinced there had to be a hidden trap waiting in the details. He cut to the chase with the most critical inquiry, asking if her organization possessed divine relics. Since his entire power-up system required absorbing essence from those specific artifacts, this was the ultimate non-negotiable factor in his decision. The captain confirmed this with a sly smile, revealing that the research division housed countless divine relics. She further mentioned that if he accumulated sufficient merit points, acquiring one for his personal use would be entirely within reach. Before she could even complete her sentence, Zhu Jing's eyes transformed into literal stars as he screamed, "Deal." It was quite obvious he could be easily persuaded by the promise of some high-quality, powerful loot. He transformed instantly from a firm refusal to the team's #1 fanboy, claiming he had supposedly dreamed of joining the White Crows for over a decade. The captain simply watched him with an expression that conveyed exactly what she thought of his sudden change of heart. He shook her hand with unbridled enthusiasm, expressing his eagerness to start working immediately. Mentally, he was already calculating exactly how many relics he would borrow to feed his ever-hungry power system. As Zhu Jing drove away, gazing out the window, the captain and Mountain Baboon observed his departure. The large, muscular man questioned whether it was truly necessary to invest so much effort into securing a single young recruit. Mountain Baboon argued that Zhu Jing was merely a martial arts prodigy, refined, certainly, but hardly unprecedented. He couldn't understand why the captain exhibited such extreme desperation to acquire him. The captain adopted a summer expression, revealing she had recently met with MS. Yaking. She explained she had been genuinely stunned by the extraordinary level of significance Wu assigned to Zhu Jing. We saw a vision of Wu Yaking, the blonde boss of the library. She was a natural blessed one who spent her days desperately searching for a method to divest herself of her inherent divine identity. The captain recalled Yaking strolling through the library stacks and muttering that only gods truly possess the power to combat other gods. It became obvious that Wu possessed vital information regarding Zhu Jing's potential that others were completely unaware of. The close-up showed Wu Yaking's contemplative expression as she pondered deeply. Aside from the collection of divine relics, it appeared that Zhu Jing was the one and only thing in the entire world that held her genuine concern. The captain observed the vehicle vanishing into the distance, concluding there had to be something extraordinary about him that had not yet been revealed. She was determined to uncover exactly what made him such a uniquely valuable asset. Adjusting her tactical glove, she informed Mountain Baboon that even without knowing the specifics of his uniqueness, they needed to secure him immediately. He was simply too high value of an asset to risk allowing him to roam freely. Zhu Jing sat in the back of the car, observing the bright city lights. He realized that even the wealthiest neighborhoods of Qinsheng couldn't possibly compare to the absolute extravagance found in the opulent North City district. His phone buzzed with an incoming text from Wu Yaking, telling him to visit the library when convenient. He didn't keep the bus waiting, immediately pulling up his keyboard to start typing a response. He quickly sent back a simple bit before preparing to return to his base of operations. He was likely hoping she had acquired a brand new divine relic specifically for him to research. He instructed the driver to take him directly to the Qinsheng library. They had crucial questions that only Yaking, the library boss, possessed the knowledge to answer. They arrived at the library just as the sun began to set, bathing the building in a soft golden light. They immediately spotted Wu Yaking sitting by herself at the enormous research table. She looked up from her reading, her expression cool and composed, and simply commanded him to sit down. She consistently exuded that confident, high-class atmosphere, making her natural authority quite intimidating. Zhu was shown desperately gulping down a glass of water, appearing completely dehydrated. He looked up at her and asked if they might have something slightly more exciting than boring plain water available to drink. He set the glass down with a loud thud, looking completely underwhelmed by the beverage. He grumbled about her apparent affection for that specific sweet water kettle relic, noting how she seemed determined to use it for absolutely everything. Yaking responded with a smug little smile, asking if he truly disliked tea brewed with water sourced from his very own favored divine relic. Zhu was clearly enjoying teasing him about his obsession. Zhu chose to pull out a can of cola instead, enjoying the carbonated fizz of a truly normal beverage. Yaking then casually mentioned that the White Crows had already contacted him, which genuinely took him by surprise. Taking a sip of his soda, he confirmed that they had indeed extended an invitation for him to join, but he had declined the offer. Yaking visibly relaxed and told him that he had definitely made the correct choice. He asked why she seemed so vehemently opposed to the notion, and she adopted a very serious expression. She explained that crows were typically viewed as ominous harbingers of death and impending disaster in many cultures. An illustration depicted the contrast between typical crows and the much rarer white variety. While white crows symbolize rebirth and blessing, she disclosed that the squad chose the name for a far more practical and sinister purpose. She reveals the shocking truth, explaining that since White Crow's founding 60 years ago, only 3 people have actually managed to retire without dying first. The name itself is less a title and more a desperate prayer for survival within a squad defined by an almost impossibly high mortality rate. Zhu stares down at his soda can, realizing his twin lives revival skill isn't a bonus perk here. It's practically required just to show up for work. He finally understands why she was so keen on keeping him far away from this place. He asks her to elaborate on exactly what this mysterious agency does. Yuking responds by sliding her phone across the table, revealing the ridiculously official and lengthy title, the Special Bureau for Abnormal Disaster Emergency Management. The phone screen displays a map of the city. She clarifies that this organization operates as an entirely independent system, completely separate from the 5 major agencies, which is why everyone simply refers to it as the 6th agency. She warns him that a White Crow member could practically go on a killing spree in Qingcheng, and absolutely nobody would have the authority to arrest them. It's an almost terrifying amount of power that comes with the job description. Zhu studies the data, wondering if the government isn't just slightly concerned about the 6th agency potentially spiraling completely out of control. He realizes he has somehow stumbled right into a complex high-stakes political situation. Yukin calms his nerves by explaining that the agency's upper council consists of 13 members who mostly reside in the Azure Court, acting as a crucial check and balance system. She clearly possesses deep knowledge of the Bureau's inner workings. The pyramid diagram illustrates that the 6th agency essentially functions as the top power in the entire country, sitting above all other organizations. Zhu is absolutely flabbergasted by the insane level of power he nearly signed away his life to. She informs him that's enough information for one day and tells him he's free to leave now. The real reason she summoned him was just to warn him away from the dangers of associating with the crows. Zhu looks slightly crestfallen, asking if there really aren't any actual missions or exciting relics available for viewing today. He was hoping to earn a few more valuable experience points. Yuking shoots him a completely bored look, suggesting he could always help tidy up the library if he has nothing better to do. He immediately makes up an excuse, claiming he just remembered a sudden, urgent task. He makes a truly frantic escape, leaving her behind with her reading materials. She lets out a tiny, amused hiss as she watches him flee, clearly entertained by his rapid departure. Suddenly, his phone starts vibrating with frantic intensity. He looks at the screen to see a call from his teacher, Professor Du. Realizing with sudden dread that he completely forgot the professor's earlier warning, he yells into the phone that he's on his way, completely freaking out over being late. Apparently, school assignments are the only thing in this entire world that can truly frighten him. The scene switches abruptly to a grim, dark alleyway located deep in the South Sea district. The atmosphere here is gloomy and deeply unsettling, a striking contrast to the opulent library he just escaped from. We see a man with long, silver hair sitting on some stairs, shrouded in deep shadows. This is a master, who is currently brooding over his domain with intense, dark thoughts. The purple-haired assistant, Fabbing, approaches to report that all test subjects have been successfully moved. He adds that those meddling white crowhounds have somehow managed to pinpoint their exact location. The master looks up with a chilling, sinister expression, truly astonished that those special forces were intelligent enough to sniff out their operation so rapidly. It's obvious he's got several major schemes already underway. Fabbing confirms he followed orders and transported subject number 9 to Qingxinghai. He mentions he anticipates receiving some promising updates from the school in the near future. The master clarifies that by using number 9 as a distraction, they will create the perfect opening to secretly relocate the massive celestial broodmother. That monstrous thing is far too enormous to move without attracting serious attention. As they work through a dimly lit industrial facility, Fabbing grumbles that Condor Security refuses to contribute even slightly, forcing them to do all the heavy-duty work themselves. The master scoffs dismissively, stating that large corporations never change. They only care about maximizing profits and avoid all risks, so he views this as the perfect opportunity for them to operate completely independently. Fabbing wonders if Condor will simply eliminate them once the mission is complete. The master flashes a chilling smirk, asking if Fabbing honestly believes his boss hasn't already created a comprehensive contingency plan for when the company inevitably backstabs them. Zhu completely dominates the racetrack, leaving all the other runners in the dust behind him. The crowd is going absolutely wild, with girls screaming out requests to have his babies. Up on the balcony, other students are cheering wildly for senior Zhu while waving frantically. The guy has essentially become a school idol, all without appearing to even make an effort. He crosses the finish line first, as expected, A rival athlete watches in utter disbelief, questioning if this guy possesses some sort of superhuman ability, or if he's simply a regular boy with an incredible secret. The close-up shot shows Yujing looking remarkably cool and completely unfazed. The narrator ponders how someone so seemingly ordinary could have possibly managed to defeat a powerful test subject. A mysterious figure wearing a janitor's outfit and a cap watches from the shadows of her doorway. He smirks to himself, whispering that everyone will soon have far more exciting events to witness. The janitor pushes a card away, immediately catching the attention of another student. The student is completely distracted, pondering if the janitor is a new girl because her physique is truly incredible. Yujing finishes yet another heat, looking as though he hasn't even broken a sweat. The announcer calls out the rankings, confirming that Brother Jing has once again effortlessly clinched the first place position. The thirsty hand snatched a water bottle, a necessary pit stop for Yujing after single-handedly dragging his entire class to victory in the standings. Li Jai sauntered over, inquiring if his buddy still harbored zero interest in the opposite sex, to which Yujing simply grunted a firm, "No thanks," while catching his breath. Yujing questioned how many grueling tasks remained on the schedule, prompting Li Jai to rattle off the 400 meters, the 2000 meters, and, naturally, the dreaded relay race. A sharp focus zoomed in on Yujing's eye, as he slowly repeated the word relay, the sound echoing with the grim realization of yet another obligatory run. Li Jai clarified that because it involved running, the teacher had automatically signed Yujing up, offering weak assurances that the other teammates wouldn't completely sabotage his performance. Abruptly, Yujing froze mid-stride, his face instantly dropping any pretense of relaxation as a sudden, sharp instinct warned him that something was terribly amiss. Standing alone on the track, he gazed at the school building, whispering about the metallic scent of blood and acknowledging that his peaceful day had officially just ended. His vision activated in a flash of bright blue light, his senses heightened as he wondered what monstrous entity had decided to crash his academic calendar. Inside, a horrific spectacle unfolded. A gigantic cockroach monster was chowing down on helpless people in the corridor, sending students fleeing for their lives in absolute panic. Yujing instructed Li Jai to immediately contact law enforcement and report the giant insectoid menace, prompting a terrified Li Jai to barely squeak out an affirmative response. He ordered his friend to sprint away and ignore the chaos, while Yujing popped the lid off his water bottle, gearing up for an impromptu battle he absolutely hadn't scheduled. Within the teaching facility, a gruesome scene unfolded, featuring a dismembered hand resting in a puddle of blood, and a helpful system notification ominously labeling the flesh as tender. A panic-stricken schoolgirl found herself cornered by a wall, with the monster analyzing her like a new item on the daily specials menu. The enormous roach hovered menacingly above a fallen blonde student, letting out a terrifying hiss as it prepared to deliver the final blow to the vulnerable target. Just as the monster prepared to strike, a sudden noise distracted it, while the girl shrieked and a barely visible blur rushed down the corridor. Yujing arrived in a flash of speed, appearing like a human-shaped thunderbolt as he hurtled straight toward the creature with a deafening crash. He landed a heavy strike that sent the monster staggering backward, causing the shocked blonde girl to look up and recognize her senior, Yujing, as her sudden savior. The force of the impact was immense, generating a shockwave that shook the hallway as Yujing successfully connected, sending the creature sliding across the tile floor. He towered protectively over the girl, barking at her to evacuate immediately, though she was initially too shocked to respond beyond a quiet, appreciative nod toward her rescuer. Yujing activated his twin lives power, along with several speed buffs, explaining to himself that his first assault would quickly deplete the boss's health points, aiming for a fast finish. He dashed forward once more, concentrating every ounce of power into a pinpoint strike, moving with such velocity that the air screamed around his body. He delivered a devastating blow he called Rolling Thunder Gale, shattering the concrete beneath the creature's feet and instantly turning the floor into a dusty, broken crater. The resulting explosion of power was spectacular, scattering concrete chunks in every direction as Yujing's fist drove deep into the debris, delivering a catastrophic strike. The bloodied hand emerged from behind a nearby door, weakly whispering for assistance, a gruesome detail that immediately drew Yujing's focus away from the battle. The janitor from early stumbled into view, drenched in blood and clearly in pieces, desperately pleading for aid while trying to explain what it completely did before fainting. Yujing looked down at the injured man, recognizing him as Capping, and wondered exactly why someone of his stature was cleaning floors at the school. Capping lay dying, imploring Yujing to locate his master and relay a vital message, his eyes rolling back as he stretched out his hand for the final time. Without warning, the monster descended from the ceiling directly above them, rapidly approaching with its lethal claws extended, ready to tear everything apart. The creature shrieked as it plunged toward them, forcing Yujing to react in a fraction of a second to avoid being annihilated alongside the helpless, dying janitor. Capping let out a high-pitched scream of agony as the monster descended, culminating in a deafening crash as the beast slammed into the ground. Jumping aside like a jittery cat, our hero realizes this bug has turbo engines. He mumbles that without his double life G code, he would be nothing but a flat cyber pancake. Bracing for impact, he sighs because his ultimate finisher did exactly jack squat. This roach dude is built differently compared to those other basement-dwelling minions he trashed earlier. The creature looms over the bloody mess with a nasty screech, sounding like a broken kettle. Stu convinces his trembling niece to point him right toward the ugly mug for a round two. Gasping at those vanished wounds, he realizes this freak has an absurdly fast order repair system. It is basically a living health potion with way too many legs for any reasonable comfort. Burning ruby eyes lock onto him while the insect body shudders uncontrollably. Stu groans as he senses that the nightmare fuel is actually accelerating beyond any known residential speed limit. Trying to scramble away is futile since the critter covers the hall in a millisecond. It turns into an emerald and charcoal smudge as it dives straight for his jugular. The jagged limb swipes his way while he pulls a clumsy matrix move. He laments being half a beat behind as those twitchy feelers lick his skin mid-evasion. Blaring at the red leak on his sleeve, he feels pretty annoyed at the sudden laundry problem. He knows one solid poke from those spicy limbs means a one-way trip underground. Backing off slightly, he sizes up the nightmare like a disappointed restaurant critic. Compared to the hotel scrub, this beefy bug is clearly on some industrial-grade mutant steroids. Zooming in on that hissing ugly face, he sees the arm spikes have suddenly sprouted. Even the floppy head sticks look sharp enough to serve as shish kebab skewers now. He decides this past is a custom-made killing machine with a shiny new software update. It is bioengineered doom specifically designed to smash professional karate masters. Yanking some red canisters off the wall, he anticipates a long and sweaty brawl. He must utilize every piece of junk nearby to keep himself from becoming generic insect snacks. Coating the area in thick snowy mist, he hopes to mess with the bug's vision and stink. The creature stands frozen, looking utterly bamboozled inside the white powdery chemical fog. A flying metal jug bunks the creature right on its dome with a satisfying metallic ring. It stops dead for a moment, looking completely dazed by the kitchen appliance assault. Capitalizing on the chaos, he pumps out rapid-fire strikes through the thick haze. He refuses to chill, searching desperately for a soft spot in that chunky crab-like suit. Spotting a gap in the defense, he snatches a random iron rod from the floor debris. He pulls it with gorilla strength, turning city infrastructure into a painful beating stick, shoving the rebar deep into the creature's cranium with a wet slurping noise. He washes neon slime fountain out in all directions as he lands a solid bullseye shot. Somehow the freak is still upright despite having metal for brains. Zoo whispers in disbelief that the thing is still kicking as it emits a very enraged radiated sound. The beast vanishes into a murky shadow, turning into a high-speed pixelated smear. It darts across the corridor so quickly that his human eyeballs are barely tracking the path. Adopting a turtle position, he realizes the critter is attempting a sensory overload prank. It wants to scramble his brain before pouncing on his blind spot for an easy win. Stopping the eye workout, he chooses to quit peeking at the invisible blur. Since looking fails to reveal the threat, he flicks on his high-resolution internal visualization mode instead. Shutting his lids tight, he utilizes willpower to sketch the bug's zip-zapping path. Neon streaks appear inside his mind, showing exactly where the beast is about to go next. It drops from the roof like a falling safe, but Zoo is completely unfazed. He yells that he caught the movement as he readies a spicy surprise counterstrike. A tingly vibe washes over his limbs like a warm soda bath. He recalls the fuzzy warmth from when he initially mastered that secret wiggly dragon tail combat move. One eyeball starts shining like a high beam flashlight as he concentrates his inner juice. This is precisely when he upgrades his fist fighting skills into something totally legendary, throwing out a shiny new dragon style strike known as the turning gold scale. He waits. His arm gets draped in shimmering solar energy that looks like fantasy reptile skin. The bug gets punted like a football, though its shell feels stiffer than a brick wall. He decides to wrap this up since these loud noises will draw the crow cops. At this point, his only job is to delay the brawl until the cavalry rolls in. Standing tall against the mutant, he looks like a bright pink guardian for the school. The feather patrol has officially landed to hover ships nearby. Junk is sailing through the air as the campus falls apart, but the elite heroes have arrived to help Zoo. Captain Void Edge drops in with style, floating down like a gorgeous metal angel from the smoke. She scans the burning mess, observing that the school got totally wrecked fast. A military chopper, looking a bit like an angry metal wasp, hovered ominously above the lecture hall. The pilot, clearly having a very bad day, shrieked into the comms for everyone to clear out before she unleashed the apocalypse. The captain's face filled the screen, radiating an impressive amount of fury, which was probably her resting expression. She was zeroing in on the objective, ready to prove exactly why she led this collection of talented misfits. The colossal whirlwind of power exploded upon her touchdown, creating a miniature storm system of dust and debris. The roar force of her entrance pushed everything back, letting everyone know the main event had officially begun. Mountain Baboon, peering over the edge of the helicopter, surveyed the wreckage below. He wondered aloud if descending was still a good idea, seeing as the entire lecture hall had transformed into an impressive pile of rubble. The captain, a master of selective hearing, completely ignored his concerns, her focus solely fixed on the objective. Her high-tech tactical equipment powered up, forcing her eyes to glow with an eerie, intense light. The squad's heads-up display finally identified a small, nearly invisible figure among the debris. It was Xu Jing, looking thoroughly battered and worn out after having single-handedly babysat the entire operation. The information immediately transferred to all squad members, painting Xu Jing with a bright red targeting square. They finally had him pinpointed, and they were descending quickly for extraction. Like a bunch of well-armed paramedics, the captain launched herself from the aircraft, her dragonbone enhancements pulsating with an aggressive energy. Even Mountain Baboon had to admit he was impressed by the ridiculously overpowered gadgetry she decided to bring along for a simple Tuesday. She impacted the earth with enough force to generate a significant tremor, sending ripples of power through the ground. Standing amidst a plume of shimmering blue energy, she appeared completely indestructible, like a human freight train. Xu Jing glanced upward, his eyes widening despite his battered and bruised state. He instantly identified the distinctive silver hair and the massive, sharp mechanical wing sprouting from her back, a truly unmistakable silhouette. The mechanical wing blades on her spine whirred softly before retracting into the casing. It was a remarkable piece of engineering that looked both aesthetically futuristic and dangerously sharp enough to cut through pretty much anything. The captain quickly caught Xu Jing before he could completely lose consciousness, reintroducing herself as Void Edge. He was clearly operating on fumes, but she wasn't about to let him become part of the pavement just yet. Xu Jing exhaled slowly, finally feeling a sense of reprieve after pushing himself past all limits. He mumbled that she had finally arrived, having reached the breaking point fighting against the disgusting insectoid creature. He looked like he just finished a brawl inside a closed drive set to high speed, with his shirt in shreds, covered in dust, and bleeding profusely. While he definitely had smoother afternoons, the fact that he was still coherent was truly astonishing. The captain didn't waste a second, immediately shoving a painkiller into his hand and promising it would work quickly. She kept a steady, protective arm around him while her advanced senses scoured the surrounding area for any remaining dangers. Xu Jing swallowed the medication, contemplating the sheer overwhelming strength of the insect monster he had just faced. He glanced down at the gruesome cut across his chest, understanding that escaping alive was a genuine stroke of luck. Now slightly more composed, he received reassurance from the captain that he wasn't flying solo anymore. The full White Crow squad had finally showed up to tidy up the massive disaster he inadvertently caused. The entire team was now assembled, encircling the monstrous, highly evolved insect creature. The captain and Mountain Baboon took the lead, appearing completely prepared to break the bug down piece by piece. Mountain Baboon flashed an arrogant smile, advising the creature to appreciate the excellent groundwork Shu Jing had already completed for them. He raised his enormous club, ready to conclude the fight the third Zorsted ally had initiated. A different member of the team, a short-haired woman with glowing green eyes, sharply ordered them to stop talking nonsense. She was clearly no nonsense, providing a critical warning that another powerful thrust attack was imminent. The gigantic insect creature let out a chilling, aggressive hiss, its red eyes burning fiercely through the dust cloud. It clearly didn't care about the elite squad's arrival, still eager for another bite. Mountain Baboon spun his weapon with a high-pitched whirring sound, giving the girl a quick nod of thanks for the warning. He charged forward, intending to deliver a significant blow to evaluate the creature's defenses. The monster retaliated immediately, unleashing an enormous jet of corrosive green acid from its mouth. It was a high-velocity assault that instantly compelled the squad members to disperse rapidly. One squad member quickly recoiled, startled by how fast the monster's counterattack truly was. He grunted to himself, realizing this particular insect was significantly quicker than the initial mission reports had indicated. Captain Void Edge, completely unimpressed by the previous misstep, immediately scolded someone for choosing a terrible position. She launched herself airborne, her silver hair flying behind her as she instructed everyone to observe carefully. She flicked the necessary switches on her specialized tactical equipment, ready to unleash her powerful signature technique. She yelled, issuing a command for attention, as the blades on her back began to vibrate intensely. She plunged toward the monster like a brilliant blue comet, her blades rotating so quickly they became a spinning blur. Her movement was so rapid that she seemed less like a person and more like a simple streak of light cutting through the atmosphere. The creature was instantly torn to pieces, experiencing a barrage of blade strikes in less than a heartbeat. Her attack ripped through the monster's supposedly optimized genetic shielding as if it were nothing more than tissue paper. The creature remained standing for a brief second, entirely covered in shimmering blue energy gashes. It appeared as though it had just been assaulted simultaneously by a dozen very efficient swordsmen. Then, in a final catastrophic explosion, the monster collapsed into pieces of organic debris. This was truly a master butcher's performance, executed so effortlessly that the entire squad looked like they were just stretching. Sui Jing observed from below, thoroughly impressed by the spectacle. He concluded that true professionalism looks exactly like this, starkly highlighting the chasm between a fresh recruit and a seasoned, top-tier squad leader. He mentally replayed the action, noting how she'd hit every single joint's weak point with a seemingly effortless cut. This void edge technique truly demonstrated a level of combat mastery that was almost unfair. Hold on, the monster hadn't quite shuffled off this mortal coil. Its severed head continued to squirm and hiss on the ground, proving these creatures possessed truly bunkers levels of vital energy. The captain immediately barked at Q to staunch the bleeding, as they desperately needed to keep this thing breathing. Apparently, this monster was their only GPS coordinate to locate the celestial broodmother. The team's resident tech wizard was already glued to her laptop, sending reports back to HQ. She was busy requesting a tracking device while the rest of the crew locked down the perimeter. Mountain Baboon approached Yu Jing, observing that the young man appeared slightly worse for wear. He expressed relief for arriving promptly, yet clearly admired the rookie's ability to hold his ground for so long. Baboon commented that the captain's high standards meant she certainly didn't treat Zhu Jing as normal, which, within this particular squad, was the highest possible honor. He flashed a wide grin, genuinely pleased to have such a gifted newcomer. Chu Jing inquired about their findings in South City, but Baboon replied that they'd only managed to sweep a third of the entire sector. They hadn't located any significant targets yet. Chu Jing adopted a serious expression, informing the group that he had uncovered a fresh lead. Reflecting on the gender he encountered earlier, he realized a far more elaborate conspiracy was unraveling beneath the surface. Both the captain and Baboon focused their attention, understanding that Chu Jing's gut feelings were typically flawless. They braced themselves for the bombshell he was clearly preparing to drop. He laid out his hypothesis, suggesting the cockroach man had been intentionally smuggled into the school by someone named Duan Capping. The captain listened carefully as the puzzle pieces began to click together. He highlighted that Duan, a known leader of a local tough guy gang, was simultaneously posing as a janitor, which was essentially a massive, neon red warning sign. The captain concurred, stating this vital information needed immediate reporting. Without warning, the captain's expression completely changed. She shrieked for Shu Jing and Q to flee the area instantly, realizing something was seriously amiss with the monster's supposedly inanimate carcass. Her panic was authentic, a truly dreadful sign from someone who ranked as a high-level captain. The threat, it turned out, was far from eliminated. The monster's deceased body began to squirm and blow up like an overinflated balloon. It emitted a disgusting, slithering noise as it rapidly underwent some sort of biological metamorphosis. The surrounding area erupted in a surge of energy as the creature molded directly in front of them. The air crackled with motion lines, indicating the beast's power level had suddenly spiked to unprecedented heights. The newly evolved monster towered over them, glowing eerily with a strange green light. It appeared significantly more mutated and hazardous than its previous form, clearly fueled by wounded pride from the preceding defeat. The captain and Baboon quickly processed the terrifying truth. This thing wasn't simply regenerating, it was getting its skin to enter a hive state. They had unwittingly activated its ultimate evolution. The captain unfurled her blade-like wings, firmly announcing that this creature would not be escaping again. She was fully prepared to begin round 2 against this biological harsho. Zhu Jing took a daring step, reaching toward her leg and requesting to borrow one of her blades. The audacity of his request completely stunned the captain. She tossed him a small tactical knife, demanding to know what crazy stunt he was plotting. Even faced with this crisis, Zhu Jing apparently had a few more surprises hidden away. He launched himself skyward, activating his twin lives technique and focusing all his energy. He hurtled toward the monster, wielding the $1 million blade, looking undeniably heroic and oddly awesome. Mountain Baboon stayed in astonishment, questioning if Zhu Jing had just casually hurled a depleted uranium round with his bare hand. While it was only the captain's blade, he had indeed thrown it with truly ridiculous force. Zhu Jing landed and returned the knife to the captain, generously crediting her high-quality weapon for the success. She casually noted that the blade cost over $10 million, which certainly justified the level of impact damage. The captain stared intently, understanding that Zhu Jing's unique combat style demanded top-of-the-line equipment to truly maximize its potential. She was already mentally calculating his necessary gear upgrades. Zhu Jing's arm was visibly covered in dark purple contusions and crackling energy. He conceded that performing that final attack exacted a severe toll, making the limb appear as though it might actually detonate. The captain instructed everyone to board the helicopter, stating they would prioritize getting Zhu Jing back to the Hidden Dragon Dojo. The combat portion of the mission concluded, but the larger investigation was just getting underway. Zhu Jing nodded in agreement, mentally preparing himself for the inevitable, massive scolding he would receive from his senior brothers and sisters for getting so thoroughly battered. He was already dreading the lecture. The helicopter ascended from the school's rubble-strewn grounds, kicking up a cloud of dust and smoke. The White Crow squad returned to base, carrying their injured hero and their ribbling, captured specimen. Inside the Healy transport, someone reported they were short another team member yet again, questioning if they should request backup. The general atmosphere remained quiet and summer following such a narrow escape. Zhu Jing gazes at the urban sprawl below, pondering the team's casual attitude toward mortality while realizing his life is now worth less than a bargain bin toy. An oversized interface flashes, dubbing experience points on him, with his fitness and health climbing rapidly as his marksmanship hits rank 6 in this frantic divine sprint. Zhu Jing flashes a wicked grin as his hidden dragon and visual stats swell, acknowledging that the agonizing training grind pays off whenever those shiny figures tally up. The military chopper cruises over the desolate school grounds, whisking the White Crow squad toward the horizon while Zhu Jing finally enjoys a brief moment of quietude. With his shooting skill reaching level 6, Zhu Jing notices the world sharpening, his eyes glowing an intense shade of sapphire to signal his heightened sensory perception. Surveying the ground from above, he chuckles at his newfound eagle-eye vision, quipping that he has officially upgraded himself from a human to a sentient pair of binoculars. He contemplates merging his ocular clarity with dragon force, convinced that keeping his distance from future monsters will be a cakewalk compared to his previous close-call brawls. A cocky smirk plays on his lips as his survival odds improve, yet he is already plotting his next power surge while still shaking off the grit of recent combat. Captain Void Edge analyzes a mission readout, noting a 10% pollution spike in the South City area, which sounds like an ominous omen for their upcoming schedule. Zhu Jing blinks blankly, having no clue what pollution implies, prompting the captain to wonder if the outer ring dojos teach anything beyond basic breathing exercises. Using her hands as living props, she demonstrates the cosmic physics involved, showing one palm as the realm and the other as a monstrous dimension bleeding into theirs. She describes pollution as a messy result of two realities clashing, resulting in a dimensional stain that seeps into their own world like coffee on a clean rug. Background interference usually hovers between 1 and 5%, serving as the typical static of the mundane existence where the worlds barely touch. Should the overlap peak at 30% or higher, she warns that the local reality begins to unravel and twist under the pressure of colliding cosmic lores. The disturbing vision of vine-covered city ruins reveals a boundary rift where eldritch horrors crawl through the cracks, treating the human world like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Zhu Jing asks if this process creates all rifts, but the captain corrects him, noting that only when pollution hits the century mark does a true rift emerge. She dubs the regions trapped between planes as subworlds, a nightmare zone where the barrier between reality and terror is basically non-existent roommates. Zhu Jing listens intently, recognizing that the South City district has become a ticking time bomb waiting for a massive dimensional collapse to ruin everyone's day. The scene shifts to the dojo where Shanyang is throwing a tantrum, absolutely livid that her favorite student returned looking like a human pink again. Ming applies healing salve to his back with a scowl, threatening to evict him from the care if he keeps treating his body like a disposable crash test dummy. Looking like a kick puppy, Zhu Jing tries to justify his injuries as a total accident, yet he finds absolutely zero empathy among his stern, unpressed sisters. Chen Yang shouts nonsense at his excuses, rubbing the medicine into his skin with enough force to make him howl and appreciate the sting of his poor choices. Though he begs for a lighter touch, she relentlessly highlights his bruised arm, questioning if he intends to spend his entire youth recovering from stupid combat blunders. As Ming massages his arm, the shirtless and bedraggled Zhu Jing looks genuinely pathetic while his sisters aggressively bully him back to a state of health. He claims he was the only one brave enough to handle that cockroach monstrosity, but his sisters just rolled their eyes at his desperate plea for hero status. Chen Yang intimidates a chibi-sized Zhu Jing until he wisely shifts the conversation to the Golden Wind Dojo, hoping to dodge any further physical reprimands. The master sits in his chair, wearing a thoughtful expression as Zhu Jing wonders if that mysterious dojo is linked to the biological nightmares he faces. Recalling a former rival, Dao Hunyun, the master reminisces about the old days when the two of them would swap sparring techniques while they were young and bold. Golden Wind fighters mastered turning the limbs into living blades, believing that being skin-clad was as dangerous as holding a sword, which fascinated the master. Zhu Jing questions if he fought the leader alone, but the master scoffs, explaining that he easily tanked the swarm of disciples because their strikes couldn't scratch his golden hide. The master conceded that the opponent's technique held genuine merit. He issued a stern warning, always assume their empty hands are actually holding a ridiculously sharp, invisible blade. Zhu Jing's arm radiated a golden light as he mused on how his style served as the ultimate counter. His master confirmed that even a white rainbow blade from the Golden Wind School couldn't possibly penetrate his defenses, assuming they fought on equal terms. However, the master delivered a dose of reality. If his opponent's power level completely overwhelmed his, then no amount of caution would matter in the slightest. Zhu Jing understood he still needed to conquer a truly immense peak before reaching true power. The senior sisters announced they were finished with his back and commanded him to turn around for the front. Zhu Jing appeared visibly uncomfortable as the rod close quarters healing procedure continued on his person. He muttered to himself that guiding Kai for recovery felt surprisingly draining. He wanted to handle the rest of the healing alone, but his sisters were completely engrossed in their work, making a fuss over his injuries. The senior sisters leaned in, one of them playfully inquiring if he felt shy. They joked about him hitting the pinnacle of adolescent awkwardness, forcing Zhu Jing to break out in cold sweat from embarrassment. The close shot focused on Zhu Jing's crimson face. He internally scolded himself, insisting he was a normal guy, but having two lovely women so close simply destroyed all his attempts at concentration. The sisters were shown dibbling and assessing him, remarking how good he looked despite his visible embarrassment. Zhu Jing's only goal was to survive the initial step of the hibernating dragon technique amidst all the unwanted flirting. He shut his eyes, trying to concentrate, whispering to himself that the touch felt incredibly gentle and relaxing. He was genuinely struggling to keep up his formidable warrior facade right now. He suddenly recoiled, shouting that the specific area they had just rubbed absolutely did not require any more medicinal attention. The sisters exchanged playful looks, clearly finding his flustered reaction highly entertaining. The sisters determined that enough teasing had occurred for the day and let him finish the rest of the healing himself. Senior Sister Meng and Shanyang departed together, leaving Zhu Jing feeling both confused and incredibly itchy. Zhu Jing remained in the training hall by himself, rubbing his arm and questioning if she had genuinely acted deliberately. Finally, he had enough solitude to concentrate on refining his internal power. An hour later, Zhu Jing was flexing his newly repaired muscles. He noted that guiding Kai for so long had caused his skin to tingle constantly, suggesting he had sustained much more serious wounds than he initially believed. He confessed that his understanding of the golden scale was still incomplete. He recalled that the technique employed inner force to link all skin membranes, generating a defensive shield that both scatters and eliminates attacks. Unexpectedly, his entire body started to emanate a brilliant golden aura. He had finally mastered the full visualization of the technique, and now he looked like a living, breathing, solid gold monument. He finally understood the core principle. The larger the point of contact, the less intense the pressure would be. It was basic scientific physics applied to fighting, providing the solution for an absolutely unmatched defensive capability. He recalled his master's lecture about the Golden Wind's Rainbow Blade technique. He fully comprehended why his golden scale skin served as the ideal counter to this specialized, narrow-point internal force strikes. A mental image of an old-fashioned swordsman popped into his head, and Zhu Jin realized the style concentrated all energy into an incredibly tiny point of impact. His new defense essentially made that entire tactic null and void. Zhu Jing stood there shirtless and illuminated, considering the remaining lethal techniques he hadn't fully learned yet. The list included shaking starfire for blood conditioning and eye-piercing flow for tendon fortification. He ventured out into the brightly lit city at night, feeling a fresh wave of self-assurance. He assured himself that there was no hurry, prioritizing complete recovery from his wounds before tackling the next difficult challenge. Zhu Jing finally reached home, clicking open the door after a truly exhausting day. He was anticipating some much-needed quiet time, but immediately observed that something had changed. He saw a figure on his sofa, complete with visible human hands. A woman's voice questioned why he was home so late, taking him entirely by surprise. It turned out to be Teacher Wen, now fully human instead of a feline, wearing a massive white shirt. She looked absolutely breathtaking, waving and asking if he had brought any tasty treats with him. Zhu Jing was utterly speechless, staring at her with wide eyes. He was perplexed because the library's information claimed she required a specific trigger to regain human form, and he certainly hadn't done anything of the sort yet. Wen clarified that around lunchtime, she unexpectedly discovered she could return to human form independently. She sat easily on the couch, informing him that she wouldn't be staying long and just wanted to keep him company for one last time. Her face became serious as she explained the inherent danger. She acknowledged that simply being close to him placed a huge target on his back, attracting unwanted attention from groups such as Candor Security and the dragon sect itself. Zhu Jing extended his hand and gently took hers, causing her to stop torquing. He reflected on the days they shaved, admitting that every single day they spent together had brought him true happiness. Teacher Wan returned his gaze with a gentle, blushing smile. She confessed that it truly felt like she had reverted to a completely carefree feline, simply eating snacks, playing around, and napping without a worry in the world. She attempted to withdraw her hand, reminding him that she remained the dragon sect leader and needed to depart immediately. However, it was obvious that her feelings were not aligned with her attempt to leave. The close-up showed her face turning red, her eyes rapidly filling with deep emotion. She was clearly facing a major internal struggle between her obligations and the comfortable life she created with Zhu Jing in their cozy little apartment. Zhu Jing wraps his arms around her in a stable grip while looking very intent, saying that leaving her over some peril would make him look like a failure. Refusing to break the hug, he suggests she remain close by, promising to stand directly next to her during any future scraps. It is a motionless moment of devotion that sees Wen standing perfectly frozen. Wen looks upward with quite dilated pupils. She makes a small sound asking if her stay is official, and Zhu Jing gives a simple nod to finalize the contract. Suddenly, moisture exits her eyes as she makes loud noises and holds onto his torso. Several floating text boxes appear in the air, indicating someone is generating high numbers for him. Personal points are falling from the sky like rain. Zhu Jing looks at his glowing icons as they hit level 7, noting that random bystanders only give him crumbs compared to this jackpot. The loud sounds finish as she sits there with those pointed furry items on her head and a fuzzy extension behind her. He stands nearby, thinking about those old documents they found. Both sit down on the rectangular furniture. The air is still, but the distance between them is smaller. Zhu Jing starts a conversation about logistical plans for the shared living space. One looks in his direction with a pink tint on her face. Her skin looks a bit damp from the moisture, and she sits there waiting for any sounds to exit his mouth. The man explains the lore mechanics he read. Strong physical reactions make the jewelry piece on her hand merge with her body until the feline warrior emerges, while she holds her appendage. He adds a specific technical note, saying that random outbursts do not count since it is to be the feeling from the shared container of water, which makes for quiet, awkward pause. Her face turns into a bright crimson light as she lets out a loud shout. A mental image of her feline self in the tub appears behind her as she processes his specific meaning. She moves to a standing position over him and moves her face forward to ask about his motives. A tiny version of the man pops up to say the ball is in her court. His face remains neutral as he asks if she wants to use that divine energy source to shield herself. He leaves the choice to accept the jewelry fusion entirely in her hands. He explains that previous users of these feline powers function normally without physical floors. They just display golden energy fields, making one inspect her own limbs with great attention. Silhouettes of powerful female warriors with ears appear on the wall nearby. He notes they are fighting a corporate titan, so every strategic asset in their possession must be utilized. One looks through the transparent glass at the metallic skyscrapers nearby. She realizes he is correct since staying hidden has failed, so growing her own power is the best route forward. Wan looks at him, seeing that he is truly planning this risky sequence for her sake. She asks if the source code for the ancient golden jewelry is genuinely accurate and reliable. She looks directly into his pupils to detect any visual twitching. He remains stationary, saying he sees no reason for his contact to deliver any false coordinates to him. He stands his ground like a marble statue nearby. Wen takes a deep breath of oxygen and makes her selection, ready to try anything to maintain her current location beside him. Suddenly, she lunges at him and presses his body against the wooden wall. She suggests they start right now. Her face inches away, while he lets out a fast request to wait. She is positioned above him now, appearing quite committed. She states this is strictly for increased certainty in the future combat scenarios, while the tiny version of the man is sweating. Wen moves her face closer with pink skin and whispers that vocal explanations are redundant. Her decision remains solid as the merging light around her hand starts to glow. He looks up at her from below as his chest moves quickly. He proposes recreating the previous liquid scenario to trigger the correct data response, which seems to work quite effectively. Wen makes a low vocal sound and moves her head. She leans inward with her eyelids dropping halfway as the thermal energy in the room reaches a critical boiling point. The visual of the ceramic water container appears, with the liquid moving as someone lets out a lung sound. The imitation of that previous day is currently being performed in full. Back at the tub, Wen is sitting in the water looking quite exhausted and pink. His hand moves into the frame to help support her posture during the difficult merger process. He's in the container without his shirt, his face tightened as he stops himself from making a sound. The atmosphere is dense, and many beads of liquid are on his forehead. Wen lets out a large cloud of air as the yellow glow between them begins to fade. He asks if the event is already over, sounding a bit surprised at the short duration. The circular golden object on her hand shines with a very intense aura. The fusion logic is operational, and the relic is vibrating with a substantial amount of yellow divine energy. He looks at his internal interface as it reports divine essence has been successfully detected and absorbed. He notes that deeper fusion for one actually improves his own digits as well. He contemplates the logic, realizing the ring is a divine artifact from the feline deity Bastet, so deepening the bond essentially taps directly into her celestial reserves. Wen sits soaking in the tub, her ears twitching as she wonders aloud if she has suddenly leveled up, looking genuinely stunned by the internal surge of power. Chu Jing senses the shift too, noting her skin is now so tough that a standard blade would probably just bounce off her like a toy. He apologizes for being heavy-handed, but his system distracts him, showing he has harvested 102 of 500 essence points and urging him to farm faster. The spectral projection of Bastet manifests behind Wen, helpfully clarifying that their ancient culture classifies this specific combat maneuver as the serpent-slaying vanguard. The diagram depicts the feline warrior goddess battling a giant snake, explaining how her victory over the Chaos Viper granted her total dominance over serpentine foes. Liu Jing ponders this revelation, noting that dragons are basically just oversized snakes with better PR, which opens up some hilarious tactical opportunities. Teacher Wen flashes a mischievous grin, noting his hidden dragon techniques fall squarely into the category she now hard counters, making her his perfect combat nemesis. Wait, the situation in the tub takes a weird turn as our hero realizes his signature dragon style might accidentally trigger a massive debuff against her. Liu Jing protests that he is not actually a reptile, but Wen dismissively shrugs, noting that divine powers operate on their own ridiculous set of rules. She drops the bombshell that having dragon in his style name is sufficient to trip her anti-serpent countermeasures, which seems like a totally rigged game. He stares at her in stunned silence, realizing she has essentially found his ultimate reset button while she enjoys the absolute chaos of the situation. A light bulb flickers on as he realizes that if she hard counters draconic entities, she could theoretically run the entire dragon sect while taking a nap. Wen transforms into an excited chibi version of herself, plotting to bowl the sect members mercilessly if they ever cross paths with her again. The atmosphere gets ridiculous as Chibai Wen chuckles like a cackling villain, forcing a sweating Zhu Jing to tell her to stop power tripping in the bath. He firmly pinches her cheeks to silence the tiny menace, insisting she keep her world-punkering ambitions contained until they finish their current objective. The arc shifts to a serious tone as they lean in close, the romantic tension finally cutting through all the preceding madness like a sharp knife. That night, Zhu Jing muses on his progress, feeling shocked that bonding with the Kettering yielded such a massive harvest of divine energy points. His panel displays 309 points, roughly matching a full relic drain, though he remains deeply puzzled about how this mysterious essence actually functions. Staring into the darkness, he theorizes that if this energy powers artifacts, the real ought to be some visible degradation after he siphons it dry. He imagines himself as a divine vacuum cleaner in a funny sketch, wondering if his theft should leave the used-up items crumbling into useless dust. He checks his glowing glasses, yet they remain perfectly functional, making his successful farming streak feel like some kind of weird magical loophole. He shakes off the confusion to focus on his skill tree, prioritizing his twin lives and shatter flame abilities to ensure he stays ahead of the game. Leveling up twin lives requires 500 points, so he starts mapping out his next passive upgrade to turn his defensive stats into an impenetrable wall. 3 days later, he's grinding at the hidden dragon dojo, surrounded by crackling yellow energy as he pushes his body to the absolute brink. As burning red with intensity, he prepares a devastating strike, deciding that maxing out his physical defense is the key to his next breakthrough. He unleashes a punch that could topple a cliffside, his golden dragon aura flaring up to demonstrate the sheer scale of his current output. The resulting shockwave obliterates the air around the training hall, proving he is definitely treating this sparring session like a life or death battle. He stands amidst the golden rings looking like a final boss, noting that his 5 dragon maneuvers are capped only by his own physical fortitude. Reflecting on his decision from earlier, he confirms that fortifying his body was the right move, calculating his combat potential like a total math wizard. The camera focuses on his intense gaze and resolve as he prepares to test the true upper limits of his combat system. He thinks of martial arts moves less as fighting techniques and more as complex equations where power output is the final answer. He activates Rolling Thunder Gale in perfect combination with twin lives, causing his eyes to illuminate with a vivid, penetrating yellow glow. This powerful pairing is specifically designed to precisely double the final strength resulting from his already amplified attributes. A truly colossal surge of energy erupts from his strike, shaking the entire dojo right down to its foundations. The visual impact is absolutely incredible, looking precisely like a small tactical nuclear device detonated inside the training hall. Zhu stands completely unharmed in the middle of the fresh crater, looking totally nonplussed. He realizes that by stacking his physical defenses with a twin lives ability, his current power level is starting to become genuinely unfair. The moment is abruptly interrupted by Captain Void Edge, who simply walked right into the middle of the dojo. Chen Ying instantly goes on high alert, demanding to know exactly who this strange woman is and why she is here. Zhu Jing finds himself stuck between a furious senior sister and the nonchalant captain. Chen Ying is fuming while Zhu Jing attempts to appear unconcerned, though he is clearly nervous about what the captain might possibly want. Captain Void Edge appears completely unmoved by the dramatic situation, adjusting her gloves with a bored expression. She tells them to hurry up and finish the little chat because her time is far too valuable for dojo squabbles. Chen Ying absolutely explodes with rage, shouting demands that the mystery woman introduce herself. Void Edge simply returns a cold stare, stating she is only here to speak personally with Zhu Jing. The captain steps forward purposefully, completely ignoring Chen Ying's furious outburst. She firmly informs the little miss that only Zhu Jing possesses the required qualifications to hear what she has to discuss. Chen Ying, in a fit of miniature anger, vibrates and shouts as Void Edge casually instructs Zhu Jing to follow her. It is an undeniable display of dominance that leaves the senior sister seething in the background. Chen Ying is left standing in the wreckage of the floor, utterly losing her temper while Zhu Jing trails after the captain. This entire interaction guarantees a huge headache for our protagonist later on. They move to a quieter area, and Zhu Jing immediately gets down to business. He demands to know what could possibly be so important that she had to track him down at his own training dojo. Captain Void Edge turns around to face him, looking much more relaxed now that they are alone. She explains she is simply present to deliver a confidential message from someone extremely significant. Zhu Jing instantly guesses the message came from Wu Yaking, and the captain confirms his suspicion, calling him sharp. It looks like the library director has a new mission that only he can successfully execute. Captain pulls up her holographic display, presenting a target profile. She explains that this individual is the third heir of a major sixth-grade corporation located in the distant Far East. We receive a close look at the target, Otojibaru Suzuka, who appears to be a traditional swordsman. He exudes that classic silent but deadly aura, which almost always suggests a high-level boss fight. The captain reveals that the sword in his hand is actually a divine relic, identified as G.O.D. 519, the Ever-Edged Blade. Its defining characteristic is both incredibly simple and utterly terrifying. It can never go dull. Zhu Jing looks slightly bewildered, thinking that never dull seems like a rather abstract concept for such a godly weapon. He wonders exactly how that simple trait could possibly be so dangerous. Captain Void Edge claps her hands once, having read his mind perfectly. She clarifies that in the realm of divine relics, there is currently no existing shield or defensive technique known to fully counter this blade. She displays an old recording of a test where they exposed the blade to temperatures exceeding 10 million degrees. It looks like some truly serious military experimentation was performed to discover its limitations. The result was astonishing. The blade remained completely undamaged, not even suffering a scratch or a change in its temperature. It truly is a definitive offensive weapon. Zhu Jing asks if this constitutes a new containment mission, looking fully ready for more action. He assumes he is the right person to go in and secure such a powerful artifact. The captain shakes her head, stating that the blade isn't rampaging, so it doesn't need to be contained in the usual manner. This particular assignment is focused on something entirely different. Now, Zhu Jing is genuinely lost, demanding to know what exactly Wu Yaking wants him to do instead. He isn't accustomed to receiving such cryptic messages from his bosses. Captain Void Edge gives him a knowing look, saying Yaking told her it's not actually about what she needs him to do. It's truly about whether he personally wants to do it himself. Zhu Jing narrows his eyes as the true objective becomes clearer. He notes that Suzuka came here to participate in the U9E No Rules fighting tournament, and suddenly all the fragmented parts click into place. The captain smirks slightly, admitting that attacking such a high-profile heir would normally be a serious diplomatic nightmare. But right now, there's a convenient loophole available for them to exploit. We receive a quick piece of lore. God 519 possesses a unique trait where it chooses its master. This means it doesn't belong to a family, but brought it to the strongest individual within the vicinity. She details the specific rules governing the relic. If the current wielder loses to someone else in combat, ownership of the blade instantly transfers to the victor. That makes for one incredible tournament prize. Captain Void Edge leans in close, knowing she has successfully hooked his interest. She directly asks him if he enjoys collecting divine relics, challenging him to go and claim this legendary sword with his own hands. Big man Zhu Jing puffs his chest out with eyes full of greedy ambition, thinking that beating Suzuka in the ring means he gets to keep that fancy unbreakable toothpick for himself. Somewhere else entirely at the South City ports, the giant boat is dumping its heavy cargo under a sunny sky, which is basically the universe saying a fresh story chapter is loading. Some kid in pajamas is frantically gesturing at the vessel, while a nearby snitch tells the boss that the little brother has turned into the most popular celebrity in Mapletown. Here comes the grand poober of the Golden Wind Club, rocking some majestic white hair while hearing stories about how the brand is blowing up like crazy across the line. The old man grumbles about not getting a big head over some minor hype, because looking desperate for attention is a one-way ticket to being the local laughingstock. Cheng Xuan, the dark-haired dude chilling on the porch, dismisses the lecture, claiming the younger brother is such a freakish prodigy that acting like a total diva is totally allowed. Things get awkward when a follower asks if those annoying white crow birds are still stalking them, making the boss look like he just swallowed a lemon and several dark secrets. The minion confirms that anyone with a loose tongue has been zipped up forever, so the birds won't hear a peep, even if losing brother Kaiping was a bit of a bummer. The boss says he misses Kaiping like a lost sock but views his death as a tiny pothole in the highway to greatness, ordering his crew to keep their eyes on the prize. The student glances away, realizing the little bro is playing a totally different game, which probably means they are using his sparkly reputation to hide their own filthy laundry. The head honcho demands that Chen Chuan stays clueless about the shady business, since keeping his prize fighter in a bubble of ignorance is the only way to save their reputation. The entire Golden Wind gang crowds the boat deck upon arrival, as the old man tells everyone to leave the boy alone for the finals, setting up a very loud explosion later. Du Jing is currently having a massive nervous breakdown, since he expected a quick trip for a fight but found himself drowning in drama before even stepping out his front door. Below Maple City, where Zhu Jing strolls through crunchy orange leaves followed by his teacher and two older sisters, leaving him wondering why his personal space has suddenly vanished. Chen Yang and Ming are acting like overbearing dog owners, insisting the world is a scary place for their tiny brother, even though Zhu Jing is the one actually carrying the luggage. He stares at Weina, his little void kitten, asking if she joined the babysitting club too, because he is starting to feel like a very well-guarded piece of expensive jewelry. Weina licks a toe with a superior attitude, explaining that her divine merging with some Egyptian goddess requires constant maintenance, meaning she's stuck to him like glue for the long haul. Zhu Jing gives her a doubtful glare, thinking she might just be obsessed with his company, which makes her stutter some frantic excuses while turning as red as a ripe tomato. Chen Yang comments on the weirdly tight bond between the boy and the furball, making Weina hiss that she just likes her favorite human and the older sister should mind her own business. Chen Yang foolishly implies that a feline is a distraction during workout sessions and offers to dump her at a pet motel, which is basically the worst idea she ever had. Weina goes completely nuclear, screeching like a banshee and flashing her sharp bits, swearing she will go homeless if they try to ditch her at some cheap lodging. The pair enters a cartoonish staring contest of pure stubbornness, creating a funny vibe while Zhu Jing accepts that he has absolutely no power in this chaotic family dynamic. He eventually gives up with a sad puff of air, inviting the whole circus to follow him, essentially leading a traveling zoo of relatives and animals to his important match. The camera pans over the glowing sidewalks of Maple City, filled with karaoke bars and flashy lights that scream loud, and crowded tournament season is finally here. Back in the gym, Chanian whacks a whiteboard with a stick, showing off a complicated chart that suggests he is about to ruin some poor guy's ego with cold hard facts. She jabs at the drawing and tells Zhu Jing that his current skills give him a 0% survival rate against the local hero Suzuka, which is just wonderful for his self-esteem. Zhu Jing plops onto the mat feeling pretty pathetic and asks where he lands on her scale, only for Chanian to bluntly label him a measly tier 3 loser. He looks around the walls, asking if this scoring system is actually recognized by the city, since he is desperately trying to calculate how much pain he is about to suffer. Chanian beams with pride while admitting she totally made up the rules, yet she swears her imaginary numbers are based on the most professional science available in her brain. She lists Suzuka's resume, noting he started at 10, became the boss at 15, and earned a pro title by 18, before asking Zhu Jing if he really thinks he can win. Staring into the abyss of past memories, Zhu Jing sees his training floors and knows he is hopelessly outmatched, confessing a current duel would end with him being turned into a human pancake. Chanian applauds his rare moment of honesty regarding his suckage, yet mentions that his lack of skill is actually the least of their worries in this upcoming chaotic festival of pain. She notes the teenage gladiator games permit stabbing tools for extra fun, providing a terrifying mental image of Suzuka looking like a professional fruit ninja with a very sharp, very pointy blade. Pointing at pictures of fancy knives and wooden sticks on chains, she clarifies that bringing a gun to a fistfight, or just a really nice sword, completely breaks the game's balance. Gesturing toward a buffet of pointy metal sticks and oversized butter knives, Chanian asks which death toy speaks to his soul, hoping he picks something before he becomes a living target. Squeezing his knuckles like a stubborn action hero, Zhu Jing rejects the gear, but Chanian ruins his mood by explaining that Suzuka with steel is effectively 9 buff dudes merged into one monster. His face stretches in pure horror as he yells about the number 9, finally grasping that he is about to enter a world of hurt against a total beast. Chanian nods with deadpan intensity, confirming the kid handles iron with 9 times the usual lethality, which is a terrifying height of violence that most mortals can only dream of. Visualizing a battle against a dragon-style wizard, he suspects his fancy golden shield move will crumble like wet cardboard against a master swinging a piece of enchanted metal at his face. Mental images of a muscular mob of senior students rushing him appear, and he realizes that fighting 9 clones of peak perfection leaves him with the survival odds of a snowball in hell. Looking at his empty hand while whispering about his inevitable funeral, he accepts that being naturally gifted is useless when your opponent decides to bring a literal guillotine to the party. With a dramatic flourish and a verbal fanfare, Chanian yanks a giant dark chunk of mystery from her luggage, announcing that his shiny new insurance policy has finally arrived. Reaching for the mysterious package wrapped in shadows, he feels a surprising weight and a weird vibration that suggests the object might be haunted or just very angry. His nonchalant compliment about the quality of the hidden edge leaves Chanian stunned, as she wonders how this boy has X-ray vision since the thing is still completely covered. He clarifies that his guess was actually a spiritual booty call from the metal, claiming the weapon is basically begging him to hold it, which smells like major plot armor. Grinning like she won the lottery, she calls it destiny and offers the mythical toothpick as his first official souvenir for his upcoming attempt at not dying in the arena. Wondering just how many organs he would need to sell to afford such a toy, he waits for the cost, completely unprepared for the financial heart attack headed his way. She rattles off ingredients like space rocks, dragon bones, fancy pajama silk, and fossilized blood, noting it was cooked up by the iconic craftsman known as Hijuxi. Mentioning the $20 million price tag as if she were buying milk, she whooshes as his spirit evaporates, leaving behind a confused shell of a mine. Glancing at his pathetic bank balance of a few hundred bren, he realizes the sword cost 50 times his life savings, making him mumble a clumsy thanks while feeling like a peasant. Attempting a cool practice swipe, he nearly falls over because the hunk of metal is ridiculously clunky, proving that owning a Ferrari does not mean you know how to drive. Longing for the easy life of a digital avatar who gains instant mastery upon touching loot, he laments that real-world physics is a cruel mistress who hates shortcuts. Dropping into a serious pose, the steel begins to throb with a vibrant light, fueling his resolve to master this glowing glow stick before his first actual match begins. From his rolling throne of judgment, the old man critiques the performance as hot garbage, since even an expensive weapon cannot hide the fact that the kid looks like a flailing noodle. Turning toward the grumpy elder, he begs for some secret cheat codes or weapon techniques that might help him close the distance between himself and certain death. Sipping his beverage with annoying calmness, the teacher notes that peak fighting is all the same regardless of tools, preparing to show off some wizardry that will blow minds. Spilling a few drops that scorch 4 distinct pits through the floorboards, the master explains that your palms and your blades should share the same deadly intent, making everything a weapon. With a sudden flash of gravity in his eyes, the elder warns that the clock is ticking, knowing his student needs a miracle move to avoid being eliminated instantly. Without warning, the master's pupils ignite with a crimson fire while he projects a scary vibe, dragging the boy into his psychic dreamland to teach him about real violence. Standing in a gloomy crimson dimension filled with shattered steel scraps, he looks around with wide eyes, questioning why his teacher decided to send him to a gothic junkyard for training. A severed hand drips gore within a nightmare vision, illustrating the lethal consequences of the brutal technique he is about to study. Jing appears to be suffering a massive cerebral malfunction inside the hallucination, turning pale and drenched in sweat under his master's crushing aura. A hulking shadow wielding a massive meat cleaver looms over a skull mountain, representing the physical form of the killer style he must master. Gasps escape Jing as pure panic sets in, because the intense pressure of the hallucination is physically draining his real-world body. Back in the present, the master chuckles while gauging his student's reaction, patiently waiting for the boy to recover from the ordeal. Jing's gaze snaps open, burning with the same crimson fury as his instructor, finally grasping the murderous intent needed for the tournament. The master provides a masterclass on the Sora blade intent, claiming this terrifying force emerges when you push your kai to its absolute breaking point. He asserts that your mental will can literally influence reality, leaving Jing skeptical if such supernatural nonsense is actually possible. Scoffing at the need for logic, the master notes that dragon summoning is hardly scientific either, so just try swinging that blade with some genuine malice. Ready for a live demonstration, the master orders him to start, though Jing nervously wonders if sparring with his teacher is a bit suicidal. Laughing off the concern, the instructor suggests a superior sparring partner who will definitely show him zero mercy during the practice session. The master insists he ignore refined forms for now, simply commanding him to attack King Zhao with the honest desire to end her life. Assuming a low stance with glowing eyes, Jing convinces himself that since his target is the 4th senior sister, he can safely go all out. Launching forward like a blur, his wooden sword whistles sharply through the air, testing his newfound power against a truly formidable opponent. King Zhao drifts away like a phantom, effortlessly avoiding his strike while preparing a nasty counterattack before he can even regain his balance. Whack! Her bare palm strikes his shoulder with a sonic boom that shakes the hall, proving exactly why she remains a top-tier disciple. Recovering from his tumble, Jing grips his blade tighter and roars, his red eyes reflecting a new, dangerous level of fiery determination. Watching from the sidelines with an amused grin, the master admits the boy possesses legitimate talent for weaponry on top of his other skills. He muses that at this blistering pace, the lad might master the basics within a week, or perhaps 4 days for a freak like him. Their grueling training session is suddenly derailed by a frantic disciple screaming for the Dragon Lord while bursting into the training hall. A breathless student reports that Golden Wind invaders have breached the perimeter, causing the master's face to darken with icy, immediate rage. An unlucky disciple gets launched across the room by a heavy blow, proving these uninvited guests arrived looking for a violent confrontation. The intruder strides in, a spiky-head maniac with a smug grin, shrieking for Jing to emerge so they can fight to the death. Standing amid the Golden Wind disciples, the punk strikes a pose, yet the master and Jing remain entirely bored by his dramatic entrance. Jing asks who the intruder is with zero interest, a level of disrespect that makes the agitated visitor's left eye start twitching wildly. Lai Chengshuan introduces himself as a Golden Wind protege, smirking that if he defeats Jing, he gets to ask a very vital question. Recognizing the name from Miss Wu's tournament list, Jing realizes this jerk is linked to those insect monsters, making this fight personal. The master grants permission to spar, and though Jing looks startled, he is told not to sweat because this is the home court. Worried about his master's injuries, Jing hesitates, but one chilling glare from the old man convinces him to proceed with total confidence. Gripping his practice blade, Jing adopts a cold, polite posture and invites the idiot to provide some lethal guidance as the duel begins. Chengshuan leans in with a smarmy grin, telling Jing to chill out since he definitely does not want to humiliate a guest on his own home turf today. Unfazed, Jing suggests he zip his lip, tired of the chatter and ready to skip straight to the inevitable pummeling he came here to deliver. In a sudden flicker, Jing vanishes, leaving Chengshuan staring at empty air and wondering if the kid just performed a magic trick out of pure fear. Jing reappears as a ghostly trail behind his foe, having moved with such ridiculous speed that Chengshuan's brain failed to process the actual displacement. With a chilly smirk, Jing looms directly behind Chengshuan's shoulder, asking where he is looking while a frosty vibe radiates through the entire arena. Chengshuan whirls around, swinging his glowing violet blade at the empty space, screeching that he totally predicted this weak attempt at a surprise attack. Jing counters with a blinding burst of golden power, the resultant crate proving his strike carries way more weight than the flashy white rainbow blade. The shockwave rattles the dojo walls, and Chengshuan watches a silhouette emerge from the dust, realizing this kid is definitely not your average basement dweller. Planting his feet with a cucky grin, Chengshuan admits the legendary white rainbow blade certainly earns its fearsome reputation through that brutal display of force. Jing grips his practice sword, which pulses with an intense golden light, and admits the white rainbow technique is actually a pretty cool trick. He mentions this as his debut bout against a real human fighter, having spent his time smacking around mindless monsters and metal cyborgs until now. Chengshuan lunges forward, his violet blades leaving neon trails, shouting that he finally found a wordy punching bag and is having the time of his life. They lock weapons in a chaotic symphony of gold and purple sparks, each impact echoing like a thunderstorm as they trade blows across the hall. Activating his golden scale armor, Jing shrugs off the purple blades like they are made of cheap plastic, his arm shimmering with impenetrable geometric patterns. Chengshuan looks absolutely bewildered, screaming about broken defensive skins and wondering how a 17-year-old managed to master such an unfair level of protection. Fed up with the nonsense, he taps into his peak violet aura, determined to shatter that stubborn golden barrier regardless of the personal cost. Their energies collide in a massive boom, and Zhu Jing launches a devastating strike that fires a literal pillar of radiance right through the ceiling. Watching from the sidelines, Chanian gasps that her junior brother is showing progress so absurd it actually defies all the usual dojo logic. Zhu Jing stands tall in a swirl of golden energy, pondering if mastering the white rainbow style is actually doing wonders for his physical fitness too. He muses that anyone else would be down for the count after eating a few of those hits, really starting to respect how tanky Chen Shuan is. Zhu Jing plants a heavy fist into Chen Shuan's gut, genuinely surprised the guy is still standing upright after taking a dozen of his best shots. He ignites his Twin King's ultimate power-up, his eyes blazing with a divine fury as he prepares to settle this scrap once and for all. The close-up of his gaze captures a pure predatory focus, making the killing intent so thick it could practically be sliced with a dull butter knife. He blurs forward like golden lightning, and Chen Shuan gets knocked around the room like a ragdoll by the sheer overwhelming force of the assault. The master suddenly intervenes, telling Zhu Jing to dial it back, reminding him this is just a polite spar rather than a bloody deathmatch. Zhu Jing looks entirely finished with the charade, muttering that the entire Golden Wind squad must share a single brain cell because this story keeps changing. He highlights the irony while Chen Shuan hangs his head, noting how odd it is to demand a duel to the death and then beg for mercy. With a dismissive wave, Zhu Jing tells them to go home and get the narrative straight before returning to waste more of his precious time. The dojo master booms with laughter, looking genuinely impressed by the kid and claiming he is a student who finally lives up to his expectations. The Dragon Lord chuckles from his chair, telling his student that it is genuinely embarrassing to start a massive fight and then immediately cry for peace. Dragon Lord locks eyes with Zhao Hanyuan, staring him down with a gaze sharper than a rusty razor, while the room grows heavy enough to crush a cockroach. The Golden Wind Master gazes at his own loafers, contemplating his next lie, as the room holds its breath waiting to see if he can torque his way out of this jam. Finally looking up, he mentions hearing rumors about Zhu Jing entering the U19 bracket, offering a quick practice session to see if the lad is gold or just cheap glitter. Dao Hanyuan glares at Zhu Jing with the warmth of a frozen fish, forcing senior sister Shanyan to jump in, demanding to know what kind of scheme he is cooking. Shanyan charges forward, kicking a finger at the intruders like a disappointed parent, calling them rude hoodlums for trying to lay a finger on her baby brother. Staying cool as a cucumber, Dragon Lord watches Zhu Jing, wondering if getting beaten up by this old geezer might actually reveal the secrets of the Golden Wind Blade. Zhu Jing hesitates, sensing the old man has more skeletons in his closet than a museum, but a wink from the Dragon Lord reminds him he is playing on home turf. Realizing his squad has his back, Zhu Jing decides to accept the challenge, hoping to snag a few secret techniques for his upcoming tournament run. He reaches for his trusty training blade, squeezing the hilt tight, determined to see if a legendary master fights as well as he torques trash. Entering a fighting stance, Zhu Jing extends a hand toward Zhao Hanyuan, politely muttering that he's ready for the master to show him his worst. With a stomp that probably rattled the building foundation, Zhu Jing turns into a blur of motion, launching a reckless assault at the Golden Wind Master. He fires off a horizontal slash that paints the A gold, but Zhao simply leans back just enough to let the blade tickle his chin without breaking a sweat. As the sword sails by, Dao eyes the kid with pure boredom, thinking the youngster has plenty of power but the combat maturity of a toddler. Undeterred, Zhu Jing follows with a heavy downward chop, only for Zhao to dodge with tiny, lazy shifts that make our hero look like he's shadowboxing ghosts. Zhu Jing tries a cheeky upward strike, but Zhao stops it with his bay palm, casually proving that their skill gap is wider than a hungry hippo. Deflecting the glowing blade, Dao realizes the kid has legitimate talent, noting that he is actually adjusting his rhythm mid-fight like a natural pro. A wicked glint enters Zhao's eyes as he daydreams about snatching Zhu Jing for his basement experiments, eager to feed him to the celestial brood of the soon. The golden system box pops up to announce a new skill unlock, Strange Strike, and Zhu Jing grins, figuring getting manhandled by pro is worth the XP. Suddenly, Dao Hanyuan calls a timeout, claiming he needs to drag his useless disciple home for some bandages before the poor guy collapses from sheer incompetence. As they retreat, Dao warns that they will settle this at the tournament, tossing a final arrogant glance over his shoulder before waddling out the door. Chen Ying scoffs at Zhu Jing for being too gentle with the old fart, but the Dragon Lord just chuckles, noting that the scorecard does not lie. Zhu Jing mentally replays the brawl, realizing Lai Chen Shuan was holding back his kai, meaning the kid was probably sandbiting the whole time. He grows summa, concluding that even a blocked hit from the rival was enough to cause major damage, confirming the enemy is much stronger than they assumed. Noticing the boy is deep in thought, Dragon Lord asks King Zhao for a blade, planning to give his student one final, brutal push before the big competition. The master grips his sword, eager to teach a lethal technique, watching with glee as Zhu Jing eyes lock onto his every movement with intense focus. As King Zhao passes a weapon, Chen Ying hovers anxiously, while the very air in the dojo begins to hum with the master's gathering intensity. A close look at the master's hand tightening around the sword hilt reveals the raw power pulsing through his veins like an overcharged battery, and crimson aura explodes outward, weaving a terrifying web of energy that turns the room into a literal, shimmering death trap of blade intent. Staring into the blood-red light, Zhu Jing keeps his cool despite breaking a heavy sweat, bracing his spirit against the oncoming surge of killing intent. Clenching his sword until his knuckles turn white, Zhu Jing resolves that he must embrace the threat of death to truly master this overwhelming power. Inside his psyche, a humongous gilded dragon erupts behind Zhu Jing to defy the teacher's vibe, as he strains his imagination to remain awake. The duo of masters lock horns in a psychic void of crimson and ochre hues, while the echo of their mental strikes rattles the dojo like a physical wall. They remain locked in a spirit stalemate for ages, leaving Shen Ying and Xin Zhao baffled by what nightmare the two of them are currently surviving. The Breen-Haved sibling wonders in snacking, totally perplexed, and upon hearing they are fighting mentally, regrets missing the start of this cinematic disaster. Within the dreamscape, the master bellows that only a sharper bloodlust can secure victory, as the suffocating red energy cranks up the intensity. The mental realm descends into a messy hurricane of strikes, with the mentor's face manifesting in the haste to push Zhu Jing past his breaking point. System ping showers Zhu Jing as he finishes the drill, netting heaps of stats, paying level 5 in vision, and finally unlocking Asura blade intent. The haze dissipates as the brother stares in shock, admitting he cannot wait to witness how much further a freakish talent like Zhu Jing might climb. At Golden Wind Dojo, Master Zhao Hanyan wanders alone looking like he ate something sour, fretting over why his pupil course drama right before the tournament. Lai Qingshuan kneels behind him resembling a total wreck, while Zhao gripes that even he bows to the Dragon Lord, unlike the reckless Brett, blubbering like a baby. Qingshuan admits he knows the truth about capping, the sorrow clearly outweighing any terror he holds for the grumpy master. The master stands as a dark shadow in the frame while his student wallows on the floor, filling the dojo with a gloomy, icy sense of doom. Qingshuan glares up with teary eyes, demanding why his brother perished at Zujing, determined to uncover the secrets even if it kills his social life. Dao gazes down at the kid with a messy expression, clearly debating whether to spill the tea or bury the buried secret 6 feet deeper. He eventually corrects and praises the lad, offering a deal, where a U19 trophy earns him the entire juicy story down to the last drop. Qingshuan wipes his snout and nods with newfound fire, having finally found a reason to compete, even if it is rooted in a total tragedy. Alone in the thick bamboo thicket, Zujing grips his oversized obsidian blade, finding the perfect, quiet vibe for some deep soul-searching and swordplay. He ponders past brawls, recalling roach monsters and rival losers, realizing he needs a power spike to protect the things that keep him sane. Zooming in on his eyes glowing with a feral ruby hue, he pushes his concentration to the ceiling to grasp the true essence of the steel. The Roriju Hotel beast manifests in his vision looking even uglier than before, but Zujing stares it down, his guts turning into solid titanium. He also spots those losers Lai and Zhao, realizing they are just the first few ants he must squash on his road to becoming a legend. Zujing dances in a blur while perfecting his swings, and the experience points for his weapon skills start raining like a digital monsoon. He pauses briefly to see his mastery hit level 3, chucked that he can gain this much grinding XP without actually dying in real life. In a silly chip by daydream, he pictures himself as a total god, thinking if he just stayed here for years, he could conquer the world. However, he gets all serious about the Asura intent, deciding that being a professional slaughterer is way too edgy for his chill personality. He envisions an Asura atop a pile of bones, realizing that having the right to kill everything is useless if you lose your freedom to stop. Thinking of his sisters, the Master, and Wayna, he rejects a future where he turns his blade on his favorites just for some shiny stats. Zui Jing stands in the grove sparking with energy, figuring he can probably mod the Asura intent into something less murdery later on. His phone starts chirping suddenly, and he stares at the screen with a blank look, wondering who is annoying him this early in the day. He cautiously answers the call to hear a stranger mention a contract, realizing his professional schedule is about to become an absolute circus. Get ready for Jiang Siwei, a woman dressed in a corporate blazer that means serious business. She announces she is now the head honcho for his tournament paperwork. Zui Jing finds her inside a massive hallway packed with more stone jutes than a museum. He is busy inspecting the ceiling while she works him toward the counter. The man stops dead in his tracks, his eyes bulging like cartoon light bulbs. There is a wall-swallowing photograph of the guy who took the gold last time. He stares at the glossy image, whispering the name Otojibaru Suzuka. The man is clearly a physical entity, looking as tall and athletic as the documents described. Why mentions the champ in the photo skip the line to the finals since he won already? Zui Jing has many hours of heavy lifting before he gets to that stage. He signals toward a different poster featuring Suzuka and his group members. He is high up in a family company and practices the Sobarai style. He repeats Sobarai while Sister Y goes into full history teacher mode. Their ancient weapon is a sharp blade that started the whole fighting group ages ago. She tells him that members of that style move quicker than a fly in a room. A true expert can swing the limb 1,000 times in a blink. He peers at the rectangle again, imagining the force of all those hits. He mumbles something about 1,000 cut math, finally getting the scale of the top guy. He starts a mental movie where he is inside a rainstorm of sharp movements. He pictures blue light beams moving in every direction at incredible speed. He attempts to simulate double speed in his own skull to see if he can react. His imagination creates yellow sparks while he pretends to strike back. He pulls the edges of his lips toward his ears, thinking his focus can handle that high-speed chaos. He is already listing battle moves in his head. Sister Y catches him looking blankly into space and wonders what his thought patterns are. She watches him while considering the size of the task ahead. She lets out a massive gust of air, looking at the young person focused on the portrait. She keeps her thoughts about his future prospects locked in her brain. She tells him to practice a lot and says maybe he will gain the skills of the champion. He gives her a verbal thanks while his logical brain disagrees. They reach a table featuring a glowing rectangle with text on it. He arrived via the VIP track, so he only needs one scribble to become legal. He reads the small words on the device, seeing a monthly salary of $180,000 and full health cover. He views the digits with very wide eyes. He does not stop to think, dragging the digital pen across the sensor in a rush. He is now a pro worker, and the buses are handling the taxes. Sister Y notes that the tournament format has some special tweaks compared to normal matches. She opens an image of many connected rectangles and lines. She mentions the secondary room for losers. If he fights a guy with hands too fast, he can simply resign and move to the fallback zone. We see a vision of the fallback area, packed with individuals wearing helmets and pads. If you stay conscious there until the end, you earn a match. His internal dialogue starts sprinting at max volume. He calculates that choosing to quit early might be a strategic teleport to the grand finale. But then he stops, thinking that if everyone has the same idea, the consolation zone will be full of top-tier brawlers in one room. He blinks his way back to the hallway and looks at Y. He tells her they are done today, as he needs to practice stances and push-ups. She gives a small vocal confirmation and says to call if he gets stuck on the rules. She walks away in her formal shoes, leaving him. He walks down to the sandy shore where the ocean is doing its noisy thing. The sound of water provides a nice beat for his thinking session. He considers Otojibaru Suzuka again, noting the speed and the sharp metal objects used. He looks at the big distance between his skills and theirs. Suddenly, his deep thinking is ruined by a few guys yelling near the water. A bunch of people invest are surrounding a woman nearby. One guy wearing a red top and a bandana is speaking in a very loud voice. He calls her a nice word and tells her to meet his squad. The bend-on-wearing man talks about the big prize money and the potential wedding in the future. He has his tongue sticking out while he speaks. Zhu groans, complaining that the current roster of opponents is pathetic, because it honestly hurts his pride to fight such bottom-tier trash. A weird shimmer freezes him in his tracks, especially since that nearby water cup is bouncing sunlight around in a way that defies every physics textbook, zooming in on the mysterious victim. Her dark outline glows with a crazy yellow aura, prompting Zhu to realize this lady is definitely not here for a tan. Chui Wen reclines like a seaside queen, radiating that perfect campus idol energy that makes everyone else look like they crawled out of a dumpster. Reports claim she was a bubbly child prodigy, maintaining top-tier marks and appearing like a flawless scholar who never even sneezed incorrectly. However, Zhu knows her secret life is a hot mess, since she oversleeps, rigs every mash, and loses money like a degenerate gambler. Look at this memory, where she tricked a tiny Zhu with an imaginary plane trick just to steal a victory, proving her scammer's soul. She famously drags his reputation through the mud to bamboozle strangers, acting like the chaotic relative everyone warns the kids about at family reunions. During the teenage years, she sold his social presents for snacks, promising her hungry pals a date with him in exchange for a free burger. Returning to the shore where Zhu relaxes, the quiet coastal serenity is moments away from being absolutely obliterated by total chaos. Enormous emerald creepers burst from the dunes with a thud, making the losers shriek in terror as the landscape decides to physically assault them. A nasty plant limb coils around a jerk's arm, and while he thinks it's just annoying foliage, he's about to find out it's a sentient nightmare. These aggressive storks constrict the villains like jungle pythons, turning the former bulls into nothing more than organic fertilizer for the local flora. In a weird twist, the vegetation shoves two idiots together for an unwanted smooch, creating a blurry scene that will require years of expensive therapy. Zhu Wen works while snapping pics of the involuntary romance, calculating exactly how much cash she can extort from these losers using those digital receipts. She mucks them by saying this is a core memory, suggesting they look happier for the lens, which is honestly a savage level of cruelty. The criminals are bound tightly with their tongues wagging like dogs, looking stupid while Zhu Wen loses her mind laughing at their misery. Her giggles are so intense she hides her face, savoring the delightful embarrassment of the weirdos who dare to ruin her sunbathing session. Zhu arrives and stares at the mutated salad, wondering what those storks are, completely oblivious to the accidental gay pride moment he just missed. Zhu Wen feigns shock while applauding, asking why he traveled to Maple City, immediately switching into her fake saintly lady persona to hide her crimes. She rusts his growth spurt and asks if he bored a new face at a clinic, unaware that he simply unlocked the main character's skin. Prodding his biceps with surprise, she inspects his sudden beefiness while he remains stoic, allowing her to poke his newly developed arm boulders. Zhu demands to know about the massive monster she just hid underground, but she just stares blankly like her brain is completely short-circuited. Tickling like an idiot, she plays dumb with a goofy expression, lying straight to his face about the botanical assault that occurred moments ago. Little cartoon Zhu fumes because he knows she is full of garbage, yet he stays quiet to protect his own secret fighting skills. Changing the subject, she probes for his travel reasons, causing him to sweat internally because mentioning the brutal combat contest might freak her out. Eventually he confesses his plan to join a brawl competition, preparing for a massive scolding, though her reaction might actually be unexpectedly chill today. Zhu Wen looks stunned, remarking that he finally found some courage, then pretends to be hurt that he kept such huge news from his elder. Small Zhu squeaks nervously as she confesses he never thought he would actually become a warrior, finally viewing him with a bit of respect. She appears peaceful and proud, even with her trademark mischievous look, showing that she actually loves her cousin despite being a total bully. Zhu attempts to appear rugged, claiming his voluntary path makes him impervious to danger, while doing some subtle muscle flexing to broadcast his newfound dominance. Zhu Wen responds with a sharp look, questioning his bold assertions, and wonders how she could possibly trust his alleged prowess without first conducting a proper field evaluation. Our protagonist stands there utterly baffled, inquiring about the process, since he assumes her complete lack of combat experience makes a legitimate test nearly impossible to visualize. She indicates a distant shoreline tower and suggests a simple sprint, promising to cease her endless badgering regarding his training if he manages to outpace her, offering a rather tempting bargain. Zhu accepts the terms eagerly, warning her against retracting the deal later, convinced that a quick dash across the coastline will be as easy as stealing candy from a baby. Both participants assume the competitive postures upon the shoreline, as the atmosphere thickens with anticipation for what he assumes will be the quickest victory of his entire career. Launching forward, he transforms into a blurry streak of motion, with the sand literally erupting in his wake as his specialized velocity abilities kick into high gear. However, instead of actually running, she remains stationary while making a crisp sound with her thumb and middle finger, a sapphire light pulsing from her hand to initiate some foul play. He gets snagged in the atmosphere by a colossal emerald stem springing from the granules, leaving him utterly flabbergasted that she chose to introduce aggressive foliage into a track meet. Vaulting over the vegetable obstacle with a sharp exhale, he grumbles about her inevitable dirty tactics, while remaining steadfast in his desire to conquer that lighthouse regardless of botanical sabotage. She appears incredibly composed, adjusting her neckline and whispering that the preliminary warm-up is officially over, as the real difficulty is about to skyrocket exponentially. All at once, the entire coastal strip is overrun by those bizarre leafy coils, forcing him to navigate a dense maze of greenery that continues to sprout indefinitely. A stray branch nearly decapitates him, though he successfully evades it, while she offers some mock encouragement, telling him to keep it up even as she attempts to entangle his ankles. He pushes his agility to its absolute max, barely maintaining a lead over the aggressive vegetation, realizing for the first time that her supernatural tricks are legitimately formidable. With his heightened awareness active, a radiant azure beam shines from his eye, as he begins to decrypt the rhythmic behavior of the storks to find a navigable route. After identifying a brief lapse in her perimeter, he focuses on a tiny gap and readies his muscles for an explosive dash toward the finishing line. He dives straight through the opening, yet she only exhibits a certain smugness, knowing full well that she has successfully lured him directly into her elaborate trap. Bringing her palms together firmly, She declares the end of the show, looking as if she is about to summon the legendary patriarch of the entire vegetable kingdom upon him. An enormous stork towers above the area, dwarfing every other plant, while he appears as nothing more than a tiny dot in the sky against such absurd ecological magnitude. Concluding he can no longer hold back, his pupils burn with a savage crimson radiance as he prepares his most devastating retaliatory technique to settle the score, letting out a fierce vocalization. A shimmering amber beast of myth erupts from his aura, showcasing the absolute pinnacle of his secret martial style in a blinding flash. Qi Wan remains frozen in absolute astonishment, her mouth hanging open as a literal celestial serpent hovers over the tideline. Finally acknowledging the terrifying growth of her relative, Qi Jing is seen collapse near the tower base while gasping for air, having technically completed the task, though that final burst of energy has completely drained his batteries. Qi Wan saunters over with zero signs of exertion, informing him that the win belongs to her, pointing her digit at him while gloating over her success despite his cinematic move. Qi Jing asks her quite sincerely about the specific enchantments she employed to perform such feats, suspecting that she might be hiding some profound connection to the occult realm as well. Looking toward the horizon with a theatrical moan, she pretends that she has no clue how to cast spells, maintaining her civilian facade despite having just created a miniature jungle. Adopting a grave expression, she identifies herself as the chosen servant of the floral deity, which sounds like an exceptionally heavy-handed resume entry for someone still in school. The mood gets heavy when she asks if the bun would survive if her identity were ever swallowed by that vast source, leaving him totally tongue-tied by the sudden emotional shift. Internal alarms are blaring in his head, as Qi Jing worries that specific title sounds exactly like some forbidden entity, wondering if her powers are linked to a lethal divine artifact. Interrupting his contemplation with a sharp thwack between his shoulder blades, she commands him to stop the overthinking and emphasizes that his dinner debt is still unpaid. Claiming she is not finicky, she suggests dining at his hotel, leaving Qi Jing to grumble internally while accepting his grim fate as a suffering younger brother. An exterior night view of the Mikado Hotel reveals a fancy establishment, clearly perfect for an expensive sibling meal destined to drain our poor hero's wallet dry. Inside the room, Catgirl Wina sulks on the sofa, obsessing over Qi Jing's delay while conjuring vivid nightmares of him flirting with some mysterious gorgeous lady. Catching hallway footsteps, her sensitive ears twitch with excitement, convinced that her long-awaited delivery of fried chicken has finally arrived to appease her appetite. She lunges toward the entrance, prepared to scold him for his tardiness, boldly declaring she refuses to offer forgiveness regardless of what food he brought back. The door swings open to reveal Zhu Jing supporting a tipsy beauty, leaving Wina frozen in stunned silence as the stranger casually announces her plans to stay overnight. The close-up shows Wina vibrating with rage, her silhouette engulfed in a phantom inferno while her eyes glow red with roar, unadulterated jealousy toward the guilty guy. Wina continues to seethe, jabbing a finger at Zhu Jing, who attempts to calm the storm while his cousin remains blissfully indifferent to the fiery chaos unfolding nearby. Sweating profusely, Zhu Jing raises his palms to plead for a chance to explain, yet the tipsy blonde clinging to his arm is doing absolutely zero favors for his innocence. With a mischievous smirk, the cousin plays right into the drama, asking who she is in a tone specifically calculated to maximize the misery of her poor cousin. Staring in disbelief, Zhu Jing wonders what chaotic game his cousin is playing as she leans closer, relishing his distress while Wina reaches her absolute boiling point. Hitting her limit, Wina points an accusory finger, demanding to know their exact connection. Captured in a dramatic frame with her cat ears flattened by sheer fury, trapped in a sparkling tug of war, Zhu Jing realizes his cousin prioritizes her own amusement over his survival and could not care less if he perished in this conflict. Desperately shoving them inside, he clarifies she is his cousin, but Winer offers only a skeptical glare, clearly refusing to believe his flimsy family-based alibi today. Zhu Jing signals his cousin to cease the ridiculous games, but she merely rewards him with a cheeky grin, proving her trolling session has only just begun. Doubling down, she reminds him of his promise to address her as Zara Wine, posing inside a flowery pink bubble meant to spite the cat girl with extra drama. In a dark, gloomy panel, Zhu Jing grips his sanity as he pleads for her trust, but the mention of Zara proves to be the final nail in his romantic coffin. Wina seizes his jacket, her features twisted into a mask of pure wrath, signaling that a physical confrontation in the hallway is becoming quite inevitable at this point. She issues a final ultimatum, warning that if he enters with that woman, he should forget about seeing her again, leaving Zhu Jing defeated by his own excessive luck. Wina offers a vacant, hollow-eyed stare, having systematically dismantled his entire life within 2 minutes without showing a single shred of genuine remorse or guilt. Adopting a stern, protective tone, Zhu Jing warns his cousin that if she refuses to clear up this mess, she can kiss her academic future goodbye for good. The threat proves effective, as Zhu Wen concocts a sudden urge to use the restroom and beats a hasty retreat, leaving the disgruntled couple alone in silence. Seated on the bed, Wina remains humbled yet suspicious, admitting she doubts the cousin's story slightly but still finds the whole bizarre scenario difficult to swallow. As they lounge, the girl starts hearing mortifying stories about his childhood bedwetting, causing Zhu Jing to bury his face in shame while praying for immediate invisibility. Switching topics, Zhu Jing inquires about where his cousin attends classes, only to receive the vague and highly suspicious response that she has absolutely no idea. Wina turns serious, questioning his sudden curiosity regarding her education, to which Zhu Jing offers a dismissive reply while his brain begins racing with suspicion. Internally, Zhu Jing bickers with his subconscious over his intentions, desperately attempting to map out the connections between his cousin and the supernatural threats he faces. With arms crossed, Wina wears a dark expression, claiming to detect an scent clinging to his cousin, which immediately places Zhu Jing on high defensive alert. Recalling the beach finds, he wonders if this relates to botanical threats, slowly piecing together a terrifying puzzle that keeps him on the edge of his seat. Suddenly, A metaphorical light bulb illuminates Weiner's mind. Her eyes sparking as a distinct, long-forgotten scent triggers a flash of vital recognition from her past. She bellows that it is a flower god society, and a vision of a gorgeous lady draped in traditional robes amidst falling petals manifests right behind her. We drift back to when Weiner commanded the Dragon sect, recalling a time the cult proposed an alliance, which she shut down with legendary speed. She notes that after getting ghosted, the cultists produced a boring potted plant, but that simple memory now feels like a scene from a horror flick. Weiner insists the plant look basic, but the woman pulled a terrifying stunt that escalated the tension into a full-blown mystery about the society. The lady whispered a chant, causing the dull shrub to explode into bloom, emitting a supernatural aura that definitely was not just good fertilizer. A close-up of those neon yellow blooms reveals they are gorgeous yet lethal, perfectly representing the weird, ominous vibe of the flower god cult. She zapped the flower with a scanner that let out a harsh beep, proving that magic is basically just fancy high-tech hardware disguised as mysticism. The Madamada flashed Divine Relic 0, confirming the plant morphed into a godly artifact on the spot, a level of power that defies all logic. Su Jing is absolutely shook, realizing his cousin has the exact same vine summoning talent, which makes his family tree look rather suspicious today. Wane confirms it, noting the cultist vanished into thin air after the rejection, leaving them with a connection that is impossible to ignore now. She mentions his cousin carries that same eerie scent, and suddenly the pieces of the puzzle form a picture that is honestly quite terrifying for him. Su Jing stares at his cousin's photo, wondering if she is linked to that creepy blossom lord, realizing his perfect relative might actually be a cultist. He recalls her asking if he would still love her after she turned dark, concluding Wu Yuking is the only one smart enough to explain these relics. Suddenly his deception skill alerts him to some heavy, aggressive footsteps stomping down the hall that definitely do not belong to a friendly delivery guy. He yells at Weina that his cousin is still showering and they must bounce, sensing a massive threat is about to crash that peaceful morning. Weina, currently a cat, realizes her shapeshifting timer is ticking down, while Zhu Jing panics because his fusion plans just get wrecked by invaders. He drums on the bathroom door begging his cousin to hurry, while the thundering sound of charging footsteps gets way too close for comfort. The noise grows louder as we see a dark shadow creeping toward the front door, turning the tension dial up to a record-breaking 11. Zhu Jing screams at his cousin to open up, feeling trapped in this apartment with a cat and a showering relative as the enemy arrives. He wonders if they are going to barge in again, knowing that if his cousin is caught mid-shower, things are going to get incredibly awkward. Zhu Jing grabs a handle, bracing himself for the inevitable physical beating he is about to receive, but he has to prioritize family safety first. He decides to dash inside, muttering that getting punched is better than being seen in the buff, and bursts through the door like a lunatic. He shouts that danger is knocking and orders his sister to grab the cat and move, embarking on a frantic mission to evacuate the premises. As the steam dissipates, his eyes bulge with genuine shock, seeing an empty bathroom with water running but absolutely no cousin left to be found. He mumbles in confusion, noticing the window is wide open with a blue glow lingering, realizing she has pulled another vanishing act on him. Zhu Jing activates his trekking skill, seeing her shimmering after images dashing out the window, effectively ditching his attempt at playing the hero. Suddenly the apartment door is vaporized in a massive explosion, sending debris flying everywhere as the attackers make a very rude, violent entrance. We see Maple City University glowing under a crisp autumn sun, where one student strolls along, completely oblivious to the hotel chaos unfolding nearby. The view shifts to a garden where Shui Wen meets a polished woman in a suit who asks if this is a visit with an icy professional sneer. Shui Wen looks visibly irritated, firing back to ask if there is an issue, dropping her bubbly act to stand tall against the formidable stranger. Professor Su reminds the gal she was handpicked by the Thousand Blossoms bigwig, insisting her measly mortal bloodline is basically garbage compared to her new lofty status. Shui Wen spreads her arms, arguing they are merely lucky folks rather than actual deities, still clinging to her family like a stubborn human despite losing this verbal scrap. She brags that her little brother is a martial arts prodigy, desperately trying to prove Shui Jing his actual worth to her bizarre and creepy soul-sucking cult. The professor just snorts at the mention of fighting, dismissing the entire martial arts craft as a pathetic mortal hobby that is ultimately destined to be a flop. Standing amidst a patch of blood-red roses, she stares coldly while lecturing that human lives are fleeting, claiming mundane paths are a total snooze for someone like her. She threatens that if Shui Wan real wants to keep her brother in her life, he should join the Weird Squad too, which sounds suspiciously like a Kinbra offer. The professor hints that worshipping the Flower Lord might help him ascend the holy stairs by her side, proving this organization is creepier than a haunted basement. Shui Wen goes totally stone-faced while blaring at the professor, clearly done with playing nice as her protective big sister mode finally starts to kick in. The close-up shows some gross mutated fungus, and Shui Wen growls for the professor to watch her tone if she expects to keep her head attached to her neck. Massive vines and mushrooms burst out everywhere, and she bellows that nobody better lay a single finger on her brother, showing off some seriously terrifying new powers. Professor Su stays totally chill even as the garden becomes a leafy nightmare, actually appearing amused by the display rather than her usual fake and bubbly act. With a spooky glow in her eyes and a glitchy face, the professor mutters that it is already too late, implying that Shui Jing is headed for major trouble. Shui Jing is back home sensing danger as his front door gets blasted off its hinges, immediately bracing himself to throw hands with a rude unwanted visitor. The giant green vine lashes through the air, causing Shui Jing to squint his eyes and whisper his sister's name while dodging the freaky botanical ambush. He narrowly sidesteps the whip-like branch, realizing the attacker is not stopping and his cozy apartment is quickly turning into a lethal jungle gym of doom. Snatching the glowing vine with his bare hand, Shui Jing is left speechless when his system chimes with a notification that he has struck gold. The digital message confirms the presence of divine essence, and he realizes this wild plant is actually some sort of fancy relic, not just a gardening mishap. He yanks the vine with a massive tug, dragging a hooded trestor into the light who looks genuinely shocked that a kid could be this incredibly strong. The intruder groans in pain while Shui Jing demands to know if they represent the Flower Society, secretly soaking up 5% of that tasty essence. The hood slips down to reveal Lucy, the cult member who gives a smug grin while noting that the boy has already sniffed out the secret. Sissy makes a weird sales pitch for the Flower Lord and the Merciful Mother, which sounds like the kind of pitch only a total cult enthusiast would love. Chui Jing stares with a glowing golden fist and a bored face, asking if breaking his door was really necessary, while his power absorption hits 15%. A chip by Chui Jing sweats while stalling for more essence, then stares straight into her soul and asks if she dropped her brain on the way over. Sissy gets triggered as her aura flares with pink petals, yelling that only the weird cult can guide humanity correctly and demanding he join them right now. Remembering his sister's torque of the Flower Lord, Chui Jing realizes the threat is legit and ignites his eyes with dark purple energy to prep his counter. He decides to tie her up with shadow flames before prying for info on his sister, letting menacing black smoke swirl around his arm like a dark accessory. Sissy gasps in total disbelief, pointing a trembling finger and stammering that he is a blessed one, never guessing a high schooler could pack such power. Chui Jing gives her a predatory glare, noting that his shadow phi clearly filled in all the blanks regarding his true power level as he reaches 27%. Sissy keeps pushing her cold package, promising that joining up will let him control plants, as if that is somehow better than his awesome black fire. Chui Jing smirks while pointing out the pathetic initiation success rate, effectively roasting her shady organization and refusing to buy into her flowery lies. Sissy's boss sends a blunt telepathic memo to quit stalling, while Chui Jing keeps harvesting her essence like a greedy garden gnome. The system chimes with a delightful notification that the essence collection is finished, making Chui Jing jump for joy since his big upgrade is finally ready. The giant golden button glows in midair, and Chui Jing smashes it instantly, eager to level up his shadow flame to tier 2. With the buff active, his control range blooms by a fifth, slows enemies down, and guarantees a grab, so he mucks her cult offer as a hard pass. In a cute chibi fantasy, Chui Jing envisions himself soaring with shadowy wings, feeling smug about his massive tactical boost. Back in reality, Sissy loses her mind, screeching in confusion as to why anyone would reject her divine master's benevolent religious offer. Trotting off her drama, he calls himself a stubborn youth who finds immense pleasure in doing the complete opposite of what he's told. He lounges back with a cheeky smirk, suggesting she wait a few decades before asking again, clearly ranking as a world champion of sass. He spots one of the cats still hanging around, wondering why his sister fled the scene so quickly and left him to handle the psycho alone. Cece snaps and detonates a massive sphere of emerald energy, warning him that her kidnapping mission is non-negotiable and violence is the only way. The hall glows with blinding green radiance as she prepares to level the place, yelling that force is the only language he will understand now. Realizing the strap was a calculated move rather than a whim, he braces for impact as the floorboards buckle under the sheer pressure. He scoops up Weiner and wants her to hang on tight, fully aware that this 30-second floor brawl is about to get extremely messy. A focused close-up captures his intense gaze as he maps out an exit, knowing an enclosed hallway is just a coffin with extra steps. He obliterates the glass with a thunderous crash, diving off the building like a daredevil and leaving Cece completely bewildered in the debris. Leaning over the broken frame, Cece shrieks in disbelief, asking if he has lost his mind since even legends do not usually bungee jump off skyscrapers. Plummeting through the dark air, he ignores Weiner's panicked screeching, focusing his mind on tethering the shadow flame to the concrete wall. A ribbon of dark energy erupts from his palm like a demonic grappling hook, latching onto the masonry with a satisfying and sharp snap. It actually holds, allowing him to swing alongside the tower like edgy vigilante, noting that the surface is perfectly slick for his new skill. Despite the shaky initial feedback, he masters the shadow flame anchor, gliding past the vertical architecture with the grace of a confused bat. He looks like a tiny speck swinging by urban windows, needing total concentration to avoid an accidental splatter on the pavement below. He crashes into an open car door of an adjacent tower, puffing for air after that adrenaline-filled and frankly suicidal maneuver. Familiar voices call out his name, and he spots his two senior sisters looking like they just witnessed an impossible circus act. Sixth sister Shanying blinks, asking how he managed to fall from the sky, clearly shocked that her little brother chose flying over using the stairs. Lacking time for explanations, he grabs them both and demands they move, sensing that the danger is still creeping up behind them. He shoves his sisters into a sleek sedan, his only goal being to put as many miles as humanly possible between them and that fanatic. Cece screams from the balcony for him to surrender, but he just ignores her, leaving the frustrated stalker abandoned on the sidewalk. Panning on the street, Cece looks defeated until her master signals a retreat, realizing the prize has successfully slipped through her fingers today. Inside the serene university garden, Chui Wen stands alone, her expression heavy as the recent torque with the professor weighs on her mind. Professor Su creeps up behind her, remarking that her brother's status as a blessed one is quite a fascinating development for her research. The lady professor admits she totally botched her background checks, and now she is burning with curiosity about which weird deity Chui Jing is actually working for. She tells Chui Wen to chill out because her boss has no plans to eat her brother yet, though it sounds about as safe as a shark promising a hug. The teacher drops a terrifying ultimatum about what happens if the boy turns into a problem, basically forcing the girl to choose between her weird cult and her family. Chui Wen says yes without blinking while the instructor creeps up behind her like a ghost, claiming the whole floral fan club will follow when the time is right. We get a tight shot of the girl as her eyes start burning with a weird orange fire, and she mumbles prayers to some Blossom King like a total fanatic. Inside the zooming limo, the oldest sibling is finally losing her cool and demanding the truth, asking the little guy to explain why the day turned into a disaster. She points a finger at his face and asks why he was being chased and why he did that crazy jump, while Zhu Jing looks guilty and Weina sits quietly. The boy tries to act soothed by claiming he was just napping until someone decided to remodel the hotel wall with his head, but his sister is not buying it. Big sister actually whacks him on the head, making him yell that he was wrong while the other sister just watches the drama unfold with a totally blank face. He looks very serious for once and explains that the people hunting him down are members of some petal posse, adding another scary name to the list of enemies. He tells them they want him to be their special chosen mascot, leaving the sisters looking completely shell-shocked as they realize how much trouble their brother has actually found. We see his face as he repeats the name of the floral group, thinking about all the crazy stuff he learned today and knowing his normal life is officially over. Senior sister Shanyang sits in the back of the vehicle looking like she's ready for a massive brawl, muttering that the inevitable trouble has finally arrived while the scene fades out. So please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe and also leave a comment below.